This guy was a natural born, awakened, born with power far beyond others. However, the first thing Kim Sejun had to do was pay off the debt left behind by his dear parents. 9 long years passed, and he finally had enough saved up to enroll in the Hunter Academy he'd always dreamed of. While scrolling online, an ad for the Supreme Academy suddenly caught his eye, making him stop in his tracks. What the hell is this? The video was full of over-the-top praise, hyping it up to the moon. He was speechless and swiped to the next video, which was Sun Wukong spinning his staff. But the sheer power and skill it displayed left Kim Sejun's jaw on the floor. Unfreaking believable. Out of curiosity, Kim Sejun clicked on the registration button. Immediately, the number $40,000 appeared on the screen, the exact amount of money he had. Yeah, right, trying to scam me. Huh, I guess your consciousness really is determined by your material conditions. He quickly bounced from the website, put on his hard hat, and went back to his shift. But in life, you never know what's coming. Kim Sejun's hopes and dreams would all vanish in the few seconds that followed. In a single moment, the chain hoisting a monster carcass snapped right above his head. Everything around Kim Sejun went as black as his future. His body was critically injured, requiring exactly $40,000 for surgery. The company shamelessly refused to cover the workplace accident. His bright future was over, right there on that hospital bed. To cover the surgery costs, he was now left with only the $3,000 that Mr. Manchun had given him earlier. While in a daze, his phone suddenly vibrated with a notification about the Supreme Academy. To Kim Sejun's complete surprise, the registration fee had been discounted to $3,000. With nothing left to lose, he decided to go big or go home and give it a shot. The moment his finger touched the button, the envelope of money beside him began to evaporate, scaring the hell out of him. After successfully registering, a tiny little guy glowing brightly crawled out of his phone. It announced that it would be the advisor in charge of teaching him, making Kim Sejun think he must have gotten a head injury too. Oh, that's just great. An advisor named Mentor. The little guy gleefully boasted that Seo-jun was the first student he'd ever been in charge of, which made Kim Sejun suspect that someone here was in even worse shape than he was. Mentor explained that the Supreme Academy was a place where the teachers were individuals who always sought to surpass the limits of their respective races, which startled Kim Sejun. So this was a school for transcendence, not hunters. What the hell is a hunter compared to that? Mentor quickly had Kim Sejun take an aptitude test to determine his current disposition. He nervously tapped through it but had no idea what to choose for the second question because he didn't currently possess any of those abilities. Sheesh. Mentor let out a sigh. I guess. Our academy will just have to accept you for now. With that, it fired off 180 questions in a row, making Kim Sejun feel like he was about to die right there in his bed. After seeing that his preferred fighting style was spearmanship, Mentor thought for a moment and decided to choose Eastern Key cultivation for him. With that, it pulled up a lecture from Professor Buddha, leaving Kim Sejun completely frozen, questioning his own existence. What the hell is this? Following Mentor's advice, he clicked on the lecture titled Unwavering Adamantine Mind. The image of Buddha and his teachings echoed in his ears, and Kim Sejun instantly fell into a daze, as if he was totally stoned. After listening non-stop for a week, Kim Sejun's body had fully recovered and was even stronger than before, astonishing all the doctors. The power of the Dharma is truly amazing. Kim Sejun was damn near enlightened after hearing that, even though he'd only completed 1.3% of the course. He greedily decided to try Kenan's lecture next. Kenan was a centaur half-man, half-horse, and the teacher of most heroes in Greek mythology. He excitedly lay down, ready to listen and chill. Suddenly, the man roared, ordering him to get on his feet, and fast. It startled Sejun so badly he almost fell off the bed. A notification for a daily personal quest he needed to complete then appeared on his phone screen. The physical training was way tougher than usual and too much for Kim Sejun, making him sigh in frustration as he prepared to skip it. But no matter how many times he tapped it, the screen stubbornly displayed the notification, forcing him to complete the quest, which made Kim Sejun feel like he was about to freaking wither away. Is this how I die? A dejected Kim Sejun had no choice but to click back on Professor Buddha's lecture. Then, a new notification appeared on the toolbar. The deadline for completing the quest was 83 days. This time, he was really screwed. From that day on, even though he really didn't want to, Kim Sejun had to train his body day after day, clinging to the small hope that he would get stronger. But even after studying everything for a whole week, his progress bar hadn't budged one bit. Well, it had been a while since he last exercised, so Kim Sejun took this as an excuse to train his body, huffing and puffing through 300 push-ups until he felt like jelly. Just as he was about to switch to a different exercise, he noticed the screen only showed 81 reps. Turns out, it only counted them if his form was perfect. That was just plain evil. Crying without tears, Kim Sejun gritted his teeth and cursed under his breath as he trained. He worked himself to the bone from morning till night, and finally met the quota. He was so tired he could have coughed up blood, rolling around on the ground and cursing non-stop under the confused gazes of the people around him. Are you kidding me? From now on, Kim Sejun would have to do the exact same quest every single day and listen to lectures on top of that. Just thinking about it made him want to pass out. A few days later, while heading out of the hospital lobby to exercise, he ran into an old woman and greeted her. On the TV, a news report was playing about an awakened who had swiftly dealt with a slumbering monster thanks to his powerful abilities, which made the old woman very excited. While he was awkwardly trying to figure out how to explain his own current strength to her, the middle-aged man sitting next to them bluntly advised him that it would be best to just give up, making Kim Sejun clench his fists in anger. He coldly stated that he would decide what to do with his own life. Why don't you worry about your own life first? Then he stormed off, a barrage of curses following him. Who the hell are you to stop me from chasing my dream? With the conviction that he would become a professional hunter, Kim Sejun trained arduously, day in and day out. Meanwhile, at the academy, an earth-shattering battle was taking place between a female teacher and a massive, ferocious beast. After a thunderous clash, her sharp sword strikes had sliced it to pieces. The metallic stench of fresh blood sprayed across the courtyard, mixing with dust and smoke, leaving behind a scene of utter devastation. After 2 hellish weeks, Kim Sejun was finally able to go home. He blissfully collapsed onto his bed, but his mind was still troubled by the hunter exam next year. Suddenly, he remembered that he had completed today's daily quest. The system had also unlocked the next lesson for him, making Kim Sejun shout for joy. Master Kennen was a bit surprised to see he had persistently returned. With that, he picked up his staff to prepare for the next lesson. That's what it feels like. The next morning, even though he didn't want to in the slightest, Kim Sejun had to shamelessly drag himself back to the construction site to work because he was completely broke. And now a new money-related problem had come up. He had to work to eat, but if he worked, he wouldn't have time for his lectures or daily quests. This problem gave the great sage Kim Sejun a major headache. During a rare break, Seo-jun mentally reviewed the previous lesson about the 5 senses that play a decisive role in battle: sight, hearing, smell, touch, and taste. Because these processes are too slow, Master Kennen had taught him how to shorten them by using his intuition, his 6th sense. While he was lost in thought, a colleague from behind suddenly reached out to grab his shoulder. But surprisingly, Seo-jun dodged it easily, as if he had eyes in the back of his head, leaving the man completely astonished. Afterward, Kim Sejun was even able to carry 3 monster segments with a total weight of 200 kilograms with ease, despite having just recovered from a major injury. It made everyone at the construction site's eyes go wide with shock. This is insane. He felt like he was overflowing with power. He realized that if he waited until after work, he wouldn't have much time left, so he decided to do squats while carrying the cargo. As soon as he did a few reps, the system automatically tripled the count. Turns out, the heavier the load, the more effective it was. Realizing this truth, Kim Sejun was over the moon, so that's how it was. In the following days, he made sure to work and train at the same time, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, by earning money while saving time. But the toll of those intense days left his body completely drained and aching. The results, however, were just as impressive. He had now finished all the old lessons, so he decided to look for other free courses to continue. After a bit of searching, Kim Sejun stumbled upon Professor Xiang Yu, also known as the Hegemon King of Western Chu. He was a mythological figure renowned everywhere for his superior physical abilities. Hey, if it's free, I'm signing up. The moment Kim Sejun clicked, he was immediately cussed out by Xiang Yu, which left him completely stunned. After listening to the guy curse for a while, the system popped up a new mission: swing a spear-type weapon 5,000 times, leaving him with no idea what the hell was going on. The lesson was over after just a few sentences, and now there was this bizarre mission. You really get what you pay for. The next day, Park Ji-hyun, the Sword Saint's granddaughter, made a surprise visit to the construction site where Kim Sejun worked to check on a recent accident, amidst the fearful whispers of the workers there. Hearing the name Sword Saint Park Min-chun sent a chill down Kim Sejun's spine, because 100 years ago, he was an awakened who was active when the concept of gates first appeared. Unlike the systematic knowledge of awakened today, the monsters back then were far more ferocious and swarmed the streets. It was a time when humanity's survival wasn't guaranteed, and Park Min-chun was an awakened who arose in such a world. He was also one of the people who rebuilt this world's civilization, a hero who saved the world. Though he was old now, he was still a powerful force on this planet, which made Kim Sejun respect him immensely. With that thought, he started hauling goods with even more effort. His unsightly appearance caught Park Ji-hyun's attention. Just like any other day, he was constantly using the monster carcasses to train his body. While he was talking with a colleague, one of the monster corpses suddenly twitched and lunged at the other man in a flash, catching them both completely off guard. A few minutes earlier, Park Ji-hyun, exhausted from being surrounded by the workers, had escaped to a dark corner, thinking to herself that she really wasn't cut out to be a principal here. Hearing the whispers about her abilities only reaching B rank couldn't help but sting. because he was the Sword Saint, a hero respected by all. But to her, that name was nothing more than a heavy title weighing on her shoulders. Even though Park Ji-hyun had been trained by her own grandfather to be a hunter since she could walk, the wall known as the Sword Saint was still too high to climb, and she didn't have the ability to overcome it. As someone constantly compared to her incredibly talented grandfather, her original dream was to become a teacher, but that was crushed by him. Her compromise was a hunter academy, but after news broke that the Sword Saint wouldn't be appearing at the academy she founded, all the students lost interest and left. They hadn't enrolled for her, but for the Sword Saint. All she wanted was a suitable student. While she was lost in thought, the sudden clamor from nearby, signaling a monster's appearance, startled her. At that moment, Kim Sejun and the other man were being cornered by the ferocious beast. He could do nothing but scream helplessly at the sight of his colleague facing death. He was so horrified he froze, realizing that a normal person could never be stronger than a monster, not even awakened who couldn't use mana. Not to mention, that monster was a 4-star beast. Even professional hunters would have a hard time taking it down. By the time Park Ji-hyun got there, it would be too late. In a few more seconds, the man would be right in its jaws. Kim Sejun trembled, and after a moment's hesitation, he decided to risk it all and charged forward to fight it to the death. He started beating it relentlessly, shielding the other man and yelling for him to run. In a flash, it was just him and the savage monster. Kim Sejun tried to calm himself, telling himself he just had to hold out until the pro hunters arrived. Easier said than done. His body was still shaking uncontrollably with fear. In his panic, the teachings of Gautama Buddha suddenly echoed in his mind, calming his thoughts and bringing him peace. His fear and his trembling heart were gradually suppressed, giving him the courage to face the evil beast that was winding up for a strike. Realizing that if he waited to think before reacting, it would be too late, Kim Sejun had to act on instinct. And just like that, he easily dodged its solid punches. With that, he channeled Xiang Yu's mountain uprooting skill, aimed for its weak spot, and brought his weapon down with all his might. The rod in his hand flashed for a moment. Less than a second later, a deafening explosion erupted. Hearing the commotion, Park Ji-hyun rushed over. Through the dust, she could faintly see the charismatic figure of Kim Sejun standing next to the monster's blood-soaked corpse. It seemed he had successfully applied the professor's lessons. That's my boy. What the hell just happened here? Park Ji-hyun couldn't believe her eyes. Someone who wasn't even a hunter, who didn't have any decent weapons, using only a steel pipe. How could someone like Kim Sejun pull this off? Ignoring the bewildering scene she was witnessing, Kim Sejun rushed past her, extremely worried about his colleague. Park Ji-hyun quietly watched the noisy scene of Kim Sejun talking with the others and suddenly blurted out, "I've found him, a suitable cadet." The workday ended just like that, with the foreman's scolding glare and threats, forbidding anyone from speaking about what had just happened. Kim Sejun quickly opened his phone to check and was startled to find that his lecture progress rate had increased by so much. He figured it was probably because he'd understood something after taking down that monster earlier. It seemed the best way to increase the lecture progress rate was to use what he learned in a real battle. But the problem was, if he couldn't join a hunter academy and get a provisional license, he wouldn't be able to raid dungeons. It seemed financial problems were weighing on Kim Sejun's shoulders again because he needed to save up money to apply. While he was racking his brain, Park Ji-hyun suddenly appeared behind him. She said she wanted to talk to him. As soon as he saw her, Kim Sejun immediately recognized her as the Sword Saint's granddaughter and couldn't help but wonder why someone like her would want to talk to him. Park Ji-hyun didn't hesitate and got straight to the point. She wanted to invite him to meet her grandfather, but unfortunately, contrary to her expectations, Kim Sejun flatly refused and walked away, leaving her completely flustered. As a 31-year-old, Park Ji-hyun was experiencing something she never had before, so she was a little bewildered. Kim Sejun spoke coldly, saying he simply couldn't believe in an academy of hers that had no cadets. It sounded sketchy as hell just hearing about it. Park Ji-hyun was at a loss for words, unsure how to explain it to him. After seeing him do those strange exercises, and even while in a severely weakened state, still managed to slice that 4-star monster in half, she felt it was obvious he was trying to become a hunter, plain and simple. She hurriedly ran after him, promising him the equipment and facilities there, but he still adamantly refused. Backed into a corner, Park Ji-hyun had no choice but to play her final card, her grandfather. With that, she said she would ask her grandfather to teach him swordsmanship, which made Kim Sejun pause for a brief moment, but the answer was still no. This drove her crazy, seeing him refuse an offer to learn from the Sword Saint himself. The one thing every professional hunter wanted. Her desire to recruit him grew more and more intense. She was determined not to let him get away so easily. Park Ji-hyun laid it all out. She said she would help him affiliate with her academy, provide a private place to train, and most importantly, his tuition would be free. Kim Sejun was tempted when he heard that, but he was wary, wondering what he'd have to do for her in return, because in this world, there's no such thing as a free lunch. What she really wanted was for him to participate in as many other competitions as possible under her academy's name before he passed the professional hunter exams, so that others would get to know about it. Kim Sejun was starting to get swayed by Park Seol-johoon's tempting offer. Even though she could solve all his problems in one go, he couldn't understand why she'd go to such lengths just to make him join. Under the brilliant afternoon sun, Park said in a low voice that it was because she had seen his potential. Her resolute expression didn't seem half bad to Kim Sejun. The two happily shook hands. On the surface, their goals seemed to be one and the same, but deep down, it was a relationship of mutual exploitation. The next day, Kim Sejun received news that the construction foreman had been fired because he himself had asked Park Seon to take care of it. This made everyone incredibly happy. And today, Kim Sejun's joy multiplied as it was his first day at the Hunter Academy. As soon as he arrived at the gate, Park Seon was already there waiting to hand him a certificate. Kim Sejun took it, looking bewildered. He felt that even though he wasn't a professional hunter yet, this was the first step on the journey to achieving his dream. Before beginning his training, Park Seon told Kim Sejun he had to first choose a weapon in preparation for entering a dungeon she had reserved for him. In a flash, he had chosen a staff for himself and followed her into the pitch-black rat's nest. Are these all just rank 2 monsters inside? This was the perfect place for someone with no experience like him to test his skills. Suddenly, a rat fiend lunged at him, but Kim Sejun deftly dodged it. With that, he immediately swung his staff again and again, striking the monster squarely and sending it staggering. After a bit of fighting, Kim Sejun was thrilled to discover his progress was steadily increasing. It seemed this place was perfect for him, where he could both increase his power and earn money. It was just like grinding for experience in a game, making him more and more excited, and his speed and power grew faster and stronger than ever. Park Seon started to wonder if she'd picked the wrong guy. She already knew he was a strange kind of crazy, but to come right back from clearing a dungeon and immediately bury his head in his phone, muttering to himself like that, she'd never seen anything like it. In Park Seon's eyes, Kim Sejun looked just like a patient who had escaped from a mental hospital. She had no idea how many hours he'd been staring at that black screen. And the bigger problem was that his eccentricities didn't stop there. Kim Sejun, a cadet with no proper training, had somehow managed to slaughter a horde of rat fiends on his first dungeon clear like a hunter with over 10 years of experience. It truly made her jaw drop. After clearing the scene, he started doing some bizarre exercises while moving the corpses himself. The fact that he was doing a job he could have solved simply by calling a corpse removal service was just mind-boggling, beyond anything she could imagine. But what worried Seon just as much right now was how she was going to explain his sudden appearance to him. With that, she buried her head in her hands in frustration, listening to Kim Sejun's yells. It was already past midnight, and he still hadn't finished all his lectures. Things were really getting complicated. The next day, Kim Sejun grinned from ear to ear, staring at his bank account screen, which was now filled with a whole lot of zeros. See? All my hard work paid off. Still, he couldn't help but feel that cleanup jobs like this were a waste of his precious lecture time. Kim Sejun suddenly wondered if he should ask his coworker, Mr. Manchun, to come and work with him. Then again, thinking about the nearly $10,000 he had just earned, Kim Sejun briefly wondered what he should do with it. Clearing the dungeon had helped him earn money and increase his lecture progress, but it wasn't happening as fast as he'd hoped. Suddenly, in a moment of thought, Kim Sejun remembered the legendary Great Sage, Heaven's Equal Lecture. With that, he excitedly tapped the register button. But what the hell? The price jumped all the way up to $27 million, making him want to smash his phone and cry his eyes out. My God, you damn capitalists. Just what I'd expect from the Supreme Academy. At a price like this, I'll be drowning in debt even after I become a professional hunter. Kim Sejun moped and whined for a while before finally pulling himself together and continuing to scroll, seeing if there were any decent items for sale. After a bit of searching, his jaw dropped when he saw they had every damn thing on here, from holy water and divine shields to even the spear of the holy dragon genus. Even though they were just replicas, they were all legendary-grade equipment, enough to leave someone like him, who knew nothing about weapons, completely stunned. The thought that equipment created by such transcendent beings could be bought and sold so easily made Kim Sejun's eyes light up like headlights. He immediately tapped to buy the spear of the holy dragon genus without a second thought. However, that was just the intention. Whether or not he could actually afford it was another story. The number $100,000 appeared, but it only made him train even more furiously. At the same time, Kim Sejun was crying without tears, having no idea how he'd ever dig up that much money. Looks like he'd have to wait until his next life to watch that $27 million Great Sage lecture. Park Seon gave a strained smile as she quietly approached and handed him a folder about the academy race. It was a competition between academies where countless students participated to show off their elite skills. She explained that the academy race was a Tier 4 tournament. The winner could earn the right to participate in a higher-tier tournament, be permitted to enroll in the academy, and receive government authorization. Because of this, the Hunter Academies didn't hesitate to pour all their brightest talents into the competition, and Seon's intentions were written all over her face. She laughed heartily and said she wanted Kim Se-jun to participate as a representative for her Hunter Academy. After a moment's hesitation, he agreed to give it a try for the experience, which made Seon overjoyed. Although she didn't know the exact details of the race, she knew the final score would be calculated by combining the points from the dungeon stage and the cadet tournament. This couldn't help but make Kim Se-jun feel insecure about his own abilities, since his only combat experience was against a bunch of rat fiends. Compared to the other cadets, he had zero experience. Well, in for a penny, in for a pound. After thinking for a moment, Kim Se-jun spoke up, asking to have a sparring match with Seon. Since she was a B-rank hunter, trained by the legendary Sword Saint, her hidden power truly piqued Kim Se-jun's curiosity. Just like that, the two of them got into their ready stances, weapons in hand. Seon quickly realized that Kim Se-jun's hasty attacks, while fast, were also sloppy, making it easy for her to predict where he would strike next. Her expectations lowered a bit, and she swung her sword, intending to end it and show him his place. But strangely enough, the powerful slash of sword energy she unleashed was deftly blocked by Kim Se-jun in the blink of an eye, even if he struggled a bit. Seon froze, unable to believe he could block a mana-infused strike like that. According to the script, his weapon should have flown out of his hands, and her sword should be at his throat right now. Seeing Seon's dazed expression, Kim Se-jun let out a cocky little smile and charged forward again, swinging his staff. This is unreal. All of a sudden, the force of Kim Se-jun's attacks became much faster and sharper. His speed was a world apart from before, causing Seon to stumble slightly. In the heat of battle, a voice suddenly echoed in his head, ordering him to quickly change his tactics. The voice guided his every move, from how to attack and defend, to even how to spin his staff and his overall fighting method, all in minute detail. The very moment Kim Se-jun swung his staff, putting all his strength into one final blow, a terrified Seon also used every ounce of her power to counter. With a massive crash, the result was a scene of utter devastation, with Kim Se-jun lying flattened in the opposite corner, his head cracked and bleeding. She cried out in fright and rushed over to see if he was all right. Just then, Kim Se-jun managed to push himself up, scratching his head sheepishly. He couldn't believe he'd actually lost to her in the end. Was this really a fight between a B-rank hunter and a mere cadet? It looked like Kim Se-jun still had a long way to go before he could touch the title of professional hunter. Suddenly, he quickly checked his phone and was delighted to see his points had increased, just as he'd predicted. It looked like he'd have to bother Seon to spar with him again in the future. Of course, she agreed. With that, she casually mentioned the competition's prize money, worth $100,000, which caused the monster inside Kim Se-jun to awaken faster than ever before. A fire suddenly filled his eyes, his entire body seething with fighting spirit as his hot blood pulsed, and he threw himself into training like a madman, so determined to win that even Seon was at a loss. 2 weeks gradually passed, and today was the day of the tournament. The assembly point was already noisy, with countless people coming and going, including a strange, bespectacled guy who was standing there constantly muttering to himself. He had also come here today to compete. After settling into the waiting room, he was trembling so much that his hands and feet were already knocking against each other. His body froze like a rock when he saw with his own eyes the countless muscular soldiers and the pile of seriously wicked weapons they possessed. The more he looked, the more his eyes were dazzled. Suddenly, his eyes fell upon the sight of Kim So-run with his crappy weapon and a wound patched with a piece of clothing, looking so pathetic that he seemed completely out of place, which made the guy's jaw drop even wider. The people around him also began to notice how different he was and started whispering amongst themselves. Kim Se-run continued to act as if he were deaf, still watching his lecture. This pure, I-don't-give-a-damn style of his made the nerdy guy feel a sense of camaraderie, like finding a kindred spirit when you're the new kid in class and no one wants to hang out with you. Just like that, a one-sided comradeship bloomed, much to Kim Se-run's confusion. He shyly approached to introduce himself as Limon, 19 years old, a natural awakened. After a few greetings, he immediately revealed to him that the two people arguing loudly not far away were the incredibly strong Kang Deok-chul from Gochuri Academy and Lee Chun-min of the Academy. This attitude left Kim Se-run completely baffled, wondering what the hell this was about. Who the hell asked him to spill all that information? The noisy argument was quickly shut down by Lee Dong-hwan of Reincarnated Academy. The moment he spoke, the atmosphere became dead silent, as if nothing had ever happened. According to Limon, he was apparently the champion of this tournament thanks to his own immense power, and he had even rejected an offer to join from Seon before. He was currently furious, slamming the table and chairs because he had to compete against these low-level runts around him. As he spoke, he felt a slight regret for rejecting Seon's offer, meaning his chance to use her was now gone. Suddenly, he felt Kim Se-run's intense stare on him, which pissed him off. Kim Se-run was just curious about how many bonus points he would get if he fought that guy. While lost in thought, the speakers suddenly announced that the match would begin soon, making the crowd even more restless. Kim Seo-run abruptly stood up and walked straight to the window. He realized that for the past 2 weeks, he had been preparing with the goal of reaching 30% progress in Kieran and Sangil's lessons, but he hadn't felt any increase in strength or anything similar. He also lacked real-world experience compared to the other cadets. However, all of that had been compensated for by the dungeon raid and his fight with John. With that thought, he quickly clenched his fist and reassured himself that he could overcome anything. $100,000, here I come. After all that, Kim Seo-run felt like he was going to faint when the announcer declared that the dungeon maze competition was about to begin. It had just started, and he was already being thrown into the deep end. Kim Seo-run really had the lousiest luck. The first round of the tournament officially began amidst the deafening cheers of the crowd below. The first round of the tournament was a dungeon maze race. Other than the requirement to not attack other cadets and to escape the maze, there were no other rules. The audience was a bit confused because even for the lowest level tournament, they wouldn't create a maze so simple that you could escape through sheer luck. They secretly guessed there would probably be monsters in the maze, and hunting them would be the way to find the exit, making it a test of a hunter's most important skill when raiding dungeons. On the big screen now was the image of Deng Huan with a deadly gaze, relentlessly swinging his blood-soaked sword, met with the enthusiastic cheers of the audience. No one noticed that Sion had secretly snuck in to scout the situation at some point. Deng Huan's presence in the tournament utterly surprised Sion, and a sense of worry for Kim Seo-run's safety immediately welled up inside her. Meanwhile, he was struggling immensely in this damn maze, with its rock-hard walls that he couldn't break. As he fumbled along, he felt a tinge of regret for not having had time to learn Thezer's mountain-breaking lecture. After walking for what felt like forever, Kim Seo-run suddenly came to a three-way fork. He planned to follow the basic rule of escaping a maze, which was to keep one hand on a wall and continue in that direction. But strangely, something inside him was telling him to go in the opposite direction from his initial choice of left. It seemed that the sixth sense of intuition from Ken's lecture was working for him. Well, no risk, no reward. And so, Kim Seo-run decided to trust his intuition and see what happened. The announcements of eliminated contestants rang out continuously, yet along the entire path Kim Seo-run took, he didn't encounter a single obstacle. It was smoother than smooth, which made him suspect that something was off. Could his intuition even dodge monsters? While he was lost in daydreams about his own potential, Lemon's voice suddenly rang out, startling him. Running into this coward was such bad luck. Even though the guy was pointing out things he already knew perfectly well, Kim Seo-run still wanted to follow his own gut feeling. Being lumped in by Lemon as one of the weaklings just like him, Kim Seo-run didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After Lemon showed him a picture of his little sister, Kim Seo-run knew for sure that he was better off going alone. It was nice meeting you, but let's not meet again. Seeing him turn to leave so quickly, Lemon groveled all over the floor, whining and clinging to him, which made him feel really awkward. $100,000 was waiting for him right ahead, so how could he possibly take pity on this kid? But then he heard Lemon say that his parents had passed away, and his own painful memories from the past suddenly came rushing back. Seeing Kim Seo-run standing there motionless like a statue made Lemon even more flustered. Suddenly, he did a complete 180. A bit of sympathy sparked within him, and he agreed to let Lemon tag along, leaving the other guy completely stunned. After that, watching Kim Seo-run move with such confidence in every step, as if he already knew the way, left Lemon utterly bewildered. His legs just kept running after him until he was out of breath. In front of them now was a dead end. Without a moment's hesitation, Kim Seo-run swung his arm and pushed right through. A flash of light and a myriad of noisy sounds appeared before them. To be precise, they had successfully escaped the maze in record time, causing the crowd to scream wildly, unable to believe their own eyes. Lemon still hadn't regained his composure. He was in total shock. He had just randomly met Kim Seo-run and wanted to team up to get out of the maze. So how the hell did he end up taking first place in 27 minutes like it was nothing? Amidst the whispers and chatter from the crowd, Kim Seo-run quietly sat watching a lecture on his phone, not noticing Deng Huan, who was fuming as he approached him. He scanned him from head to toe, leaving Kim Seo-run utterly confused. After sizing him up, he gave a mocking smile, turned back to the crowd, and announced that he had simply gotten lucky. Kim Seo-run thought he was actually going to do something to him. Amidst the commotion, the details of the second round were brought out. The second round would be a one-on-one tournament. Because the competition was a Tier 4 tournament, to maintain fairness, any weapon containing mana would be excluded, as would mana-based body enhancement. Kim Seo-run did some quick math and realized that 32 people had passed the first round. In a one-on-one tournament, starting with 32 was perfectly normal. But life is never that simple. Just as they were about to be paired up, one person, overcome with fear, raised his hand to forfeit, which made Kim Seo-run feel like dying on the spot. Outside in the glaring sun of the stadium, Seon was about to head back. Suddenly, a noisy crowd of bettors arguing caught her attention. Most of them were betting on Deng Huan, because who would ever dare to bet on a brand new cadet? But right at that moment, a mysterious woman carrying a suitcase with $1 million placed a bet on Kim Seo-run, making everyone go crazy that someone would dare to make such a huge gamble. As for Kim Seo-run, just a few minutes earlier, after the lower-level cadets heard the rumors about Dong Hwan and the other high-ranking soldiers, fear suddenly surged through them, and they scrambled to withdraw one after another. In the end, only 5 people remained, or you could call them the 5 tough ones here. The teams were then divided evenly, with Kim Seo-run and Kang Deok-chol, Dong Hwan and Limon, while Lee Chun-min, being the odd one out, was kindly told to go home. He was just wondering if winning both rounds would automatically make him the overall champion in the finals. Then he saw Minji, shivering and crying pathetically, yet refusing to give up, which made him chuckle. When it was finally time for the match, Kim Seo-jun calmly stood up and walked out. His composed demeanor left Minji speechless. As expected, the crowd was buzzing with excitement for the next round between Kim Seo-jun and Gyang Do-kun, the giant from Juchuri Academy. The two trash-talked for a bit before the match began. Without a moment's hesitation, that guy charged forward at full speed, meeting Kim Seo-jun's arrogant gaze. Minji, sitting in the waiting room, was trembling just as much. He was nervous for Seo-jun, and also for himself, because the dark look on Dong Oen's face was enough to scare him to death. Just as he was about to give up hope, the screen suddenly showed that Kim Seo-jun had won, giving Minji a new surge of strength. All the fear he'd been feeling vanished into thin air. A few minutes earlier, while Do-kun was relentlessly slashing his sword, Kim Seo-jun was dodging with an effortless grace that made it look like child's play, gradually draining his opponent's stamina. After a while, in a fit of rage, he unleashed his final move, only to be sent flying by Kim Seo-jun's slash. He was so shocked that he trembled and collapsed pathetically at his feet in defeat. "Oh, for fuck's sake!" Kim Seo-jun scowled as he checked his phone, realizing that after all that hard work, his stats had barely increased. The deadline was fast approaching, and he'd gotten nowhere. At this rate, it looked like he wouldn't be able to finish not only the Buddha's lecture, but also Kiron's and Zhang's on time. To avoid going broke from buying a weapon and a new free pass, Kim Seo-jun had no choice but to win that prize money. Grumbling to himself, he dragged his exhausted body into the room. Minji was already waiting for him, congratulating him enthusiastically. The second match began accordingly. In contrast to Minji's fear was a confident, almost arrogant Dong Oen. Minji suddenly spoke, his voice trembling. He said that from the moment he saw Kim Seo-jun, he felt a sense of familiarity with him. For that reason, when he defeated Do-kun, he was as happy as if he himself had won. But mixed in with that was a little jealousy too, because he knew he was always unlucky and had no talent. But the heart of a brother who wants his sister to be proud will always guide him. When it was finally Minji's turn, Kim Seo-jun quietly watched his small figure, secretly hoping they would meet in the finals. Seeing Minji muttering to himself to calm his nerves was starting to piss Dong Oen off. He channeled all his strength and aimed at the boy, brimming with confidence. He saw Minji as nothing more than a useless piece of trash, a creature at the bottom of the food chain, nothing more than a blade of grass to a predator like himself. Filled with the elitist belief that he was on a completely different level, the sight of Minji tremblingly pointing a sword at him was just pathetic. The signal to start the match rang out without delay. As if he had been waiting for this very moment, Dong Oen immediately swung his sword, unleashing a furious barrage of attacks on Minji, who was struggling like hell to block them. His entire body was already rigid. With a loud thud, a fiery punch to the gut sent Minji collapsing in pain. Fresh blood gushed from his mouth, leaving him unable to get back up. He already knew he was no match for this guy. In his confusion, Minji suddenly thought of Kim Seo-jun as a source of strength and forced himself to stand. He wanted to try giving it his all, just once. Even though he knew this would be a piece of cake for him, Minji still wanted his attack to at least touch him. With that thought, he swung his sword wildly. After a cold clang echoed, Dong Oen was officially declared the winner. At his feet, Minji lay defeated. But there was one thing only he knew. That last sword strike from Minji had grazed his face. A small cut, but a cut to Dong Oen's pride nonetheless. In front of the roaring crowd, he didn't hesitate to stomp on Minji's head, shouting that people like him were just trash in this competition. The situation grew more and more tense. Just as he was about to stomp on Minji again, Kim Seo-jun appeared in a flash, his weapon drawn. He was planning to wait until the finals, but it looked like he couldn't take it anymore. Somebody here deserved a beating right now. The two of them stared daggers at each other amidst the crowd, which was eagerly waiting for the show to begin. Dong Oen told him to let go, but Kim Seo-jun insisted he get his foot off Minji's head first. As if to provoke him, he pressed down even harder on Minji's head, sending Kim Seo-jun into a blind rage. With that, he immediately swung his staff, kicking him aside before picking up the young boy, Minji. The touching sight was an eyesore to Dong Oen. He hated insects who didn't know their place, especially those who held on to pipe dreams like Minji. He and Kim Seo-jun continued their war of words, making the atmosphere increasingly suffocating. The crowd in the stands began to murmur, but it seemed the organizers had no intention of interfering with orders from above, so they could only watch as a disaster was about to unfold. Dung Oan smirked at Kim So-jun and arrogantly declared that in this world, the strong devour the weak. There's no place for dreamers and fools like you. Kim Seo-jun froze when he heard that, because he too used to think the same way. For 9 years, he had endured so much to become a high-level hunter, and he had to face reality time and time again. Kim Seo-jun once had nothing, no talent, no money. He felt like he couldn't do anything. No matter how hard he worked, it was only enough to get by, never to improve. It made him wonder hundreds of times what would have happened if he had given up and done something else. But even though fear always held him back, making him doubt himself and afraid to face reality, that was no reason to let Dung Oan insult him like he was trash. As soon as he finished speaking, ignoring the warnings about potential rule violations for violence, Kim Seo-jun swung his staff like the wind and leaped towards Dung Oan. But with his raw strength, he was able to block it in an instant. The two of them clashed like titans, the impact shaking the arena. Dung Oan's power was no joke, and even Kim Seo-jun struggled to hold his ground. Facing his fierce attacks, Kim So-jun told himself he couldn't lose. Not now. What he needed to do was go with the flow and move based on instinct. With a loud smack, he successfully landed a punch right in Dung Oan's chest, making him stagger for a moment. Dung Oan flew into a rage and charged with his sword pointed straight ahead. He had always been a predator, but Kim Seo-jun's sharp gaze made even him cautious. He regained his composure and lunged at Kim So-jun once more. But this time, he was able to deftly block every single one of his moves, his speed increasing with each moment, making him look like a frenzied beast pouncing on its prey. In a moment of carelessness, Dung Oan was knocked back by Kim So-jun's staff, a huge humiliation for him. With that, he furiously pulled out an aura sword, shocking Kim So-jun, because you could never win against one if you didn't know how to control mana. Seething with rage and jealousy, Dung Oan gripped the brightly glowing sword, preparing to swing it at Kim Seo-jun amidst the panicked screams from the stands. He realized the best thing to do right now was to run, but for some reason, his body wouldn't obey his mind. His brain was screaming at him that if he ran, everything he had worked so hard to build would be for nothing. Suddenly, Kim Seo-jun remembered his teacher's words from the lecture. The most pathetic defeat is losing to yourself. What mattered was to believe in yourself and give it your all. Even if you lose with the most reckless fighting spirit. Empowered by that mental support, Kim So-jun turned and charged, completely contrary to everything Dung Oan had expected, making him so mad he could spit blood. All his hatred was poured into a direct clash with Kim Seo-jun, and the very ground seemed to shake from the force. With a flash of light and a cloud of thick dust and smoke, the entire arena was obscured, leaving everyone in the crowd wondering who had won. A figure collapsed. It was none other than Dung Oan, with streams of blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. Beside him, Kim So-jun panted heavily, the air thick with an unspeakable tension. And just like that, Kim Seo-jun had successfully defeated Dung Oan, met with a roar of countless cheers from the crowd. The entire stadium was about to erupt over what had just happened before their eyes. Their champion, Dung Oan, had been utterly crushed by Kim So-jun, left sprawled on the ground like a flattened shrimp. And so, they endlessly chanted Kim Seo-jun's name, calling out for him over and over. Sion, watching from above, felt like she was going to faint. Just 2 weeks ago, she had seen him struggling to fight with a mana-infused sword. To think that he could now create such a fierce spear aura, it was truly hard to believe. Glancing to the side, she suddenly saw that mysterious person who had been hiding in a thick cloak earlier. He now looked completely stunned, unable to believe that Kim Seo-jun had won. His overly dramatic reaction, as if some ancient law of nature had just been shattered, made Seon suspicious, as she clearly remembered that he had bet on Kim So-jun to win. With that thought, she turned to look again, but he had vanished as if he were sea foam. The evening sun began to set on Kim Seo-jun's battered and exhausted body. As he walked slowly, he recalled what had happened earlier. The organizers informed him that he had been disqualified for interfering in the match. It wasn't even an official match, and he had ignored all of the referee's warnings. Therefore, he was considered to have violated the rules. As for Dung Oan, his use of sword aura was a clear indication of his intent to kill his opponent. Because of that, he would be banned from participating in the Super Hunter exam for the next 5 years. And finally, the organizers declared Lee Truk Min the winner of the tournament by default. Min placed second, and Duke somehow managed to climb to third place. Although Kim So-jun felt the result was completely surreal, he decided to let it go. After all, his learning progress had increased significantly. The rate of his learning process had skyrocketed while fighting Dung Oan. Notably, the speed of his Seonggyo lesson had surpassed 50%, perhaps due to the strange spiritual energy he had felt earlier. Just as he was engrossed in scrolling through his phone for a new lesson, Sion suddenly appeared behind him, making him jump in surprise. She gently asked how he was doing. Hearing him apologize for interrupting her match and causing her to lose the chance to win made Sion a bit flustered, because honestly, she was only worried about whether he was okay, since the prize money was gone anyway. It was only then that the forgetful Kim Seo-jun remembered this, and he grabbed his head, groaning in despair. All his shopping plans vanished into thin air. It was time to say a final farewell to the Spear of Longinus and to unlocking the next lesson. But oh well, what's done is done. Kim So-jun sighed and said that it would be a lie to say he didn't regret it, but if he hadn't intervened back then, he feared he would have regretted it even more. Hearing him say that, Seon felt a little less worried. The two of them were chatting happily when Min suddenly rushed over from a distance, a white bandage wrapped around his still healing head. Seeing that Kim So-jun was about to leave, he mustered all his courage to say that if he kept trying, he wanted to become someone like him. These words were like claws lightly scratching at Kim So-jun's already sensitive heart. Seeing the tears welling up in Min's eyes, he suddenly said coldly that it might be very difficult. To be honest, Kim So-jun felt that Min's talent would fall far behind if he were to become a super hunter in this day and age, because facing this world with only dreams and ideals is incredibly harsh. He wanted him to stop focusing so much on becoming a hunter, because there were still so many other opportunities for a young person like Min. Hearing his words, all of Min's worries immediately vanished. With that, he sadly thanked Kim So-jun and turned to walk away. From behind, Kim So-jun's encouraging words faintly reached him. He wanted him to never let the careless words of others bring him down again. If there was something he wanted to do, he should just do it with his head held high, just knowing that was enough. Min engraved every word into his heart, his eyes moist, and bid an emotional farewell to Kim So-jun under the pale afternoon sun. Seeing this profound side of Kim So-jun for the first time surprised Seon, and hearing him say our academy made her indescribably happy. Just like that, she invited Kim So-jun to go with her to her grandfather's workshop to give him a weapon as a gift. At a shrine far from the city center, Seon Chun, the Sword Saint's attendant, stumbled frantically into the room, while the old Sword Saint was meditating, making him furious and causing him to radiate a pressure so oppressive it was impossible to breathe. With labored breaths, Seon Chun panted that Seon had recently participated in the Academy's tournament, and it seemed she had recruited a new student. These words successfully piqued the curiosity of the Sword Saint, Park Min-chun, making him feel that he had to go there himself to see what kind of person he was. Seeing Kim So-jun working so diligently day after day, doing missions to achieve his dream of having money to buy equipment, drove Seon crazy. She had clearly taken him to the shop, but the ever-picky Kim So-jun ended up not buying anything. He was really something else. Kim So-jun's face turned pale. He couldn't believe she could read him so well, like an open book. It was just that he was unsatisfied with normal weapons after seeing firsthand those created by one of the Transcendents. He then thought about the soaring prices and realized it was probably the influence of the law of causality. If money isn't truly earned through hard work. Then Seon spoke up, curious, wanting to know how Kim So-jun could control mana so incredibly well. Because watching how he fought monsters proved that Kim So-jun could control it with no ordinary skill, even though she had never once seen him practice. It was only then that Kim So-jun vaguely remembered that he had never learned a single control technique. It was known as a technique that helps the user control and use mana more effectively. Based on its effectiveness, it was divided into high level and low level. Every hunter had their own mana control technique, and they were even patented. This was also the reason why Kim So-jun had tried so hard to get into a high-level school like the Hunter Academy. Seon said that her grandfather had strictly forbidden her from learning those techniques at school. Instead, she could teach him a technique that she herself had invented, which greatly surprised Kim So-jun. He hadn't expected her to be talented too. But after thinking for a moment, Kim So-jun realized she was right. A control technique was a fundamental for a hunter, and he felt the primary difference between being able to use mana or not in the fight with Dung Oen not long ago. Now that he had free time, Kim So-jun thought to himself that learning about mana was a good thing in this harsh world, ruled by the law of causality. Mana was the way to rise up and fight against the world's rules. After Seon left, Kim So-jun immediately took out his phone to watch a lecture on mana taught by the Archmage Merlin. After watching for a while, he felt like his brain was melting. In a flash, the mage finished his explanation and said that each person would have to find their own mana, which left Kim So-jun dumbfounded. Hello? How am I supposed to do the exercise when I haven't even understood the lesson yet? He tried to focus his mind. Thanks to the sensory perception he learned from Ken, his body could feel and control mana more clearly, but for some reason, he still couldn't give it a physical form. Remembering the mage's lecture from earlier, that the transformation of mana was like an aura, Kim So-jun focused all his strength and compressed it. In a flash, he had unexpectedly created a mana stone, a success beyond his wildest imagination. Although it was a little small, he told himself he would get the hang of it over time. Suddenly, a voice rang out from behind him, making Kim So-jun jump. It was none other than the Sword Saint, Park Min-chun. He had come to see who Seon's new academy student was, not expecting to witness him creating a mana stone with his own hands. Although it was slow, he was undoubtedly a genius because it was a very difficult thing to do. A genius like Kim So-jun, joining Seon's academy, made him suspect that he was targeting his granddaughter. With that thought, he radiated a fierce, hostile aura and demanded to know his name. Without a hint of fear, Kim So-jun quickly introduced himself. He never expected Seon's grandfather to show up here and told him she had gone out, which made the color drain from the old man's face with each passing second. Park Min-chun stared at him intently, revealing that the killing intent he'd been radiating was more than enough to make Kim Se-jun drop dead, unless he was an S-rank hunter. And yet, Kim Se-jun acted as if it were nothing, which was truly suspicious. He looked around, stunned, still not understanding what the man meant. Park Min-chun could no longer contain himself, drawing his sword and striding toward him in a furious rage. The killing intent scared him out of his wits, and he tried to explain, but it seemed the old man had no intention of listening. With a whoosh, a blast of energy shot from the man's hand, sending Kim Se-jun tumbling and fearing for his life. Meanwhile, Seon was on her way to see her grandfather to tell him about Kim Se-jun, but was a bit disappointed when she couldn't find him. Little did she know, her grandfather was at the academy, intending to deal with Kim Se-jun himself. Seon was overjoyed to unexpectedly run into Guard Seo. It was perfect timing, as she was just about to contact him to ask where her grandfather was. Hearing this, Guard Seo's smile vanished, and his wrinkled face turned pale as he told her that her grandfather had already gone to the academy, making Seon's heart skip a beat. As quick as a flash, she turned and ran for her life back the way she came, knowing that even with a knife to her throat, she couldn't let those two meet alone. It seemed all of Seon's worries were too late, because Kim Se-jun and Park Min-chun were now in a rather tense situation. He suddenly noticed that the man swung his sword without even drawing it from its sheath, and realized he only meant to stop him, not kill him. With that, he said in a trembling, flustered voice that it was all just a misunderstanding. But his opponent didn't believe him one bit. Endless waves of energy slammed into Kim Se-jun, and he struggled to fight back, exhausted to the point of collapse. Park Min-chun was acting like a complete madman. His entire body was shrouded in a pitch-black murderous aura as he inwardly decided that Kim Se-jun was full of lies. His stubbornness left Kim Se-jun helpless. Fine, do whatever you want to me. He knew that even though the old man looked fierce, he didn't seem to actually want to kill him. Because if the Sword Saint truly wanted him dead, he would have died the moment he felt his presence. The Sword Saint, the great sage equaling heaven, was standing right in front of him, the person closest to his ideal image. Kim Se-jun couldn't help but realize this was an amazing opportunity for him. Without further hesitation, Kim Se-jun subtly raised his sword into a ready stance, which made Park Min-chun momentarily surprised by his fighting spirit. In the past few decades, he had met countless hunters, but only one had still burned with the will to fight after facing him, and that was Kim Se-jun. Fueled by the overwhelming love for his granddaughter, Park Min-chun quickly lunged forward. His speed and power were so immense that Kim Se-jun struggled just to brace himself in midair. He had barely opened his eyes when a massive wave of killing intent came roaring toward him, making him break out in a cold sweat. However, a legendary player known for his tenacity like Kim Se-jun absolutely could not give up. And so, despite the overwhelming aura, he kept swinging his sword, but was still sent sprawling by a direct hit from the old man. Kim Se-jun felt that something was off. He couldn't let this one and only chance slip by, especially while the man was still going easy on him. He stubbornly got back on his feet, determined to end this with one more blow. His body was continuously being beaten to a pulp by Park Min-chun, but he faintly recalled the advice from the mage Merlin's lecture. Kim Se-jun mustered all his remaining strength and lunged forward, swinging his staff with a whoosh. After the thick clouds of dust settled, he had been beaten so badly, he couldn't even get up. Even after being beaten to this state, Kim Se-jun kept calling out Seon's name, which really gave the old man a headache. His rage flared up again as he prepared to give him another thrashing. Fortunately, Seon arrived right in the nick of time. How ironic. Luckily, the old man finally calmed down and stopped, along with Kim Se-jun, whose face was already bruised and swollen. Seeing the two of them bickering like children really gave Seon a headache. She had never seen anyone dare to talk back to the Sword Saint like he was. Park Min-chun overstepping his bounds today made Seon both angry and embarrassed that Kim Se-jun had to endure it all. With that, she shyly bowed her head and apologized to him, which made Kim Se-jun a little flustered. He looked up and saw the look in Park Min-chun's eyes, immediately understanding that he wanted to speak with her alone. So he tactfully made the excuse of going to the hospital and slipped away, making Seon a bit grateful that he understood. After he left, she slowly turned to face her grandfather directly and coldly said she wanted to talk things out, though her heart was pounding. Park Min-chun spoke first, stating that Kim Se-jun was very suspicious. His words, "What could you possibly know?" made all of Seon's old resentments come flooding back. She had been hearing those overbearing words from her own grandfather for the past 31 years. She couldn't even escape him at the Hunter Academy, where he would always cause trouble whenever she got a new student. And so, they all left soon after. She knew why her grandfather acted that way, as well as the motives behind why people came here. That was why she could never stop them when they wanted to leave. However, Kim Se-jun was different. She didn't want to lose him. With that, she screamed furiously, as if yelling right in his face, I don't want to. Just like that, all her years of pent-up frustration finally had a chance to explode. Sion cried and screamed that this was her academy, and she wouldn't do what he wanted anymore. It wasn't like they had made precious memories together, nor did she have any special feelings for him, but whenever she saw Kim Sejun, she got a strange feeling. It made her want to be with him longer, even though she didn't understand why. She angrily declared that she couldn't live under his shadow forever, because that's not what she ever wanted. After saying her piece, she didn't let him say a word. She just turned her back, opened the door, and walked straight out, leaving Park Min-chin still in shock. Memories of that fateful day came flooding back to him, the day his son died after a dungeon break. From then on, he had raised Sion. He decided he had to give her the strength to protect herself, which was why he was so strict, even though he knew she hated swordsmanship and just wanted to be a teacher. Only now did he understand the result of his tyranny. A few days later, Kim Sejun stretched as he walked down the street, thinking about today's mission. The day the Sword Saint came looking for him 2 days ago, he really thought he was toast. Luckily, Sion arrived in time, otherwise it wouldn't have just ended with bruises. He remembered how she had called him last night and explained the situation, her relationship with her grandfather, and what happened with the previous students. He was sure that wasn't the whole story, but he understood how she felt and why the Sword Saint hated him so much. Still, getting beaten up for no reason really pissed him off, but no matter what, he had to go see the man today and apologize so this would never happen again. He was fearfully opening the door when he saw Park Min-chin already sitting there waiting for him, which made Kim Sejun's face go pale. Was he planning to beat him up again? The two of them just sat there together as if nothing had happened, though Park Min-chin still didn't quite trust Kim Sejun. He said in a strained voice that he had nothing to hide. After listening to him drone on for a while, it seemed to the old man that he was telling the truth, but the power and talent that were constantly radiating from him was a real headache. Not to mention, he got annoyed just by looking at him, for no reason at all. It was so confusing. Suddenly, he shot up saying he wanted to go train, which startled him. He realized that was it. If he just watched him train, he might be able to figure out what he was trying to hide. However, when he saw it with his own eyes, Park Min-chin still couldn't understand his bizarre training method. Staring at a black phone screen for hours is what you call training. Thinking he was meditating, he launched into a long lecture about its benefits, which gave Kim Sejun a headache. He just indifferently hummed in agreement to get it over with. Seeing his indifferent attitude really started to piss the old man off. Park Min-chin decided to play his final card, vaguely hinting that he would teach him a few things in an attempt to pique Kim Sejun's curiosity. But tough luck, the guy just wasn't interested. He flatly refused and immediately buried his head back in the screen, leaving Park Min-chin so stunned he felt like he was going to pass out, unable to believe what he'd just heard. This was the first time a sword saint like him had ever been so bluntly rejected. Sion arrived just then, and seeing Park Min-chin and him glaring daggers at each other, she spoke up to intervene. He gently pulled her into a corner, his eyes darting around mysteriously as he whispered in her ear that he thought Kim Sejun might not be right in the head, which surprised her a little. Huh? He seems perfectly normal to me. She had long since grown accustomed to his eccentric ways. She saw her grandfather's warnings but remained completely unfazed. Every time she saw him, she was so happy that a bright smile would spread across her face, making her grandfather curious about their relationship. Looking closely, Park Min-chin realized he had rarely ever seen Sion so happy. A flicker of annoyance grew inside him at the thought of Kim Sejun targeting his precious granddaughter, and he clenched his hands into fists. Just then, Guard S suddenly ran over to report that the Church of Justice was urgently looking for him. Kalia herself had come in person, requesting that if there was anyone named Kim Sejun, he should come with them. Hearing this from the side, he couldn't help but be shocked. Needless to say, Park Min-chin was also floored that Kalia even knew who he was. Sion suddenly remembered what happened during the tournament. She had seen a very suspicious person in a black cloak and secretly wondered if that person was connected to this incident. This is insane! Kalia is one of the 7 apostles of the Church of Justice, always treated like a head of state with immense power in her hands. Besides that, she's also the successor to the currently vacant seat of the Apostle of Purity. And yet today, she came asking for Kim Sion by name. He quickly refused, feeling that he didn't know the woman at all and that staying home to train would be way better. Guard S suddenly spoke up, speculating that perhaps Kalia had anticipated that Kim Sejun would refuse and had asked him to pass on a message if that happened. Furthermore, she attached a promise to give him $100,000, which hit Kim Sejun like a lightning bolt. How the hell did she know he needed money? The Church of Justice is a religious order that serves justice as their god. The one shrouded in a mysterious cloak is the Blue Emperor, and the 7 apostles are their most crucial members. They declare that their words are justice, the words of a god. A century ago, the Church of Justice was treated as a mere cult. However, during the Great Cataclysm, by combining their power with countless superheroes, they played an enormous role in bringing peace to all of humanity, which also allowed them to grow significantly. And among all those threats, the most significant was a giant monster of pure madness and brutality. Its power was so terrifying, so immense, that even the combined forces of superheroes from around the world couldn't do anything to it. It got so bad that some even called it the Second Great Cataclysm. But the only ones who could take down that colossal monster were the Blue Emperor and the Seven Apostles. They were the key to ending the Great Cataclysm. At a hotel somewhere on the outskirts of Seoul, Kim Sejun and Minchun had arrived to meet Kalia. He was curious about what Seon had said earlier, feeling that if Kalia was determined to lure him into their group, he had to meet her in person and get some clear answers. Following the directions, they entered a spacious and luxurious room. Minchun mentioned that today was also his first time meeting Kalia, which surprised Kim Sejun. He thought the two were close. While waiting for her to appear, Minchun revealed that he had met the Apostle of Purity before, but never the successor. As for the Blue Emperor, he had only seen him from a distance. Suddenly, the sound of a door opening cut through their conversation. Kalia, the successor to the Apostle of Purity, with her bright blonde hair and overwhelming charisma, slowly entered with a gentle smile. She introduced herself as Kalia, a believer of the Church of Justice, a messenger of the God's will, and the successor to the Apostle of Purity. She said she was very happy to meet Kim Sejun here today. She explained that the reason she knew of him was because one of her followers had been watching him during the Academy's tournament. He had praised him so much that she became curious and wanted to see for herself how amazing he was. That was why she had invited him here. Kim Sejun quietly guessed that her motive for inviting him wasn't that simple, which made Kalia let out a small laugh at his perceptiveness. "It's like you can read me like a book." The three of them then sat down to talk. Kalia spoke up, wanting to invite Park Minchun to scout a dungeon with her, which made him annoyed. He wanted to know what the hell made him have to go with her. Kalia explained that they had received reports about a distortion in one of the dungeons in Korea, and guessed that Minchun probably understood the situation better than anyone else. He glanced at her and immediately understood this was the reason she returned to Korea. At the same time, she could solidify her position as the successor. With that, he asked what he would get in return if he agreed to cooperate with her. The moment he heard Kalia casually mention Seon's Hunter Academy, Minchun's expression changed in a flash. He didn't want anyone messing with Seon. His entire body began to radiate a bone-chilling killing intent that gave even Kim Sejun, sitting right next to him, goosebumps. Kalia knew she had hit his weak spot. She quickly apologized, saying she would listen to one of his requests, and even swore on the honor of the Church of Justice, making it impossible for him to refuse. After they both performed the ritual of the Oath of Justice, it was Kim Sejun's turn. Kalia got straight to the point, saying that the Church of Justice wanted to support him in areas beyond the Academy's reach, without needing anything in return, because they felt that the friendship between the Church of Justice and him was more than enough. Kim Sejun silently felt that she was talking as if it was no big deal, but that somehow she would definitely want something in return later on. With that, he decided to go big or go home, ignoring all the potential problems. He immediately pulled out his phone and held the screen towards her. He wanted to know if she could see anything on the phone screen. Contrary to Kim Sejun's expectations, whether Kalia could see anything or not, she still claimed that all she saw was a black screen. And that answer seemed to satisfy Kim Sejun, so he immediately rejected her offer. This is so surreal. Definitely a red flag. Night had fallen, and the beautiful Kalia was furious. It was clear from her retainer's words that Kim Sejun was special, but she simply saw a very ordinary person whose strength was only at a rookie's level. She was a little startled earlier when he suddenly shoved his phone in her face and asked if she could see anything. Perhaps the feeling of dissatisfaction within her had taken over everything. Putting that aside, the retainer reported that he had contacted the Black Saint and the Heart Saint about those incredibly mysterious, unseeable ones. Kim Sejun and Minchun had also left by now and were heading back. He remembered what happened earlier and felt a bit annoyed. Even though Kalia had nothing to do with the academy, he didn't want to accept a favor from someone who was two-faced. He still preferred Seon's academy. In response to Kim Sejun's questions, Minchun explained that dungeon reconnaissance is necessary because magical distortions inside a dungeon cause a lot of ripples, affecting its level up or its collapse. That causes a lot of problems, just like during the Great Upheaval. Seeing Kim Sejun's curious gaze, he turned and walked away in another direction, warning him not to get any ideas about Seon. It was obvious he already acknowledged him, but was too embarrassed to say it, which made the relentless Kim Sejun laugh and tease him non-stop. He kept at it until the old man got so pissed he looked like he was about to throw a punch, at which point he quickly bolted. Seon was very surprised to see Kim Sejun return home alone. When he told her that her grandfather had gone somewhere, she quietly apologized to him for her grandfather's abrasive attitude. But to her surprise, she heard Kim Sejun defending him, trying to strengthen the bond between her and Minchun, which made Seon feel a little happy. Knowing he was in need of money, Seon immediately showed him an announcement for the dungeon clearing competition happening on the upcoming 24th. Seon explained that the competition was designed to clear out neglected dungeons. These dungeons aren't profitable, are usually low level, and are a pain to raid. If they aren't cleared in time, they'll eventually break, and monsters will spill out. No matter how low level the monsters are, there's still a danger to ordinary people. Initially, Government-employed hunters were in charge of clearing dungeons like these, but assigning high-level hunters to such places was a waste of resources and completely inefficient. So, the government came up with a different method, this very dungeon clearing competition. Most students can handle these uncleared dungeons. After all, students are an abundant resource these days, so they get points toward their evaluation just for participating. It was a neat solution. He saw the winner's prize was 300,000. On top of that, since the competition itself was a dungeon clear, participating could increase his lecture progress speed. Kim Sejun was incredibly interested. There was no reason for him not to join. Seeing the beaming look on Seon's face made him chuckle. He knew she wasn't asking for a favor, but it was obvious she was putting on an act. She must have scoured everywhere for information on this, and based on past experience, he had no idea what kind of unexpected variables might pop up. That's why he couldn't take it lightly. He was anxious, really hoping he could win this time and get the prize money. Seon mentioned the competition would last for 1 week. When the competition starts, the government will release a list of dungeons to be cleared. Participants will then check the list, reserve the dungeon they want to clear on an app, and then go clear it. However, you have to clear the reserved dungeon within 10 hours. You can only reserve one at a time, otherwise the reservation will be cancelled. Basically, the evaluation criteria depend on how fast you are and the number of dungeons you clear. Speed is the key, so it wouldn't be surprising if travel costs ended up being more than the prize money. Kim Sejun thought for a moment. This was going to be a tough one, clearing the dungeon and processing the corpses. But speed is the main thing. It looked like he should focus on the prize money and just forget about the monster corpses that weren't worth much anyway. Then, suddenly, Kim Sejun shot to his feet, an idea seemingly striking him. A few days later, on the day of the competition, Kim Sejun logged on and discovered that thanks to his hard work, his lecture progress rate had increased quite a bit. But strangely, Karen's and Merlin's progress rates weren't increasing anymore. It looked like he was going to need something else. He had already downloaded the app. Now all he had to do was wait for the helper he'd called. After a short wait, the person finally arrived, and it was none other than Mr. Mancello, his old colleague from the construction site. A few days earlier, he had called him to ask for help with the competition. The main job would be to help transport the monster corpses he collected and to act as his driver. He desperately needed his help because dismantling the valuable monster parts was a job that required real skill. He trusted Mr. Mancello completely, which is why he had entrusted him with the task. Ping, a notification on his phone announced that the competition had officially begun. The two of them said goodbye to Seon and hit the road. Once in the car, Kim Sejun explained that there were two crucial factors in this competition. 1, how fast you clear the dungeon, and 2, how fast you get to the dungeon you've chosen. Basically, speed is everything. This competition mainly features dungeons with level 1 to 2 monsters. The clear time varies depending on the dungeon's layout, but what he was concerned about was how long it would take them to get to each one. Mancello glanced at the list of dungeon locations for the competition. When Kim Sejun told him he had to find the shortest route to each dungeon, he let out a weary sigh, wondering if he was up to the task. With that, he floored the gas pedal and they shot off. Meanwhile, the supervisor, Gujin, couldn't stop yawning. After seeing Kim Sejun from the mediocre Dream Academy head out, she silently guessed his power was probably average too. It would take him at least 1 hour. Seeing Mancello just standing outside observing, she felt at ease. But then, the gate suddenly burst open. Kim Sejun quickly poked his head out and yelled for the older man to come in and help him carry stuff out, causing Gujin to rush over and intervene, thinking it was some kind of cheating. When she heard Kim Sejun say he had cleared the entire dungeon by himself, she couldn't believe it. "Are you kidding me?" she thought, heading inside to check for herself. Unexpectedly, what lay before her was exactly as he'd said, piles upon piles of bloody monster corpses. Only 10 minutes had passed, leaving her utterly stunned. Just like that, the two of them hauled the corpses outside and began to dismantle them. With Mancello's skill, it only took 15 seconds for each one. Gujin saw what they were planning to do with the corpses and yelled at them to stop, but it was useless. What they were doing wasn't against the rules, and so one of them did the killing and the other did the butchering. The chaotic, bloody scene was horrifying. Once they were done, the two of them scrambled into the car and sped away, leaving Gujin standing there, shocked to her core and unable to compose herself. The car tore off like a getaway vehicle, rushing to the next location. Too fast, too furious. Kim Sejun ran inside and threw a few basic attacks. In no time, he'd finished them all off, then scrambled to carry them out for Mancello to process. With that, he vanished as quickly as he'd appeared, leaving the male supervisor completely bewildered. Meanwhile, at the Dungeon Management Office under the Ministry of Security and Public Administration, the staff was in an uproar as they looked at the dungeon competition report. Kim Sejun was in the lead, having cleared a whopping 32 dungeons. It sounded completely insane, but after confirming, they reported it was true. He had cleared every single dungeon along his travel route. Furthermore, according to the proctors, his clear time was less than 10 minutes per dungeon, and he hadn't violated a single regulation. After hearing that Kim Sejun was a student at Dream Hunter Academy, the department head was startled. He remembered that was the academy founded by the Sword Saint's grandchild. Suspecting the Sword Saint might have had a hand in this, he rushed to investigate. In second place, Lion from Academy X was dejectedly apologizing to her father for letting first place slip through her fingers. When he pressed her, asking if she could clear 32 dungeons in a single day, she hesitated. He scoffed, saying it would be possible if someone were secretly helping. With that, he turned and left with a satisfied look, making her suspect that her father had been involved in some foul play from the very beginning. Her father was Lee Sokman, a former A-rank hunter and the current principal of Academy Y, as well as Lion's father. He always believed that gaining an advantage was the only thing that mattered. Everything else was secondary. With his own scheming mind, he hoped she wasn't foolish enough to believe she was completely innocent, which made Lion start to doubt herself. She quietly left her father's room, her mind drifting to memories of a boy from her past, a boy who always lived with integrity, the complete opposite of her own nature. Shame mixed with remorse welled up inside her, making her blood boil. By now, the sky had turned dark. Kim Sejun and Mr. Mancello were collapsed on a park bench, massaging their aching limbs. He told him that after expenses and taxes, they had earned about 78 million today. If they split it evenly, they would each get around 39 million. But Mancello wanted a 70-30 split instead, feeling that all the credit belonged to him. He was adamant about taking the smaller share, so Kim Sejun had no choice but to agree. He was a little curious why the older man didn't seem at all surprised to see him raiding dungeons. He was completely surprised to hear Mancello say that he had seen him fight at the academy before. He gave the man a slight smile. Though the man was a bit gruff, he was always there cheering him on from the sidelines, which was a huge source of moral support for him. On the second day of the dungeon conquest competition, Kim Sejun and Mancello had become known as the Dungeon Cleaners, with results that consistently ranked first. At this rate, he couldn't help but think about the victory that lay ahead. With only 5 days left, both of them were incredibly excited for what the future held. With victory in his grasp, he was hoping everything would go smoothly. But on the morning of the third day of the competition, Kim Seo-jun suddenly discovered that all the dungeons around him had been reserved at some point. The nearest dungeon was at least an hour's drive away, and all the others were fully booked. It seemed someone was trying to block his path. The two of them decided to just head to whichever dungeons hadn't been reserved to see what was up. But when they arrived at the next dungeon, and the one after that, the same thing happened. In the end, he only managed to clear a meager 10 dungeons that day. This was just too weird. Mon Cho suspected that the person in second place, Sion, was playing dirty tricks and urged him to report it to the organizers. This is seriously pissing me off. He thought for a moment and realized that even though he was still in the lead, there were still 3 days left. He feared that if what happened today repeated itself, he might lose the championship. Even if you put aside dismantling the monsters, the travel time was still a problem. Moncho said he would try to find the fastest route, but if they kept getting obstructed like this, even he was at a loss. Kim Seo-jun pondered for a moment, then let out a smirk saying he'd thought of an idea. The look on his face was unbearably cunning. It turned out that Sion's father had hired other hunters to take turns reserving all the dungeons around Kim Seo-jun while he was busy attacking one. However, a problem arose today when Kim Seo-jun reserved a dungeon right next to Sion's. So if they booked all the dungeons around him, Sion wouldn't have any dungeons to attack either. And just as Kim Seo-jun planned, using this method, both he and she only managed to conquer a small number of dungeons today, so she couldn't reverse the rankings. It was a classic case of mutual destruction. Her father never expected he would come up with such a counter strategy. He then reassured Sion to just keep fighting, and he'd take care of the rest. The next morning, on day 5, Sion was strolling along when she was surprised by the sight of Kim Seo-jun and Mon Cho strutting arrogantly toward her. He subtly hinted at her cheating, which made Sion's face turn purple with rage. She knew he was saying it to put her down, not out of any goodwill. Because, as far as she knew, the species called human was inherently selfish by nature. Whatever they did, they evaluated it based on their own self-interest. If it benefits them, they do it. If it doesn't, they don't. In that process, there's no such thing as good intentions or goodwill. With that said, she swung her sword and charged straight into the dungeon, stirring up a bloody storm. Just as she stepped out, she was startled to see that Kim Seo-jun had already finished his attack. He and Mon Cho were hastily transporting corpses, and he even asked for the corpses she had just killed, which made Sion wonder. He said he was doing it to make money, which she found a bit boring, and she turned to leave. She understood perfectly well that there was no such thing as good intentions in this world, and therefore no hunters with good intentions either. In her eyes, it was just a job. Meanwhile, Min Chun was busy dealing with the monsters in a dungeon with Kalina. A moment ago, it was said to be a level 6 monster den, but it turned out to be level 10, making him highly suspicious that the Church of Justice was up to something, just like 30 years ago, which made him furious, despite Kalina's protests. Suddenly, Yu So Min, a disciple of the demonic star, appeared. She also sensed that this was an abnormal flow of magic, something that had never happened before. It seemed they needed to re-examine the low-level dungeons the guildmaster was measuring. Back at Kim Seo-jun's competition site, 3 dungeon gates mysteriously appeared at the same time, leaving all the supervisors utterly astonished. My god, this is surreal. Wherever Kim Seo-jun and Mancho appeared, a crowd would instantly gather. It seemed their opponents couldn't use the old trick anymore, so they had immediately found a new way to obstruct them. Needless to say, Sion was fuming and swore she would file a complaint, no matter what. Give them an inch and they take a mile. And so, thanks to her, an announcement was made that if a dungeon pre-booked by a contestant was attacked without their consent, the turn could be transferred at the discretion of the dungeon supervisor, which temporarily put Kim Seo-jun's mind at ease. They would have no other way to stop him. But it seemed Kim Seo-jun spoke too soon, because if they couldn't use one method, they'd just think of another to block him. Specifically, they'd use excuses like a broken-down car blocking the road, or 100 other reasons to hinder their movement. And then, the inevitable happened. The leaderboard was now topped by Sion. After some digging, Seo-jun learned she was from the academy, where Jolly Shikman, an ex-A-rank professional hunter, was the principal. He was one of the few people her grandfather acknowledged not for his skills, but for his silver tongue and vast connections, so it would probably be difficult to investigate anything. It seemed that now, only the Sword Saint herself could resolve this. But Seo-jun didn't hold out much hope. She didn't even dare to contact him anymore. Seeing that Sion had tried her best, Mancho boldly stated that the rest should be left for a real man, Kim Seo-jun, to handle himself. The moment his name was mentioned, a dangerous, cunning smile appeared on his face. He had definitely cooked up some wicked plan. And voila, your beloved Kim Seo-jun, with his traditional technique, also known as bribing the supervisor, successfully booked a dungeon and cleared it in a swift 5 minutes, leaving those guys no time to react because the management team was there supervising. When they heard he was from the academy, founded by the Sword Saint's granddaughter, they started a ruckus. Lockman, with his endless greed, aggressively ordered his subordinates to deal with him by any means or trickery necessary. After many grueling days, Kim, Seo-jun, and Seon ended up with the same score, forcing the organizers to hold an immediate meeting. Needless to say, it was the most chaotic meeting ever, with Seon and Lockman inside, furiously cursing each other out. The organizers stated that since they couldn't acknowledge a co-championship and there was no evidence to prove Sion's misconduct, they decided to propose the following. After a moment, Shin Kang-hyuk, the captain of the dungeon management team, saw that Kim Seo-jun and Seon were both present and immediately explained the rules for the final match to decide the winner between them. The rule was simple. Out of the 3 dungeons in front of them, each person had to choose one and attack it. Whoever of the 2 finished their dungeon faster and then attacked the remaining dungeon would be the winner. All the dungeons were level 2, so the difficulty was the same. Therefore, both would have to choose a dungeon for themselves. Kim Seo-jun thought for a moment. He knew the chances of her rigging this match were very low, but he still had to be cautious. With that, he spoke up and asked for the first dungeon on the right, which meant the dungeon on the left belonged to Sion. Suddenly, she whispered in his ear, "Don't feel too bitter about this," which left him stunned. Before he could even figure out what was going on, she had already zipped inside. Kim Seo-jun quickly rushed in as well, although his mind was still in turmoil over her words. Who cares? Winning was the most important thing. Huh? He walked and walked for a while, but the inside was still a silent void, which was confusing as hell. It had been 5 minutes, and he still hadn't seen anything. What on earth was going on? Asterisk rustle. Asterisk. A shrill, terrifying sound echoed loudly. Less than a second later, a level 4 manticore with sharp teeth had appeared before him out of nowhere. A level 4 monster in a level 2 dungeon made Kim Seo-jun curse out loud. He powerfully swung his club and charged, killing it in one fell swoop. Although it seemed quick, it was much slower than his usual clear time for a level 2 dungeon. Kim Seo-jun ran like the wind towards the exit, guessing that she had already moved on to attack the second dungeon. He caught sight of the captain and shouted that there was a level 4 monster inside, making the match unfair. He wanted a rematch, but the man just coldly stated that it was impossible because Seon wasn't out yet. Kim Seo-jun was extremely surprised to hear that, since she had been inside for quite a while now. Little did he know, Seon was inside, preparing to face a monster species even more horrifying than that. Memories of the past flooded Soon's mind, like scenes from a slow-motion film. Back then, she still had her brother, still happily training and messing around with him. Though she always knew this brother of hers was a fool, always believing in justice and goodness. Compared to her, he was just incredibly naive. On that rainy night years ago, when she witnessed her own brother die protecting a total stranger, her entire worldview shattered. She swore she would never live like him again. And so, selfishness and hatred grew in her heart with each passing day. Kim Seo-jun waited, but she still hadn't come out, which he found strange. He knew this meant he had won, but Kim Seo-jun still felt like something had gone off script. He suspected the problem wasn't a dungeon malfunction, but something with Soon. Assistant manager Kim yelled that the magic measuring device was acting weird. It was showing level 3 before, but now it was level 4. A dungeon breach like this meant the magical energy was in chaos. The mana flow inside the dungeon was unstable, and the predicted readings were changing constantly. This kind of error usually had minor consequences, but the dungeon's level had suddenly jumped. If they ran out of time, the dungeon would explode, leaving a trail of destruction. Kim So-jun knew that if he hesitated, Soon would be in danger. Without another thought, he shot into the dungeon where Soon was writhing in agony from a wound inflicted by Virtue's punishment. The level 6 monster before her was roaring non-stop, and she couldn't believe such a terrifying creature existed. It was something that should have stayed in books, not standing right in front of her. Just as its sharp fangs lunged forward, Kim Seo-jun appeared and blocked the attack. Shaking, he struggled to temporarily hold off its terrifying assault and yelled at her to run. This thing really was a level 6 monster. It thrashed around, creating powerful shockwaves, forcing Kim Seo-jun to keep dodging back and forth to keep its attention. Each of its attacks was terrifyingly powerful, but he had already figured out its attack pattern. He told himself to first focus on dodging the fatal blows and then lure it out. But things never go as planned. It suddenly rammed its sharp horns into his chest, sending fresh blood flying everywhere. Though numb with pain, Kim Seo-jun used what little strength he had left to send it flying. Seeing Kim Seo-jun in such a terrible state because of her, Soon couldn't understand it. They had nothing to do with each other, so why would he come here and help her? All he had to do was join another dungeon raid team and win. He must be doing this for the money. Furious, Soon screamed at him to get out, yelling that she wouldn't thank him. But in contrast to her fierce reaction, Kim Seo-jun just calmly said that even though she was completely in the wrong, there was no reason for her to die, because a person's life is the most precious thing there is. His courage and his gentle yet resolute voice made her think of her kind, pitiful brother. The beast's strength was nothing compared to Kim Seo-jun. It was like throwing an egg at a rock. The speed of its attacks grew more and more terrifying with each moment. Suddenly, he remembered something a teacher had once said. Intuition is a domain of thought. His entire body shook as a realization dawned on him. He had to make his intuition and thoughts become one to create the intuition of a transcendent. A light flashed in his eyes. He regained his focus and charged forward again, swinging his staff to face the monster head-on. His entire body was enveloped in a tempestuous aura. Getting hurt was unavoidable, but after a few clashes, he could sense where it would attack and feel the slightest movement of its muscles. It kept attacking, and Kim Seo-jun kept dodging. At this rate, he hoped he could hold out until the professional hunters arrived. But he didn't know if Soon could last that long, not when one of her arms had already been mangled by its bite. There was no more time to hesitate. Kim Seo-jun poured all his strength into his body and unleashed a final attack with an aura that seemed to envelop the world. But his instincts told him he couldn't possibly win against this raging bloodlust. He couldn't win with just the mountain-toppling force spear technique. The two powers clashed, creating a massive, deafening explosion. After the attack, blood gushed from the monster's body like a river. Beside it, Kim Seo-jun stood panting heavily, and Soon couldn't believe her eyes. With the problem dealt with, Kim Seo-jun helped Soon up, and they tried to stumble their way out of there. He remarked that it was a good thing she was still alive. Even though she was on the verge of death, she was still running her mouth, saying she wouldn't call Kim Seo-jun her savior. After all the chaos, an ambulance finally arrived to take her to the hospital. News of what happened at the clearance competition was gradually released, and in a short time, it caused a massive uproar. Although measurement errors had happened in the past, a monster with such a huge level difference had never appeared here before. Naturally, public attention turned to the hunter associations and the government. The names Kim, So, Jun, and Dream Academy soared in popularity. After all his hard work, Kim So-jun was now lying in a hospital bed, fuming because the prize money had unexpectedly been split in half. He was so worked up over the money that he was practically losing his mind, just muttering nonsense. Seo-yeon came to visit him and, seeing him complaining all day, informed him that all the prize money was his because Soon had voluntarily forfeited her position. Not only that, but she also exposed all the cheating she had done in the past, including during this competition. Furthermore, she even reported the cruel behavior of her father, the director of X.A. Academy, which completely stunned Kim Seo-jun. He couldn't believe she'd do something like that. Seo-yeon had thought Soon had some other motive, but surprisingly, she had said that while her opinion of Kim Seo-jun being wrong hadn't changed, she seemed to have realized that she wasn't right either. In any case, Kim Seo-jun had won the prize all by himself. On top of that, the prize money was tax-exempt, and he'd receive an additional 100 million based on government incentives. He was so stunned he couldn't even close his mouth. In addition, Seo-yeon's Dream Academy had finally broken into the top 3, thanks to his victory qualifying as an evaluation factor. Kim Seo-jun could now also explore 4-star dungeons. With so many good things happening all at once, everyone was happy and full of anticipation. After the money issues were settled and the group had eaten their fill, he treated them all to a meal. Kim So-jun went back to his bed and excitedly opened the training equipment shop on his phone to see what he could buy. He had 4 billion to start with, but the Spear of Longinus cost 1 billion. It seemed that no matter how much he saved, it still wasn't enough. He sighed in frustration and decided he'd just have to try and save up for some slightly cheaper equipment. He kept scrolling through the screen, but after looking again and again, he felt that the Spear of Longinus was the best option. It would be a waste not to buy it now, especially when replicas of items worth hundreds of billions were selling for only 1 to 2 billion. Even though it wasn't the real thing, it surely had some decent effects. But after thinking it over, Kim So-jun decided it was better to be cautious. The shop didn't provide much of a description for the item. He could only guess its effects based on mythological lore, nothing more. And where was he supposed to find enough information to research all those myths? Oh, right, Kim So-jun had an idea. He'd go to the Supreme Academy's student community and search to see if anyone had used items like this before. He suddenly came across a post sharing experiences using over 100 items, which made his jaw drop. Scrolling down, he read that the spatial pouch was rated 10 out of 10, which made him immediately sit up to check the price. It was only 100 million won. In dungeons, he could use it to store monster corpses, and when going on quests, he wouldn't have to carry heavy gear. Looked like he had to buy it right away. 3 days later, Kim So-jun happily went out to test his new spear and the spatial pouch he just bought. Even though his bank account was now empty, he figured investing in himself was worth it. Suddenly, Sion showed up. When she heard he'd spent the entire 4 billion prize money, she screamed in disbelief. Then she glanced at Kim Sion's shiny new equipment and immediately understood why. A moment later, the two of them were in a pitch-black dungeon teeming with grotesque, ominous monsters. Kim Sion figured the monsters here had level 4 defense, so he decided to take a gamble and test out his new spear. It seemed these golem guards, with their high physical defense, were the perfect targets to test the Spear of Longinus on. Kim Sion never expected that with just one swing of his spear, they'd turn to mush like tofu. He just kept slashing away, cutting through them like it was nothing. After chopping them to pieces, Kim Sion pulled out his inventory bag and stuffed their parts inside in a flash, much to Sion's amazement. She was incredibly curious about where he had bought such high-end items. When Sion heard Kim Sion say he bought it at a hunter's pawn shop near his house, she got excited and wanted to check it out. But when he told her the place had already moved, she looked completely deflated. Kim Sion gave an awkward laugh and scratched his head, feeling a little guilty that he couldn't tell her the truth. Suddenly, a thud. A quiet but heavy sound shattered the atmosphere, bringing a gloomy darkness with it that made them both freeze. Relying on his powerful spear, Kim Sion decided to step forward and see what was going on. With his all-encompassing, mountain-shattering strike, Kim Sion performed a few basic moves that created powerful torrents of energy. He attacked them within a terrifying matrix, and in a flash, cleanly wiped out the entire nest as Sion watched in utter shock. The true Holy Lance was rumored to have pierced Jesus on the cross. Although Kim Sion's was just a replica, the power it generated was nothing to scoff at. Looks like those posts on the community page were reliable after all. With only 25 days left, Kim Sion was determined to earn enough money to listen to the rest of the lectures. Suddenly, Sion told him that Jimin, a disciple of the Magic Star and a genius among geniuses, wanted to meet him, probably to ask about what happened last time. Kim Sion immediately agreed to meet, making Sion happy. She was just about to send Jimin a message to schedule a time, but it turned out she had already come up behind Sion without them noticing. The moment Jimin saw Kim Sion for the first time, she couldn't help but shout in astonishment. Then, she suddenly went ballistic, demanding to know where he got it from. It took a noisy, chaotic argument before she finally sat still, leaving Kim Sion with a throbbing headache. Sion explained that although Jimin was old, she still looked young because she maintained her childhood appearance using a trick that stores memories elsewhere on her body. Suddenly, Jimin was back at it, aggressively demanding to know where Kim Sion got the inventory bag. Her greedy, covetous gaze made him break out in a cold sweat. From what she knew, that bag was clearly something terrifying. She then spewed a stream of techno-jargon that made him feel like he was about to pass out. He couldn't help but wonder how much worse her reaction would be if he showed her the Spear of Longinus. Jimin firmly offered to buy his inventory bag for 100 billion, which made Kim Sion hesitate for a moment. He thought about how with that 100 billion, he could buy back K-Bit and get those private lectures. All his worries would be solved. But in the end, he told her he wouldn't sell, leaving Jimin deeply disappointed. He sighed wearily and let Jimin try using the bag. Her eyes lit up like stars, but as soon as she put her hand inside, it was yanked so hard that she jumped back, startled, and quickly threw the bag on the ground. Kim Sion explained that only he could use it. No one else could even touch it, let alone buy it from him. You'd think Jimin would give up, but instead, she became even more excited about his item. Her whole body was practically buzzing as she lost her composure, demanding to know where he bought it. After he told her the shop that sold it had closed, Jimin refused to give up and asked if she could study it for a fee. At the mention of money, even someone as cool-headed as Kim Sion had to agree on the spot. Jimin jumped for joy, It was only then that she remembered the real reason she'd come here, what had happened in Kim Seon's dungeon. After some time, once Kim Seon had explained everything that happened in the dungeon, he said that the only reason he was able to beat Nasura was pure luck. It was all thanks to Master Merlin's mana from the lectures he took. Speaking of mana, Kim Seon suddenly remembered that magic and aura were both derived from it, and he wanted to know how to use it, and also how personal will could be related to the laws of the world, because he felt that all dungeon glitches were like that. His words made Jimin suddenly frown and stand up, demanding a more detailed explanation. Kim Seon explained that if you assume magic and aura are glitches that happen from exploiting mana, then dungeon glitches must be the same. His master Merlin often talked about bending the world's rules and personal will in his lectures. If he connected those two ideas, he secretly felt that dungeon glitches were definitely phenomena caused by someone's will. After rambling on for a while, he saw Jimin was still standing there, frozen like a statue. Kim Seon thought he'd said something wrong and scratched his head in embarrassment. But he had no idea that his profound knowledge was making Jimin suspect he was actually a genius, magical scholar capable of creating an inventory bag. How ironic. Jimin was so excited her eyes were shining like headlights, and she furiously jotted down every word of Kim Seon's explanation, which made him feel a little embarrassed. He had only added his own thoughts to the knowledge he'd learned from Merlin. He never expected her to have such a strong reaction. It seemed the lectures from the Transcendence Academy were finally paying off. Suddenly, his genius brain thought about opening a class to teach this knowledge. But that probably wasn't a very good idea, because doing so wasn't as simple as just repeating what he heard in the lectures. One would have to truly understand and apply the content. Besides, who would learn that kind of stuff from someone who was still a student like him? Suddenly, Jimin spoke up, saying she didn't quite understand the concept of magical theory yet. With that, filled with a fierce desire to learn, she declared she wanted to study it more deeply and marched straight out the door, leaving Seon and Kim Seon baffled. He watched Jimin's figure eagerly rushing to the lab and was left a little speechless. She was completely different from the image he'd seen of her in the media. Thinking back, Kim Seon realized that the disciples of the Sword Star, Kalina, and the Magic Star were all people who were very hard to meet, and yet he'd managed to meet all three of them. At this rate, maybe the Great Sound would come looking for him next. After finishing his meal, Kim Seon checked his phone and felt that his teaching progress rate was still too low. He wanted to finish one more course before Free P ended. It seemed there was no other way but to earn money to top up his Free P and increase the teaching progress. He went outside to find Seon, wanting to ask her about hiring more lecturers and about the system, but strangely, she didn't react. He walked over and gave Seon's stiff, plank-like body a hard tap, which snapped her back to reality. Turns out she was also worried because so many problems were popping up with the new student recruitment plan. Kim Seon then asked her if there were any competitions coming up. Competitions like the one at the academy last time, or the recent dungeon clearing one, for example. Seon searched online but couldn't find any competitions happening before the 20th like he'd asked. The only thing was a mock exam held at Hunter M next month. A mock exam, just as the name implies, wasn't a real test but a simulation of the professional hunter exam. It's only held once a year. If you fail, you have to wait another whole year. Because of that, the pressure of this exam is immense. That's why hunter training academies all create simulation tests to let their students practice beforehand. Among them, the top 3 academies in Korea, Hunter, Mill, and Gon, organize mock exams on a very grand scale. The scores students get in the mock exam are mostly the same as the scores they get in the actual professional hunter exam. Therefore, the prize money for the top-ranking students is also huge enough for Kim Seon to solve his problems with the teaching rate and money. He thought about it for a moment. If he waited until next month, the free pass would be over. With that, he scratched his head, feeling like he had no other choice but to go give it a try first. Late at night, Kim So-jun was listening to a lecture on his phone when he suddenly heard an ad for a mock exam for Transcendence, which caught him completely by surprise. This exam offered both a certificate and a clear passing standard, just like the one for professional hunters. Passing it was like achieving a level 5 ascension or becoming a 9th grade swordsman or something. It sounded pretty badass. As excited as he was, Kim So-jun knew he wasn't skilled enough to take this Transcendent mock exam yet. He went back to the lecture, but strangely, every single instructor kept urging students to take the exam, which made him start to waver. It seemed this mock exam was a much bigger deal than he thought. So, Kim Seo-jun went on the forums to check the reviews from people who'd already taken it. He skimmed a few comments from people who had started in a situation similar to his, but whose learning speed had skyrocketed after the exam. This got him all fired up, and he decided to go all in and give it a shot. The next morning, he held his breath and pressed the participate button. The screen quickly displayed the rules and the various categories for the competition. The first test was combat ability. The atmosphere around Kim Seo-jun changed instantly after his first press of the button, and he was so shocked he couldn't believe the exam was administered this way. According to the description, there were 15 stages in total, based on the standards for Transcendence. The first stage was around level 5 or 6. Each stage went up by 1 level, so the 15th stage would be level 20. Just thinking about it made him a little nervous. While he was lost in thought, whoosh, a giant dragon leaped out of his phone, relentlessly spewing venom and spitting webs, which scared the hell out of him. Wait, what? It was only stage 1 and I already freaking failed? Kim Seo-jun couldn't believe his eyes. He rolled around on the ground, crying out to the heavens. It was clearly just stage 1, and the system was already using a dragon to measure combat power. And not just any dragon, but the damn destroyer dragon, Fafnir, of all things. If stage 1 is like this, stage 15 will probably be a fight against a god. After crying for a bit, Kim Seo-jun took a deep breath, sat up, and tried to calm down. In any case, he was lucky to still have 10 more chances after his first attempt. Even with 10 tries, it probably wouldn't make a huge difference, but Kim Seo-jun was determined to go big or go home. With that, he picked up his war spear and strode bravely back inside. So much for being brave. After countless failures, Kim Seo-jun only had 5 attempts left, which made him frustrated enough to cry. He had no idea how he was supposed to capture this thing. Kim Seo-jun realized that if the concept of a professional hunter was still a blur to him, then what the hell was a transcendent? He knew he had to do something to increase his lecture progress, but the test was over before he could even try, so there was no way for him to advance. Suddenly, a notification popped up on his phone asking if he wanted to listen to a tutorial lecture for this, though his evaluation score would be penalized. He immediately considered it. Seeing that there was a lecture from his idol, the great sage equaling heaven, Kim Seo-jun had no reason to pass up this opportunity. He instantly slammed the accept button. He revealed that the secret was to simply dodge its breath attack. Then, he demonstrated a few special techniques against the dragon and pointed out its weak spots. After a few flashy moves, he made Kim Seo-jun's entire problem look like a piece of cake, which left him utterly fucking speechless. Was that supposed to be the helpful part? Was that the simple version? The Transcendent Academy's definition of tutorial seems way different from the norm, huh? He watched it over and over, but was still clueless about how to actually do it. It was a classic just apply the formula and you'll get the answer situation, except the answer was that I was screwed. Suddenly, he saw the name Sigurd in the list of instructors, a hero from Norse mythology, like in The Lord of the Rings. He was both the wielder of the famous sword Balmung and the very first dragon slayer. In other words, he was the person who understood the dragon Fafnir best, so there was no way he wasn't going to watch. He said you just had to dodge its breath, which made a frustrated Kim Seo-jun want to close the video. But then, he began to analyze 2 strategies based on the dragon's traits, which made him pause. He explained that the first thing Fafnir does is unleash its breath, attack the moment it's summoned. So, if you hit the summon button and then run, the dragon will still breathe fire in that direction. The key is to have a block of gold ready at this moment. Although Kim Seo-jun found this method pretty strange, he still bought an ingot. Then he went back to the lecture. Sigurd revealed that when you summon it, you should throw the gold ingot right in front of Fafnir's eyes. It definitely won't use its breath attack right away because it's afraid the gold will disappear. Suddenly, he stopped right at the crucial part, saying he wanted the students to figure out the rest on their own. It really made Kim Seo-jun want to curse. Anyway, he had nothing to lose. He took a deep breath and shakily pressed the retry button. In a flash, the dragon appeared, roaring in front of him. Remembering the lecture, Kim Seo-jun immediately threw the gold ingot hard right in front of it. Seeing the gold, the beast's eyes lit up and it clamped its mouth shut. All of its deadly, pent-up breath vanished, making him charge forward in glee. He never expected it to realize this was just fake gold. It roared even more ferociously than before, and Kim Seo-jun was toast. Oh, that was real easy, wasn't it, you gods? As expected, he failed miserably and was sprawled out on the ground. Suddenly, his phone buzzed with a notification that his lecture progress had increased, leaving him stunned and bewildered. Kim Seo-jun zipped back and forth, trying to dodge the dragon's relentless attacks. But in the end, he still fell flat on his face because it was just too fast. He tried to find an opening in its attacks, but it seemed hopeless. Just as he was about to get wrecked, Kim Seo-jun had no choice but to pull the gold ingot from his pocket and throw it past its face, making it stare wide-eyed. After confirming it was fake gold, it roared ferociously and charged toward Kim Seo-jun, making him run for his life. With that, he threw out countless gold ingots from all directions at the monster. This made it stare, dumbfounded. Kim Seo-jun seized this opportunity, immediately channeling power into his spear and striking with his ultimate moves, mountain doubling force, and chi uniting stance. With a loud boom, he landed a powerful blow that pierced its thick hide. It looked like he had succeeded this time, but don't count your chickens before they hatch, Kim Seo-jun. The monster took his hit without a single scratch or any damage whatsoever. And just like that, it made short work of Kim Seo-jun, and he failed again. Well, at least the small increase in his lecture completion rate gave him a little satisfaction. He sat up excitedly. Seeing that he still had 3 chances left, he was fired up again. He had to be persistent as a legend and keep trying. Lately, Seon was a little surprised that she hadn't seen him at the dungeon. Kim Seo-jun told her that he was temporarily focusing on training alone. He was a little worried inside, wondering if she'd be suspicious if she saw him glued to his phone all day. He had already flunked the first subject of the term, and the course completion rate was increasing slower than he'd thought. So, Kim Seo-jun decided it would be much better to complete the lecture and then apply it in a real fight. 3 days later, the second course began. Kim Seo-jun was a bit worried, wondering what this one would be like. After he finished preparing, a fireball that looked exactly like a Dragon Ball from Dragon Ball Time suddenly appeared before his eyes, which surprised him a little. He was chuckling to himself when the system suddenly informed him that he had to hold on to it while escaping a monster's pursuit. After reading that, Kim Seo-jun felt like he was going to faint. He gave a strained smile while staring at the roaring monster in front of him. So this is basic physical fitness, huh? After countless near-death experiences, Kim Seo-jun moved on to the third course, which was to defeat a sphinx while his 5 senses were inactive. He stared blankly at the sphinx, moaning something in front of him. The moment he opened his mouth, it smacked him so hard he ascended to heaven. Next was the fourth course, which required him to restrain the gluttony of a pasasari. No matter how much power Kim Seo-jun used, he couldn't control its hunger. He couldn't take it anymore and had to make a run for it. For the fifth course, Kim Seo-jun successfully passed stage 1 after listening to a siren song, which made him think it would be a piece of cake. He never expected that having to listen to Hades' Requiem would make his ears bleed from its divine singing voice. After a grueling exam period, Kim Seo-jun finally got his mock exam scores, and they were more disastrous than ever. But on the bright side, his course completion rates had gone up, so it looked like he was about to pass 2 subjects. However, 3 days had passed, and he still hadn't received any notification about selecting a new course, which was making him freak out. There were only 5 days left on his free pass, and he was so close to finishing the last course. Kim Seo-jun wondered if he should just go back to the dungeon immediately, since returning was much better than this indefinite waiting. In the midst of his confusion, the mentor kid he hadn't seen in ages suddenly appeared, startling him. Seeing the kid after so long surprised Kim Seo-jun, and he spoke a little too loudly, almost getting caught by Seon. Flustered, he immediately grabbed the kid and ran straight outside. Hearing the mentor's explanation really pissed Kim Seo-jun off. The kid said he only came back after checking his records, because his results were just so pathetic. Hearing this made Kim Seo-jun freeze up completely in shock. The mentor stated that at his current level, any advice he gave would be useless. He then gently advised him to focus on listening to the 2 recommended lectures, which made Kim Seo-jun feel so hopeless he wanted to cry. The mentor's sincere advice left him without even the energy to get mad. When Kim Seo-jun mentioned that he had been listening to lectures diligently while the mentor was away, the kid happily picked up his phone to check. But the more he looked, the darker his face grew when he saw 4 lectures playing at the same time. Kim Seo-jun revealed that he had been watching 4 lectures at once, which made the mentor freak out, unable to believe his ears. And those insane completion rates in just 3 months shocked him to his core. My God, that was just unreal. Kim Seo-jun added that he had also taken many exams. He then quietly asked how he should choose his elective for the superhuman exam. The mentor said he just needed to pick whichever subject he wanted. Suddenly noticing that Kim Seo-jun still didn't have an Ultimate Academy ID, the mentor was briefly surprised and guessed that something must be wrong. He said he'd go see the dean to ask about it. The moment he finished speaking, he vanished like the wind, too fast for Kim Seo-jun to call him back. He then resumed practicing his full-body mountain toppling force with his beloved Azure Spear, huffing out puffs of ferocious killing intent. Suddenly, a notification popped up on the screen asking if Kim Seo-jun wanted to listen to the concluding lecture, and he immediately clicked on it. With words of encouragement and sincere advice, Instructor Xiang Yu's lecture on the mountain toppling force officially came to an end. As evening began to fall, Seon saw him return and excitedly told him that registration for the Hunter mock exam had opened today and would last for a week. After asking his opinion, she happily and quickly helped him register. Kim Seo-jun thought to himself that although his scores in the superhuman mock exam were a complete disaster, that was the superhuman exam. He'd probably do better in this Hunter exam. Besides, he was extremely confident now that he had the power of the mountain toppling force, not to mention the Spear of Longinus. After fiddling with the device for a moment, Seon finished his registration and told him the exam would be in 10 days. When she heard him ask about student recruitment, she seemed a bit dejected, wondering what kind of trick that old man Park Min-chun was planning to pull this time. But he was her grandfather after all. What Seon was most worried about right now was which instructors to invite. Each field needed its own dedicated instructor. She couldn't just invite anyone, but hiring famous ones was expensive. Kim Seo-jun's interest was piqued, and when Seon mentioned that the salary for a top-tier instructor could reach several billion won, his greedy blood started boiling. Just like that, he was overcome with excitement and wanted to volunteer to help Seon, which left her a bit confused. 3 days later, Kim Sejun was thrilled to see that he had completed all of Xiangyu's lectures. He was a little bummed about Ken's lecture, but since his free pass was still active, it seemed like it would be fine. The mentor then suddenly appeared again. When he heard that he had finished a course while he was gone, he was so shocked his jaw dropped. Speaking of asking about Kim Sejun's situation, the mentor suddenly freaked out, saying something big had happened, and he looked pretty urgent. The mentor explained that this wasn't a system error, but that the Ultimate Academy had no information about him at all, which made Kim Sejun feel like he was going to die. "Wait, what?" he shouted, asking how the hell he could have been taking lectures from the academy this whole time if he wasn't a member, since they operated on a strict membership system. The mentor added that the dean had received a direct report but was also unsure of the specifics. Even though Kim Sejun didn't know who the dean was, it seemed like that person was a being of immense power, not someone anyone could know just because they wanted to. There didn't seem to be any errors in the Ultimate Academy's system either, unless causality itself had been altered, but causality would not change under any circumstances. According to the dean, it seemed there were traces of some undiscovered intervention. Kim Sejun grew more and more worried that he would be expelled. Seeing this, the mentor cheerfully reassured him that it would be fine, because the problem was on their end, not his. Once a member, always a member. Hearing that made him feel a little relieved. Kim Sejun couldn't believe someone had intervened in this matter, suspecting it might have been done intentionally for some purpose. He saw himself as just an ordinary person with a dream of becoming a hunter, living the same normal life day in and day out. The mentor told him to just continue training as usual for now. He then said he hoped he would understand, because recreating an ID was a real pain. Putting that issue aside, Kim Sejun's free pass only had 2 days left, so he wanted some advice on what to do next. The mentor cleared his throat and explained that the curriculum at the Ultimate Academy was divided into 4 main parts: introductory, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Kim Sejun was currently in the introductory stage. After completing the advanced level, he would reach a certain level of proficiency. From that point, each person would develop their own training methods to be more suitable and effective. The stage from advanced to transcendent was much more difficult than the stage from beginner to advanced, so it seemed Kim Sejun still had a long road ahead of him. With the mentor's help, he was shown 2 new lectures to solidify his foundation first. He was told to save everything else for the intermediate level. The mentor's firm attitude made it impossible for him not to trust him. As soon as he clicked to register, the tuition fee jumped to 2 billion, causing Kim Sejun's face to go pale. When he heard the mentor advise him to collect causality regularly, he grew curious about what it was. The mentor explained that it was simply one's status, just like how him meeting him right now was an instance of causality. He then said that later, when he studied at a higher level, he would understand what these words meant. In addition, the mentor revealed that besides him, the academy had many other students. It was currently the place with 4 students who had become transcendent beings. This was the highest number among all the academies. Each academy had its own unique courses and characteristics, but everyone agreed that if you wanted to learn magic, you went to the Magic Academy. If you wanted to learn weaponry, you went to G. And if you wanted to know a bit of everything, you went to the Hunter Academy. People often say that having no specialty means having no particular weakness. From this, one could guess just how famous the Hunter Academy was to be considered one of the top 3 academies in South Korea. And finally, the day of the mock exam to become a professional hunter, hosted by the Hunter Academy, had arrived. Kim Sejun, along with Seon, joined the bustling crowd to participate. This mock exam was a competition between the 4 departments, so the scale and the amount of money invested were on another level. The most outstanding person who took first place would receive a scholarship worth 1 billion. Kim Sejun had already calculated that a new free pass would cost around 500 million. Although he had been diligently grinding in dungeons, his savings didn't exceed 30 million. So to get that kind of money, there was no other way than to win first place in the mock exam. With that, the flames of ambition blazed fiercely within Kim Sejun. After checking in, he went inside and was a bit shocked by the massive crowd. He said a quick goodbye to Seon and hurried to get in line. Suddenly, rowdy shouts and curses broke out, making the crowd noisier. That was Kim Gang-cheol from the Hunter Academy. Because he was given priority and didn't have to line up, some other guy felt it was unfair and wouldn't stop yelling. Seeing Kim Gang-cheol here, the crowd started whispering amongst themselves, so the Hunter Academy sent him. Looks like he's a shoo-in for the top 3. Their eyes met for a moment. Kim Gang-cheol glanced at him briefly before walking on, leaving Kim Seo-jun to marvel at his overwhelming aura. He truly is a top prospect from the Hunter Academy, he thought to himself. While he was busy listening to people gossip about who would win this time, a piercing shout demanding to be let in made everyone turn to look. Before them was a kid with all sorts of weapons dangling off him, stubbornly demanding to get in without queuing. His arrogant attitude was enough to make everyone's blood boil. The entire hall erupted into chaos, loud as a fish market. Kim Seo-jun broke out in a nervous sweat, realizing that cadets from every academy in the country were actually here. Lost in that rowdy crowd was Perok, a hunter apprentice from a second-rate academy. He was only studying there for one reason. Money is everything. Annual tuition at Korea's top 3 academies was easily in the hundreds of millions, so he had to grit his teeth and study at a second-rate school to get a scholarship. Dusok figured it was better to be the head of a snake than the tail of a dragon, and today, he was very pleased with the mock exam, all thanks to Kim So-jun. The hunter mock exam consisted of 5 tests, none of which were written, unlike the professional hunter exams. Basic physical fitness was the first event, and the main evaluation was how many laps one could run. After 15 grueling laps, only he and Kim So-jun were left on the track. I just have to beat him. I just have to pull ahead, Do-sok thought to himself, panting heavily as he sprinted with everything he had. But what the? Who would have guessed that at the last second, the first one to cross the finish line would be Kim So-jun? Afterward, he even put on an insane, world-breaking weightlifting performance that left everyone's jaws on the floor. This isn't as heavy as I expected. I mean, I work out every day, but still. There's no way it should be this easy, is there? Could it be? Am I instinctively using the mountain uprooting strength after finishing Xiang Yu's course? He wondered. If the mountain uprooting strength alone is this powerful, I'll probably be a monster by the time I finish the HQ course. A passionate fire burned fiercely within Kim So-jun. Kim Gang-cheol, a cadet from one of South Korea's 3 greatest hunter academies, was also present today. This time, he was here on his superior's orders not to compete, but to monitor Kim So-jun's actions. What's with this sudden request? Who is this Kim So-jun guy? About a month ago, I think I heard his name mentioned in connection with that chaotic dungeon incident. Kim Gang-cheol wondered to himself as he walked. At that moment, the results board was displayed amidst the crowd's excited murmurs. Kim Gang-cheol froze when he saw that his score was a whole 11 points lower than Kim So-jun's. To make matters worse, he was ranked 3rd, not 2nd. Lee Min-yoon. Who the hell is that? There's no way I wouldn't know the name of someone good enough to beat me. This is the first time I've ever seen this name. Where did this guy crawl out from? After seeing the results, Kim Gang-cheol instantly became a depressed, sad boy. He told himself he couldn't let this continue, but then he remembered his superior's orders. Just observe Kim So-jun, nothing else. Kim Gang-cheol paused for a moment to think. The second test was mana manipulation. It was judged by attacking a shield generator. Contestants had to use their mana with maximum efficiency to break the shield. Kim So-jun, feeling a bit insecure, glanced at his rivals as they took their turns. Now it was Lee Yu-eun's turn, the Academy's goddess. She unleashed a fiery attack, and in the blink of an eye, shattered the shield for a perfect score of 100, looking cool as hell. From below, Kim So-jun stared in awe, not even blinking once. Next, it was his turn. Might as well go all in, Kim So-jun told himself. Wielding the scepter in his hand, his plan was just to create Merlin's mana. That should be enough. But things rarely go according to plan. That one casual blow of his successfully sliced the shield in half, releasing an immense aura. With a single shot, Kim So-jun rocketed to the top spot, earning the admiration and whispers of the massive audience below. So much for being weak, huh? So much for feeling insecure? Even Kim So-jun couldn't believe he had actually pulled it off. Afterward, the mana shield generator broke, so the competition had to be postponed. After all was said and done, the hunters from the 3 biggest academies all ended up ranked bitterly behind Kim So-jun. The audience below began to whisper that Kim So-jun was the one who had resolved the chaotic dungeon incident, that he'd also single-handedly taken down the grade 6 Nora. Hearing this, Park Yeon became a bit tense. She felt that if this kept up, the mock exam would be pointless. She had absolutely no intention of letting him lead by such an overwhelming margin. Nobody knew which way this professional hunter exam would go. The fact that Kim Gang-cheol was being left in the dust was a huge disappointment to his fans. They felt that, as things stood, only Lee Ha-eun had a chance of facing Kim So-jun. Meanwhile, Kim So-jun was sitting in the waiting room, sighing tiredly with the holy spear in his hand. This was the holy spear that pierced Jesus when he was crucified. That legend alone was enough to prove its power was no joke. The problem is, I need to know what that power actually is. All I have to go on is the story. Just that one story, and no other explanation. Does that mean the Spear of Longinus has the power to shatter mana shields? Or does it just shorten distances? I don't know anything. Suddenly, his eyes fell on a strange kid. He had a bow slung over his shoulder and was singing obnoxiously. Kim So-jun suddenly remembered that was the weirdo who was giving the staff a hard time earlier. Noticing him staring, the kid cheerfully ran over to get acquainted. It was Lee Min-yoon, the one ranked 2nd. Min-yoon's loud, hyper, and chaotic energy left Kim So-jun completely speechless. Just then, the announcement for the dungeon raid test suddenly blared over the speakers. Head held high, Kim So-jun confidently strode into the hyper-realistic virtual space. The monsters he had to eliminate today were 10 Inkuras. Around him, a pack of the beasts had already gathered, roaring their heads off. So much roaring. It's giving me a headache. He gave them a few gentle whacks with his staff. Every last one of them spewed blood and dropped dead on the spot. Still, their power was nothing to scoff at, totally different from before. Of course, these monsters are vastly different from a real Enkura, but then again, I feel like I've changed a lot since back then too. As he swiftly countered the beast's sharp claws with his staff, Kim Seo-jun thought, just 3 months ago, I was a total nobody, just struggling to get by. To be exact, I was just an ordinary person trying to survive. But now, Kim Seo-jun was a student at the Supreme Academy. He'd met Seon, and his life had changed. Although his journey to become extraordinary was still filled with challenges, the goal no longer felt so out of reach. After working up a sweat, he successfully wiped out the beasts, scoring a standard 100 points. When he emerged from the dungeon, Kim Seo-jun, now at the top of the rankings, was met with the unwavering, piercing glares of the other contestants. That makes sense. As long as I'm not disqualified and I don't give up, my victory is guaranteed. I'm basically participating in a competition where the winner has already been decided. Kim Seo-jun thought gleefully, not giving a damn about the death glares from his rivals. He decided to just play dumb and stay quiet. Lee Min-yoon only ranked 5th this time, but he looked as thrilled as if he just won the lottery. Kim Gang-cheol only managed to get 3rd. His cool, aloof demeanor caught Kim Seo-jun's eye. It was only then that Kim Seo-jun realized Lee Min-yoon was an unaffiliated contestant, meaning he was self-taught, without an academy. They're usually people with no money and no talent. It's incredibly rare for an exceptional person to emerge from their ranks. For him to be a seeded student from one of the top 3 academies by training on his own, he must be a super talent. Kim Seo-jun thought, actually, I have a teacher too. But my teacher has no idea a student like me exists, Min-yoon said quietly. Kim Seo-jun heard him but didn't understand what he meant. Just as he was about to ask, a staff member from the competition came over to announce that an unexpected problem had occurred. Everyone immediately started gathering and murmuring among themselves. It turned out that the instructors, selected as judges for this competition, had encountered a surprise dungeon and were unable to make it. We are currently holding an emergency meeting. We're very sorry, everyone. We will notify you as soon as we have a decision, the staff member said with a deep bow. This was definitely orchestrated by the Church of Justice. I'm not sure how they can create a 10-star dungeon, but if it's the Church of Justice, they're more than capable. The problem is, this might bring the mock exam to a halt. If that happens, Kim Seo-jun will become the winner, and the whole thing will end meaninglessly. I don't think the church went through all this trouble just for this result, Gang Treo thought worriedly. In the end, he suddenly proposed a change to the exam format. How about having the students compete in one-on-one battles? That makes sense in theory, but it would be very difficult to implement. The number of students participating in the Hunter Academy's mock exam is enormous. If we proceed with one-on-one battles, it would take a lot of time, and we don't have that much. Besides, it would create issues with the scoring system, the staff member said, scratching his head. Gang Treo refused to give up. If you change the judges, they have to be at least A-rank hunters. We can't just wait here forever. Then what about organizing it as an event? Instead of all students, only those who want to participate will sign up. The mock exam is being broadcast nationwide. It's being watched by the entire population, the association, and government officials. If the exam is interrupted like this because of this incident, won't it tarnish the Hunter Academy's image? He deliberately came up with this idea, hoping to have a one-on-one solo match with Kim Seo-jun. If he wins, all the fame Kim Seo-jun has gained so far will belong to him. If he loses, he'll still be known as the one who fought Kim Seo-jun. A true win-win situation. Everyone else agreed enthusiastically. Only Kim Seo-jun mulled it over for a moment, but in the end, for the money, he was like, yeah, sure, why not? And so, an emergency tournament was organized with 15 participants from various academies. The news that elite students from the top academies were competing against each other blew up across all mass media. People were buzzing with discussion, and news sites were on the verge of crashing. Dongmin, Do-eun, and Gang Treo all shared one burning desire, and that was to defeat me, Kim Seo-jun. Man, what pressure! Meanwhile, Kim Seo-jun was sitting alone in the waiting room, lost in thought. He was busy thinking about the prize money he would get if he won. In addition to the winner's prize, if I also win this event, the total amount I could earn might reach 2 billion won. If I get 2 billion after subtracting 500 million for the free pass, I'll have 1.5 billion left. The lectures my mentor recommended cost 2 billion and 2.5 billion respectively. If so, I can take those lectures sooner than I thought. Of course, first I have to be the winner of this event. In reality, he wasn't worried about those 3 Dong-min, Do-eun, and Gang Treo. The only person he was worried about was Min-yoon. Sometimes people use auxiliary weapons, but I've never seen anyone use more than 3 types. Normally, people just focus on using one type to enhance their combat power and mastery. But when I counted earlier, it seemed like he had more than 8 different types of weapons. Could he possibly use all of them? The more he thought, the more confused he became. On the screen, a live match between Min-yoon and another contestant was being broadcast. A fighting style that was fast, brutal, and decisive, combined with various unpredictable weapons, Kim Sejun found it very intriguing. This is a free, unrestrained style of attack, not bound by anything. People who aren't formally trained to become hunters all have their own distinct fighting styles. Kim Sejun was the same. Min Yoon's fighting style was very similar to his own. Could he also be a student of the Supreme Academy? Thinking back, what he said made perfect sense. Because at the Supreme Academy, you learn everything through videos. The instructors have absolutely no idea who is watching their videos to learn. He became more and more convinced that his suspicion was right. The match on the screen ended with Min Yoon's victory. This final match is the one everyone has been anxiously waiting for, Do-eun of I Academy versus Kim Sejun of Dream Academy. The entire stadium erupted in cheers. Everyone held their breath, waiting to see this clash of titans. Do-eun is a genius. It's not an exaggeration. In fact, calling her a genius might not be enough. She is one of the 5 strongest students at her academy, one of the top 3 academies in South Korea. Her talent is recognized by Dongjin Min, the genius mage and magus scholar who is next in line for the mana crystal position. In her life, the word impossible doesn't exist. Right now, her entire body was blazing with firepower as she walked step by step toward Kim Sejun. But unexpectedly, before she could even launch her first attack, he cut her firepower apart with a single swing in an instant. Do-eun's jaw dropped. This couldn't be happening. A mage with overwhelming mana can dispel the magic of other mages, but that mage must fully understand the principles of that magic and choose the perfect moment to dispel it. He's not a mage. There's no way he could understand magic. Even if he did, there's no way he could have chosen the exact moment to dispel the magic, Do-eun thought, her eyes wide. Kim Sejun was staring intently at the weapon in his hand, thinking it really was as powerful as rumored. Do-eun was too angry to speak. She once again unleashed a fire attack, this time with an intensity many times stronger than before. Kim Sejun's expression didn't change at all as his hands moved with fluid ease, extinguishing each of her flames as if it were child's play. No matter how much Do-eun gritted her teeth and attacked with all her might, Kim Sejun dodged her effortlessly. In the end, Do-eun had to slump down and admit defeat amidst the thunderous cheers from the audience. The next match was between Min Yoon and Dong Min, with a result that no one saw coming. The two were locked in a struggle when Min Yoon suddenly pulled a broadsword from his weapon bag and threw it, startling Dong Min. He continued to pull countless weapons from his person and hurl them straight at his opponent. The speed and trajectory were simply something Dong Min could not predict. After disorienting Dong Min for a moment, Min Yoon landed a direct blow to his stomach, causing him to collapse instantly, unable to defend himself. Min Yoon's lawless style of combat made Dong Min so furious he was speechless. The audience below also felt there was something strange about his fighting style, but they couldn't pinpoint what it was. Kim Sejun also saw Min Yoon's victory on the TV screen. Even if Min Yoon hadn't fought Dong Min by constantly changing weapons, the result would have been the same. He thought decisively. Gang Treo now finally understood that the Church of Justice's goal was not only to keep an eye on Kim Sejun, but on Min Yoon as well. The ultimate goal of the Church of Justice is to use this mock exam to make Kim Sejun and Min Yoon fight each other. I don't need to interfere anymore. In any case, this tournament event has probably been a success. Could Min Yoon be a member of the Church of Justice? That's right. Otherwise, no matter how gifted he is, there's no way he could have defeated a student from a top academy through self-study. Gang Treo thought, trembling. His next match was against Kim Sejun. Gang Treo told himself that this time, he would absolutely not let the church have its way and turn him into a stepping stone for Kim Sejun's show. Our two opponents rushed at each other with immeasurable force. The ground around them was filled with thick dust, and the stone floor cracked into pieces. Gang Treo used a sword, while Kim Sejun used a staff. Neither of them would give an inch. You could say they just kept clashing fiercely. After a while, a panting Gang Treo realized that Kim Sejun's weapon had no sword aura at all, yet it could block all of his. It's not just that he blocked my sword energy, it's like my sword energy had no effect on him whatsoever. That weapon looks like an ordinary iron bar, but it can't be. He must have gotten such a high score on the mock exam thanks to that weapon. I just need to be careful of his weapon. The difference in our actual strength isn't that great. With that thought, Gang Tae gritted his teeth and swung his sword with all his might at Kim Seo-jun. He relentlessly pressed his attack, giving him no chance to counter. With his mind fixated on the top spot, he fought like a madman without a moment's rest. Kim Seo-jun was also a bit surprised by Gang Tae's power. Then suddenly, ***, Gang Tae drew his sword again and started hacking away at the rocks around Kim Seo-jun, startling him. As expected, being in the top 3 of the Hunter Academy isn't just for show. If that's the case, I'll have to go all out. Kim Seo-jun smirked, and his entire body was suddenly enveloped in a dark aura, stunning Gang Tae. His jaw dropped as he watched Kim Seo-jun suddenly become visibly stronger. His entire presence completely changed. It was as intense as an erupting volcano. Each of Kim Seo-jun's powerful strikes flustered Gang Tae, slowly pushing him back. He broke out in a cold sweat, trying desperately to fight back. But how could he possibly stand against those swift sword strokes, whose paths he couldn't even see? Compared to the advanced swordsmanship and mana training exercises of the Hunter Academy, it was just a simple weapon swing. But how can he swing that weapon so effortlessly? Gang Tae was thrown back a good 10 meters by one of Kim So-jun's blows. Dazed and speechless, he thought through the pain. That last attack made Gang Tae, in his daze, think of Lee Ha-eun. He had been defeated by her back then, forced to endure her taunts that cut him to the bone. Being defeated by Kim Seo-jun again today made Gang Tae seethe with rage. I will have my revenge, Nupakachi. A thundering strike came crashing down. It was the manifestation of the burning hatred Gang Tae felt for Kim So-jun. A heaven-shaking explosion erupted. After the hazy smoke cleared, all the spectators stared wide-eyed at the sight of Gang Tae, lying defeated at Kim Seo-jun's feet. There was no longer any doubt. He was the one advancing to the final round. The entire stadium erupted in astonished cheers like a broken beehive. The final match between Kim Seo-jun and Min Yoon, which everyone had been waiting for, was finally about to begin. Seeing Min Yoon's hesitant expression, he mentioned that he also knew the teacher he was studying under, which seemed to surprise Min Yoon, or maybe not. If Lee Min Yoon isn't a visiting student from the Supreme Academy, I can just say it was a misunderstanding. But if he's like me, also a visiting student from the Supreme Academy, then things will change completely. Even if we're both visiting students from the Supreme Academy, it doesn't mean he's on my side. On the contrary, I should see him as a rival. Right now, I can't predict how Lee Min Yoon will react, so I can't be too hasty. Kim Seo-jun told himself he wanted to risk it all and fight him. He faced Min Yoon's suspicious gaze after revealing that his teacher was a transcendent-level master. He then proposed that the loser of this match would have to answer one question from the winner. Amidst the cheers and encouragement from the crowd, a deal between Kim So-jun and Min Yoon was officially made. The final match officially began. However, both of them stood as still as statues, causing the audience to look at each other in confusion. Both were busy cautiously observing their opponent, sweating bullets. With a timed zwing asterisk, Min Yoon drew the sword from his back and lunged at him. Min Yoon is holding a sword now, but considering Lee Min Yoon's fighting style up to this point, I doubt it's just a simple sword. I have to go all out from the beginning to find his weakness. Kim Seo-jun thought as he swung his staff in response. A flash of light shot past, and Min Yoon's sword instantly shattered into pieces before its owner's horrified eyes. Quick as lightning, Min Yoon abandoned his weapon and began to retreat. Taking advantage of Kim Seo-jun's distraction, a rain of arrows suddenly poured down on his head. Kim Seo-jun quickly brandished his staff, using the force of the wind to blow all the arrows away. Witnessing this display, Min Yoon was utterly astonished, with a hint of admiration. That weapon you're using, I'm quite curious about it. If I win, you'll answer my question about that weapon, right? Of course, Kim Seo-jun agreed, but only if his opponent won first. They both burst out laughing and then rushed back in, clashing fiercely. Amidst Min Yoon's sword energy, Kim So-jun felt a very strange sensation. Contrary to his willingness to use underhanded tricks to win, he didn't seem to want to win at all. Occasionally, jeers came from the crowd, but he seemed completely unbothered by them. Kim Seo-jun couldn't understand what was going on in Min Yoon's head. Could it be that he doesn't want to beat me? Min Yoon chuckled, saying he was already trying his best. No matter how much others insult me, my value doesn't decrease. Seeing Min Yoon's firm resolve, Kim So-jun's fighting spirit ignited, and he drew his staff, ready to show him what he was made of. Hearing Lee Min Yoon's words just now reminded him of a teaching from Shakyamuni. This world has a rule of constant elimination, so we must be stronger than we were yesterday. Through those teachings, Kim So-jun suddenly thought about wanting to escape that world and see it from a different perspective. There is a story from when Shakyamuni's human name was Gautama Siddhartha, a tale from before he joined the ranks of the Buddhas and was still continuing his practice. One day, Shakyamuni saw a group of children in a running race. For some reason, they raced many times, and every time, there was always one child who came in last. But for some reason, the smile never left his face. Shakyamuni was very curious, so he approached the boy and asked, "Child, why do you run like that?" The boy replied, "Because I like it." But what if the others catch up to you like this? My finish line and their finish lines are different, so how can they catch up? Then what is the finish line you see over there? There are other people standing there, so I'm not sure if that's the finish line anymore. To me, it's just a point I pass through. That boy continued to finish last. And then, in the biggest race held in the young monk's country, the young monk heard that the boy had achieved an incredible result. At that time, the young monk thought it was like building a tower, putting in a little effort at a time, building one's self, building one's own life. So, the young monk repeated this arduous training to build a more perfect tower than before. But while quietly listening to the boy's words, the young monk suddenly had this thought. That tower I'm building, I don't actually need to finish it. It's okay even if it collapses. Why had the young monk never once thought of that? Kim Seo-jun's society is a competitive one. If you don't strive every day, you'll be eliminated. Just falling behind means you disappear. It's survival of the fittest. The big fish eats the small fish. So every day, he had to push himself, thinking that by growing quickly, he wouldn't be left behind. But the more he did so, the more anxious he became, and he realized he was obsessed with the Supreme Academy. Kim Seo-jun was consumed by obsession, the need to strive so he wouldn't be eliminated, so he wouldn't be left behind, so no one would surpass him in order to survive this competition. It's okay, there are other people standing there, so I'm not sure if that's the finish line. No matter how much others curse at me, my own value remains unchanged. Word by word, mixed with the image of Min Yoon's face, flashed through Kim Seo-jun's mind. Only now did he clearly understand the words from Shakyamuni's lecture. Why had I never thought of it that way? If I use the Spear of Longinus, I can win easily. No matter what tricks Lee Min Yoon uses, I just have to break through them. My desire to win hasn't changed. Kim Seo-jun's eyes shone with determination as he gripped his weapon with both hands. He wanted to be the one to decide his own value. Suddenly seeing Kim Seo-jun's blazing fighting spirit, Min Yoon was a little surprised. The corner of his mouth twitched into a smirk. With that, he took off all the weapons he was carrying, then picked up a small dagger, the one he was most confident with. Both of them, as if they'd been shot full of adrenaline, got back into it, even more formidable than before. In contrast to Kim Seo-jun's tense expression, Min Yoon was messing around, half fighting, half joking, but the speed of his attacks was like a flash of lightning. If that were Longinus's spear, every one of its attacks would pose a major threat to me. Moreover, it was really hard to deal with Min Yoon's sudden and ever-changing attacks. Kim Seo-jun tensed up, using all his strength to counterattack Min Yoon. In a flash, he flicked his hand, sending Min Yoon stumbling back. It wouldn't matter if I lost, but I'll do my best to win. Who knew fighting could be this much fun? Kim Seo-jun thought with a private smile, as Min Yoon once again tore through the air, charging at him while panting. But it ain't over till it's over. He spun around for a moment, and then abruptly vanished without a trace in a hazy cloud of dust, leaving Kim Seo-jun alone, bewildered by this insane, high-level stealth technique. Although it's not perfect yet, if I don't focus, he'll disappear from my sight in an instant. Anyway, it seems like Min Yoon wants to settle this with this move. Kim Seo-jun thought to himself and planned to use Merlin's mana technique. But right at that moment, images of the opponents who had been defeated by Min Yoon's hands suddenly flashed through his mind. Kim Seo-jun suddenly realized that he had been too rigid during his fights. The words of his teacher echoed in his ears. Learning many new things is a wonderful thing, but learning forms habits, and those very habits become an obstacle to expressing oneself. Because learning is absorbing what others have expressed. Learning gives you the illusion that you're doing well, but in reality, you're just imitating others. You must not feel satisfied with just learning. You have to use your own way. Learning must exist as a means to express yourself. Kim Seo-jun focused all his life force, combining the knowledge of Merlin, the senses of Ken, and the mountain-toppling strength of Xiang Yu. In an instant, he unleashed a thunderous blow of his own creation, throwing heaven and earth into chaos. Everyone below couldn't believe a student could reach such a level. From within the brilliant flash of light that Kim Seo-jun emitted, Min Yoon's figure gradually appeared behind the tip of his blade. I lost, Min Yoon said with a grin. The news that the final winner was Kim Seo-jun reached Kalia's ears. When she heard he had switched weapons at the last minute, her face darkened for a moment. She said she would report this unexpected development to the apostles. Is there any reason for us to go this far? I know Kim Seo-jun is a person we should keep an eye on, but the Korean Association has already begun a full-scale investigation into the appearance of this 10-star dungeon. Because of this, the plan we've been preparing for the past 10 years has been disrupted. I honestly don't understand why we're doing all of this just for that punk. The henchman, Canis, spoke up resentfully, only to be barked at to shut his mouth. She recalled how, just a few days ago, her superior had threatened her, telling her to pay attention to his every move. The way he used an apostle as a mere messenger to relay this supreme command made Kalia a little scared. Biting her nails, she trembled as she remembered someone else who had the ability to do the same. After the match, Perel John was somewhat speechless at this student who was strong as hell. Especially when Kim Seo-jun used the aura blade, he looked like nothing less than a monster. Kim Seo-jun said he needed to meet someone before going home, Min Yoon. Right now, he was surrounded by countless students from various academies, like a top idol. Even though he lost to me in the final match, the mere fact that he's self-taught and doesn't belong to any academy, yet reached such a level, was enough to attract attention. From the academy's point of view, it's true that everyone was dying to get their hands on him. They couldn't possibly let a talent like that slip by. Kim Seo-jun nodded in thought, but with that crowd clinging to him like leeches, there was no way for him to talk to him privately. Suddenly, Min Yoon broke out of the crowd and ran to hide behind Kim Seo-jun. He announced he would join Dream Academy, causing another uproar. After a while, they managed to find a place to escape from those loudmouths from the academies. Min Yoon said that what he'd said earlier was true. He wanted to attend the same academy as him. Kim Seo-jun froze, not knowing how to react. He knew that even if he strongly objected, Sejong probably wouldn't accept him into the academy anyway. But he also didn't want to interfere in Sejong's affairs in such an emotional way. Then we'll talk about that later. Do you remember our promise? Kim Seo-jun asked, his voice wanting to know who the master that Min-yoon mentioned really was. Looking cool and handsome, Min-yoon boldly and clearly declared that he didn't fucking know either. Hello? Are you messing with me? Kim Seo-jun was fuming, taking aggressive steps toward Min-yoon that scared the crap out of him. That's not it. I really don't know. He doesn't even know I'm his student. A moment ago, when you were using the dagger, you said you were taught. Plus, you even said your master was a transcendent level master. And now you're saying you don't know who he is? Kim Seo-jun raged. No, because he never taught me anything. I learned everything by watching. I've never been taught by anyone, Min-yoon replied calmly. Min-yoon was a self-taught student. It's very common for someone with no money and no talent to want to become a hunter. But Min-yoon's case was different. He had talent and wasn't short on money, but he didn't want to be tied down by any academy, so he chose to study on his own. I trained alone, deep in the mountains. Even though I had no one to guide me, I was quite satisfied because I didn't have to follow the suffocating curriculum of any academy. It went on like that until one day, while I was training as usual, I suddenly sensed that someone was unconscious nearby. That was the first time I met my master, Min-yoon said. The man was covered in bloody wounds, but was determined not to let Min-yoon carry him down the mountain. Seeing the urgency in his words, he had to give up on the idea of taking him to a hospital. With no other choice, Min-yoon took care of the man in an abandoned house on the mountain. At first, his condition was so severe that it was a miracle he didn't die on the spot. But as time went on, he could feel the man recovering rapidly. A month later, on his way back home, Min-yoon was startled to find a group of strangers surrounding the man in front of his house. Scared, he hid behind a tree to observe the situation. Just as he was about to be discovered, the old man, with masterful sword strokes, lopped off all their heads in a flash. In all his life, it was the first time Min-yoon had witnessed someone with such incredible martial skill. After finishing them off, the old man loudly advised Min-yoon to leave and never come back. Before he could even process what had happened, the old man fucking vanished like the wind. Although he didn't know what was going on, his instincts told Min-yoon he should listen to him. So, before leaving, he packed his belongings. At that moment, he saw a manuscript the old man had left behind in his haste. I intended to return it to him if I got the chance to meet him again, but I haven't seen him since, Min-yoon said with his head down. Thanks to the manuscript, he learned the weapon techniques written inside. From the way he fought, my master must be the one who created the precious techniques written in the manuscript. But my master still doesn't know that I have his precious records, or that I've learned his techniques, Min-yoon said shyly. I know there's a high chance he's lying, but he isn't just some ordinary cadet from the Supreme Academy, Kim Seo-jun thought. And Min-yoon added that the real reason he participated in this trial exam was because he thought that if it was a competition on such a large scale, his master would find him. Se-john, who had been listening from the beginning, finally spoke up, asking if the person Min-yoon called master could actually be the Black Saint. The Black Saint is just like the Sword Saint. He is one of the 5 symbolic heroes of Korea. Among the 5, he is the most mysterious. Seeing that the Sword Saint's granddaughter also knew of this mysterious man, Kim Seo-jun asked her to help him ask the Sword Saint about the precious manuscript in Min-yoon's possession. He was so stunned he couldn't speak when he finally realized Seon was the Sword Saint's granddaughter. The next day, Kim Seo-jun was at home sighing because the money he'd earned still wasn't enough to buy the equipment for his online course. Remembering what Min-yoon said yesterday, he recalled that he was supposed to come back to the academy today so they could go see the Sword Saint together. So, Kim Seo-jun went online and bought a free pass. This action sped up his learning process on the system, helping him complete Ken's class in a flash. But after all that was said and done, Kim Seo-jun still didn't feel a damn bit of change in his body. When I finished Xiangyu's class, I could feel the platinum aura flowing through my body. But this time, there was nothing like that at all. From the martial arts stories I've seen, transformation is supposed to be something like twisting and rearranging your bones, or maybe purging impurities from your body. A little disappointing, but since I've already completed it, whatever. Kim Seo-jun scratched his head, consoling himself. Suddenly, a chill ran down his spine, a feeling just like a cold blade being held to his neck. A strange voice echoed faintly in the room, making Kim Seo-jun jump, his face turning pale. Hearing the other person mention a tough opponent for that brat, Kim Seo-jun immediately figured the owner of this voice could be none other than the Black Saint. While Kim Seo-jun was freaking out over the Black Saint's sudden appearance, the man himself was quite impressed with his sharp senses. No matter how I think about it, I never would have imagined you could detect my presence. Well, I was wondering about that myself. It might be because of the transformation technique that Ken the Centaur just taught me. If that's the case, it's more like a superpower sense than a simple transformation technique. Maybe this skill has some extra hidden abilities. Kim Seo-jun scratched his head, muttering to himself. Hearing him say that Min-yoon didn't even know he was the Black Saint, and that he'd intentionally left a holy crest for the boy, made the Black Saint practically fume with anger. And it seems Min-yoon is on his way here right now. He should be here any minute, so why don't you go and say hello? Kim Seo-jun said. If I wanted to, I would have met that kid long ago, but I cannot meet him right now. I couldn't from the very beginning. That is precisely the reason I've come to you. The Black Saint replied, then got straight to the point since he was short on time. He wanted to know if Kim Seo-jun had any connection to the Church of Justice. Because for a while now, I've been tracking those Church of Justice bastards. I don't trust those animals. Most people in the world see the Church of Justice as heroes of humanity, the ones who put an end to the Great Deluge, but not everything you see and hear is the truth. You've probably heard of the great beast, Berserker, that the Church of Justice is hunting, right? The Black Saint asked. Through the Black Saint, Kim Seo-jun learned that on that day, Berserker was not defeated at all. It was such a terrifying monster that people often referred to it as the Second Great Deluge. Hearing this firsthand, he was utterly astonished. If the Church of Justice couldn't hunt Berserker, then why were they still credited with saving humanity? It's because they must have done something to the monster. To be precise, VM did something to the monster Berserker, but it didn't die? At first, I thought it was just a vague, baseless theory of my own. But after a few years, based on some clear incidents, I became certain. Have you ever wondered why the position of the Apostle of Purity is vacant? The Apostle of Purity suddenly vanished, just like how the great beast Berserker disappeared. The Black Saint let out a bitter laugh. This whole story already sounds completely illogical. The 7 apostles were a group that had always been together since long ago, but only the Apostle of Purity died of old age? The more Kim Seo-jun heard, the more surreal it all sounded. I see a significant similarity between these two disappearances. To expose the truth behind these two cases, I have been following the Church of Justice, and as a result, I've come to 2 conclusions. First, those animalistic Church of Justice bastards tried to take my life for daring to investigate them. Second, the recent 10-star dungeon subjugation event was just a conspiracy by the Church of Justice, and you are the reason behind this conspiracy. The moment the Black Saint spoke, it was like a lightning bolt struck Kim Seo-jun. He had no damn idea what the hell the Church of Justice was doing. The Black Saint revealed these secrets to Kim Seo-jun in the hopes of asking him to take care of Min-yoon in his stead. If I could, I would have raised and educated him myself. However, as long as the Church of Justice is lurking around, it's impossible for me to raise the boy personally. The Church of Justice has a special method for observing their targets. Although I don't know the exact method, when their targets act, they can see the entire result of that action. That's also why those bastards call this an observation. I am one of the targets that those bastards observe most closely. Anyone who contacts or is involved with me is also put under surveillance. If that's the reason you have to be the bridge between me and that kid, you are the sole exception. The Church cannot observe you, so even if you and I meet, those bastards won't sense anything unusual. At the same time, if I act through you as an intermediary, they will just assume you are the one performing the action, not me. I also don't know why they can't observe you. The Black Saint's long speech made Kim Seo-jun's head spin. He wondered if this was somehow related to the reason the Supreme Academy had no information on him. Before leaving, the Black Saint gave Kim Seo-jun a book containing notes on knife throwing and stealth techniques, asking him to give it to Min-yoon on his behalf. With that, he also gave him another book of magic arts as a thank you gift. Who would have thought he'd refuse to accept it, which annoyed the man slightly that a priceless treasure so many coveted was being rejected outright. Kim Seo-jun let out a sly chuckle, looking incredibly shifty as he said he just needed a child support allowance fee. The Black Saint, one of the 5 great heroes, was completely stunned. It was the first time in his life someone had asked him for money so bluntly. Kim Seo-jun stood firm, basically saying no money, no honey, which finally made the man concede. If you pay right now, I'll give you a special discount price of only $3 million. Kim Seo-jun, looking sharp and extremely pleased with himself, quoted the price as if it were a massive bargain. Hearing that string of zeros, the Black Saint immediately flew into a rage, cursing out Kim Seo-jun's entire family. But he wasn't one to back down either, immediately listing a ton of evidence to prove he was worth that $3 million. After settling the money issue, the Black Saint finally left Kim Seo-jun's house after reminding him to watch over Min-yoon's ass for him. Just as the Black Saint left, Min-yoon arrived at Kim Seo-jun's door. After hearing Kim Seo-jun reveal that his master was the Black Saint, he was speechless with shock. Kim Seo-jun quickly handed Min-yoon the book, his mind screaming with joy at the thought of the payment that would soon be in his pocket. Min-yoon then wondered why Kim Seo-jun didn't keep the book for himself instead of giving it to him. He sniffled slightly, not knowing where to even begin explaining. Man, how should I answer this? If I say these secret arts are useless to me, it's like I'm disrespecting the Black Saint. But wouldn't this mean I could find the Supreme Academy? Kim Seo-jun hesitated, unsure of what to say to Min-yoon. Suddenly, the boy shouted loudly, his eyes filled with trust and hope, asking to join the Hunter Academy with Kim Seo-jun, which left him at a loss for words. Getting such a high-quality student like this, Seo-jun grinned so wide you couldn't see his face anymore. Although Kim Seo-jun was quite surprised at first, he gradually realized this wasn't a bad thing at all. He planned to train with the Book of Secret Arts the Black Saint had given him. Each time, he would receive a favor from the Black Saint and wouldn't have to waste time looking for Min Yoon anymore. Wait a minute. Doesn't this mean I can squeeze even more money out of the Black Saint if I keep hanging out with Min Yoon like this? He's gonna be my golden goose. Kim Seo-jun's eyes lit up, and he couldn't stop himself from cackling as he pictured a future overflowing with dollars. Because the number of students had increased by 1, SN thought about having them all participate in team competitions, the ones where students from the same academy could join. Since there would be a lot of participants, the prize money was also much bigger. If Kim Sejun and Min Yoon teamed up, I think you two could win the competitions here. Of course, Kim Sejun had to be excited about that. 3 days later, Kim Sejun kind of regretted spending $4 million just to buy a course where, from beginning to end, it was just that Hack Queen dude working out like a beast. Hack Queen was actually one of Ken's students. After explaining a bunch of complex theories, he really showed Kim Sejun the power of his sweet-smelling muscles. Hack Queen flexed slightly, and all his muscles immediately bulged. His lightning power grew along with those abundant muscles, burning as hot as an 18-year-old's, which made Kim Sejun unable to look away from the screen. He was a bit dazed, wondering if he could ever become that fiery himself. The daily mission screen opened up, revealing an endless list of exercises that required using weights of 1 ton or more, making Kim Sejun feel like he was about to pass out. What the hell? He thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. As for leg training techniques, Kim Sejun tried opening a lecture by Zhang Sanfeng, the elder of the Wudong sect and the creator of Tai Chi and Tai Chi sword, to check it out. The first time he saw a mortal who could use techniques to move as lightly as the wind, he was completely amazed. A daily mission popped up with a ding: maintain a stable speed of 300 kilometers per hour for 30 seconds and fall from a height of 30 meters or more 20 times. Kim Sejun had to rub his eyes several times to realize he hadn't misread it. While he was confused, a voice suddenly called out from the doorway. Turns out it was Suran, Mr. Manchun's daughter, who had come looking for him. She said she'd lost contact with her father and came to ask him about the situation. Kim Sejun was surprised, guessing he was probably drunk and passed out on some street corner. Actually, I argued with my dad yesterday. I told him I want to become a professional hunter. I've had my powers for about a month now, so I told him I want to join a hunter academy instead of going to college. But my dad didn't agree. Suran mumbled. Well, making a living as a hunter is a lot better than working at a company these days. I get why Suran wants to find a job as soon as possible to help her dad, but what parent would want to put their child in danger, especially Mr. Manchun? He's heard plenty of stories about hunters. I'm sure he didn't like that idea at all, Kim Sejun thought. After comforting Suran and seeing her off, he called Manchun, but he never picked up. Over with the church group, Kalia was a little worried that she couldn't find Kim Sejun's location. Under no circumstances could the intrusion of a 10-star dungeon be revealed. She bit her nails, glaring as she spoke to her subordinate. Meanwhile, during one of his training days, the system required Kim Sejun to carry a full weight of 1 ton to successfully complete the mission, which made him feel damn depressed. If I had known this was coming, I wouldn't have sold those monster corpses. Luckily, I bought the kibisit, even though I never intended to use it for this, Kim Sejun thought, then immediately used all his strength to pull the bag that was so heavy he could barely breathe. Blood was rushing to his head, but the bag didn't even budge. He collapsed on the ground, panting, telling himself he had to use mana to increase his strength to pull it. After mustering all his power for a while, he reached a new, unparalleled position, being squashed as flat as a shrimp by that very bag. If Seon hadn't come to his rescue in time, this day next year would have been his first death anniversary. That's right, Miss Seon. This building is 15 meters tall, right? I want to jump from the rooftop, Kim Sejun said, completely calm and cool. Seon was still stunned and hadn't even reacted when he personally went to conduct the experiment by fucking jumping off the edge. Seeing this, Seon suspected Kim Sejun must have lost his damn mind. What would the new students think if they saw him like this? No, wait, could we even recruit any new students at this rate? She was quite miserable thinking about their dark future. Min Yoon, who had just stepped out for a moment, came back to a sight that made his face turn pale. Kim Sejun was now extremely worried, as it had been 4 days and he still couldn't contact Uncle Manchun. This had never happened in the 10 years since he'd known him. So, he was sure something must have happened. No sooner said than done, he immediately shot to his feet, saying he would go out and find Manchun himself. When he arrived at the workshop, he was hit by a barrage of compliments and admiration from the workers that made his head spin. After some small talk, he got to the main point. But strangely, no one had seen Manchun recently either. Didn't he disappear after going with that person? About 3 or 4 days ago, a stranger came to our monster transport company. Wasn't Manchun the one who met with him? He offered a very attractive payment. I guess it was suspicious because the person made a personal request instead of going through the company's official procedures. Usually, that's because the mission is either very dangerous or illegal. Maybe Manchun was in desperate need of money for his daughter's tuition or something like that, a man at the workshop said. When Kim Sejun heard that, his heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly turned to run and ask for information about the company. But the people at the company refused to disclose client information. Even if someone was missing, this rule didn't change. Having lost all hope, Kim Sejun could only go and sit dejectedly in a park. Although there was no concrete evidence of Uncle Manchun's disappearance, he felt extremely uneasy. Uncle Manchun was the one who had gone through thick and thin with him from the very beginning. When he lost all the money he'd saved for 9 years after the accident, Uncle Manchun comforted and cared for him. Even though he wasn't well off, he still gave him 3 million without any hesitation. Kim Sejun had used that money for his tuition at the Supreme Academy, which is how he got to where he is today. He gritted his teeth, telling himself he couldn't just sit still and do nothing. Suddenly, Kim Sejun quickly picked up his phone and called SN, asking her to help him meet the Sword Saint right now. But when he met him, he proposed a challenge to fight him. Sion and the others around them were dumbfounded, thinking he had gone crazy from grief. "If I win, I want you to intervene in this incident directly, not just simply provide help. On the other hand, if I lose, I will drop out. I can't win against you fair and square. That's obvious. So if I can give you a wound, even a small one, I hope you will consider it my victory," Kim Sejun said calmly. He knew with the current situation that something must have happened to Manchun ever since he met that suspicious person. And again, the company wouldn't give him any information, citing it as confidential. But it would be different if the one asking was the Sword Saint, one of the 5 great heroes representing Korea. It's a real gamble, but this might be the only way I can save Uncle Manchun. The Sword Saint thought for a moment, and then immediately agreed. He turned and walked into a small room, gently and affectionately, taking out a sword that had been carefully stored inside. Legend has it that when Kim Yusun, a great general of the Silla Kingdom, was still training on Mount Warren, he received a sacred weapon, a divine sword, along with a book of military strategy, and subsequently achieved a resounding victory. Even though it's just a replica of the original Blue Dragon sword, it's still a masterpiece created by the greatest blacksmith in Korea. There's only one scenario where the Sword Saint uses the Blue Dragon sword, when he decides to kill his opponent. The secretary turned pale and was about to step forward to stop him, but was held back by the sword's aura. I'm sure he wouldn't dare challenge me with mere determination alone, so I should at least entertain him seriously, right? Outside, Sion was now fearfully trying to stop Kim Sejun. "Stop it. Here. A true man does not go back on his word." He wanted to put an end to all these mysterious things involving him. "I still don't have enough power or authority to protect the people around me. That's why the Sword Saint will act directly if anyone related to Kim Sejun is involved. I need to drag the Sword Saint into this, to drill this very fact into everyone's mind." Kim Sejun thought, and his confident eyes, determined to win, even moved Sion. The duel officially began with fiery spirits from both sides. The Sword Saint wasted no more time, quickly drawing the Blue Dragon sword from its sheath. After he was allowed the first move, I gathered all my strength and swung my staff forward, but all my efforts were shattered by that Blue Dragon sword. In a flash, the storm of power that erupted from the sword made it difficult for Kim Sejun to breathe. Suddenly, the staff in his hands began to glow and shot towards the stream of sword energy. The sword energy, of course, was no pushover, and coldly fought back. He's getting serious now. Every one of his attacks, every movement, was filled with enough force to be a finishing blow. Kim Seo-jun broke out in a cold sweat as he assessed the situation. The sword strikes, reeking of killing intent, continued to whip through the air. Kim Seo-jun puffed out his cheeks, trying his best to defend against this unparalleled genius of sword energy. The Sword Saint swung his sword relentlessly at Kim Seo-jun without a moment's rest. This brat was just a snot-nosed kid only a few months ago. Although I could sense this kid's potential from our last encounter, he only stood out compared to the level of an academy student. But what I'm witnessing right here, right now, with every passing moment, this kid is trying to grow even stronger. The Sword Saint thought in amazement as Kim Seo-jun was busy parrying his attacks. He swung his hand, creating a wave of aura that caught me off guard. The weapon in my hand was quite interesting to him, as it could still withstand the cataclysmic storm of blows from just now. This match would have been over a long time ago if not for that weapon. I wasn't planning on using my full strength, but maybe I should put in a little more effort, he thought to himself. And with that, he once again unleashed a holy crap level of killing intent that brought Kim Seo-jun to his knees. Damn it, I was too arrogant. I thought I could do this just because I beat a few other promising students. However, students are still just students. They're still green, inexperienced, and haven't faced the cruelty of the world yet. I failed to see that truth. I can feel the gap between the Sword Saint and myself. It pisses me off a little that he still isn't going all out. Kim Seo-jun berated himself, feeling helpless and pained, as another one of his energy-infused staff strikes fell upon the Blue Dragon sword. How could you even think of challenging me when this is all you have? The Sword Saint glared at him and said, the movements of his hands never ceasing. I admire the Sword Saint, and I want to be like him. I admire his strength. But more than that, I admire the way he achieved that strength. I was too confident in my hollow title of Transcendent and subconsciously looked down on the Sword Saint. I'm still weaker than the Sword Saint. Much weaker. But one day, I will reach a new peak, even higher than his. I want to surpass him. Kim So-jun had to be a legend who refused to give up. He continuously parried, even as the Sword Saint beat him to a pulp. Suddenly, for a moment, he felt the weapon in his hand lose its weight. Every step he took forward also felt indescribable. While he was lost in a daze, with a swoosh, the tip of the Sword Saint's blade slashed diagonally across Kim So-jun's body. His entire body, covered in blood, collapsed in pain. That promise. I hope you won't go back on your word. He trembled, trying to use the last of his strength to speak to the Sword Saint before passing out completely. Uncle Manchun and that mysterious man are currently trapped in a certain cave. Despite being in a desperate situation, he remained optimistic, certain that Kim Seo-jun would come to rescue him. Manchun believed that no matter how difficult things got, if it was him, he could solve it. After getting thoroughly thrashed by the Sword Saint, Kim Seo-jun now jolted awake. Just then, the door suddenly burst open. The Sword Saint swaggered in, and without a word, threw the blue dragon sword, that family heirloom, at him, leaving everyone stunned with their mouths agape. Don't be so loud. I'm just keeping a promise. If they see that sword as a sign, everyone in the association will know what to do. I'd rather let you do what you want than have to deal with it myself. Do a good job, the Sword Saint said. To think he would actually entrust this incredibly powerful sword to Kim So-jun. The Professional Hunters Association is a government agency that manages and supervises hunters. It is also a for-profit organization established by professional hunters to serve their own interests. In front of Kim Seo-jun right now was Taebom, the chairman of the Hunter Association. On the outside, he was smiling and cheerful, but inside, a storm was raging that few could guess, seeing Kim Seo-jun suddenly show up with the blue dragon sword like this. Just 3 days ago, the Black Saint had stormed in to see Taebom, demanding he transfer 3 billion to Kim Seo-jun. Now for him to personally come here like this really isn't good at all. 4 days ago, a man named Manchun went missing after entering a dungeon at someone's request. Because before entering a dungeon, it's mandatory to notify the association. Please tell me which dungeon he entered and who he was with, Kim Seo-jun asked in a steady voice. Hearing this, Taebom hesitated slightly because his superiors had ordered him not to disclose that information to anyone. To stall for time, Taebom asked to first verify whether Kim So-jun's blue dragon sword was real or fake. If something happens due to this delay, can you take responsibility? Kim So-jun said. Taebom clutched his head in his hands, not knowing what to do. He had no choice but to say, the Magic Saint is investigating the 10-star dungeon break-in at my request. He recently found a lead and went to a 6-star dungeon to investigate secretly. Wait, didn't the Black Saint say the Church of Justice was the one behind the 10-star dungeon sabotage? Something fishy is going on here. Kim So-jun felt extremely suspicious, stood up, and prepared to leave. Before leaving through the door, he suddenly turned his head slightly and asked Taebom if he could use the blue dragon sword as collateral for a loan from the association. A moment later, Sujeon anxiously called Kim So-jun to ask about her father. He calmly reassured her, but Sujeon couldn't help but get agitated upon hearing that her father was trapped in some dungeon. Her mother had passed away 11 years ago due to a dungeon break. She sacrificed her life to save her. Sujeon didn't want monsters to take away her precious people ever again, which is why she wanted to become a hunter. Kim So-jun gently reassured her and then hung up. According to the association chairman, the Magic Saint and Manchun entered a dungeon with 6-star Dryas monsters. Although the Magic Saint is now old and sick, he is still one of the 5 powerhouses. There must be a reason why they got trapped in a 6-star dungeon. Perhaps it was a trap set by the Church of Justice to eliminate the Magic Saint. In this situation, no one can help them but me. Kim Seo-jun's mind was a tangled mess. Suddenly, his phone pinged with a notification of a transfer from the Korean Hunters Association. How awesome. He only used the blue dragon sword as collateral, and unexpectedly, those people agreed to loan him the money. It's a bargain considering the value of the sword, but this should be enough for me to buy equipment. I'm about to enter a place that even the Magic Saint couldn't escape from, so I need to be fully prepared. With money in his account, Kim Seo-jun casually browsed Shopee. After choosing to buy a Gungnir, he immediately set off for the dungeon. Although Dryas are only 6-star monsters, hunting them is very difficult because they look no different from ordinary trees. Although Kim So-jun didn't want to risk his life, he couldn't pass up an opportunity to test himself against them like this. He closed his eyes and channeled his inner energy, and an indescribable, unfamiliar feeling washed over him. On the outside, it looks no different from ordinary trees, but I also need to test the power of my new weapon. Kim So-jun took a deep breath, then immediately drew his weapon and threw it straight at the tree. Just as the tip of the weapon was about to touch the tree trunk, it was instantly blown to the side. This Dryas had actually dodged his attack. Not only that, but it also knew how to use force to launch it back at him. Its speed and destructive power were enough to make even someone like Kim So-jun stare in awe. Gungnir, the spear that Odin used to dismember Ymir, the first giant who created the 9 realms. After a while of hard work with that weapon, Kim So-jun successfully turned the Dryas monster into a bare, withered tree stump. Look at its destructive capability. It must have been forged from transcendent materials. Kim Seon thought to himself as he tried to wave his hand and command Gungnir back to him. He had to gather every last bit of mana in his body just to get the weapon to return to its original position. The energy drain was insane, leaving Kim Seon completely exhausted. He was so wiped out he could barely breathe. According to legend, Gungnir is supposed to return automatically, but a replica always has its limits. At my current level, I can only call it back once, but I'm sure there'll be a day when I can use this power freely. Until then, this ability is basically a one-time use item. Good thing I already pawned off the Azure Dragon Sword. Kim Seon chuckled at the thought. After a few basic energy circulation exercises, he went deeper into the cave to continue his search for Manchun. The man was currently carrying that strange guy on his back. He was scrambling to escape from the Gumia that were hot on his heels. In his haste, he tripped and fell flat on the ground, his whole body trembling as he braced for the wrath of those monsters. Just then, that old man suddenly woke up and quickly used a temporary barrier to block their dark energy. "Leave me and run. I'll hold them off. I've already got one foot in the grave. If I hadn't brought you here in the first place, this never would have happened. Now run," he yelled at Manchun. After holding them off for a while, he couldn't take it anymore and collapsed to the ground in pain. Manchun hugged him tightly in fear, sobbing. His heart ached at the thought of Suran being without him in the future. Suddenly, a blinding light flashed, and the figure standing there was unmistakably Kim Seon. "I found you." After telling Manchun to stay put inside the sword formation, Kim Seon immediately charged toward the Gumia to draw their attention to himself. Man and monster clashed in a flurry of punches and kicks, and the amount of damage being thrown around was just, holy crap, damn it. No matter how many times I slice it, its body just keeps regenerating. At this rate, I can't even get close to it. I'll throw Gungnir to pierce its weak point. Kim Seon gritted his teeth, ran to get some distance, and quickly grabbed Gungnir, which was lying on the ground. But as luck would have it, Manchun and the Saint hadn't managed to get out of the area yet. Kim Seon's face went pale with panic because that meant he couldn't throw Gungnir. The beast grew more ferocious by the second, spewing a torrent of dark energy that rushed forth like a flood, making it harder and harder for Kim Seon to keep up. After noticing the other two had run far enough away, he seized the opportunity and made a bold thrust with Gungnir straight toward the monster. It roared in agony before cracking and shattering into pieces. The force shot out with the power of a hurricane. This time, Kim Seon was able to flexibly use his mana to call Gungnir back to him. Smooth, very smooth. Kim Seon had successfully earned the admiration of the Dryads. "Oh, look at that. Have they learned how dangerous this thing is after getting hit a few times?" Kim Seon said with satisfaction. The tree monsters had truly submitted to him now, but it seemed they were all trying to stop him from picking up Gungnir. What could I do? I had no choice but to give them a few basic hits, Kim Seon thought. A moment later, Manchun arrived at the rendezvous point, carrying the Saint on his back. The Saint's condition isn't looking too good right now. Time to use the emergency pill I always carry with me. This is just a stopgap measure, but it should help him feel better. Kim Seon gently lifted the Saint's head and poured the medicine into his mouth. The Saint slowly regained consciousness and was a bit stunned to see Kim Seon there. "You really came here to save us? How did you know we were here? Wait, what happened to the Ross?" In response to the Saint's barrage of questions, Kim Seon cheerfully informed him that he had already taken care of everything. He wanted to know why the old man brought Manchun to this place. To study the monsters, I needed someone to move the corpses. And for some personal reasons, I needed to do it discreetly, but I couldn't do it alone with this old body of mine, the Saint explained. "You were doing it secretly because you were afraid the Church of Justice would find out, right?" Kim Seon's words hit the nail right on the head. The Saint's jaw dropped, wondering how he knew. Suddenly, the ground began to shake violently, stunning everyone for a moment. The Saint's face turned pale as he explained that it was all because of that monster. For someone as skilled as him to be afraid, it proves this thing is no ordinary foe. The mountain before Kim Seon's eyes abruptly split in two, turning into a ferocious, mutant monster. A mutant. Still, aside from its size, it doesn't look that different from the other Ras I've faced. "Let's try to stay out of its sight and escape this dungeon," Kim Seon suggested. "I've already tried, but it's impossible. Somehow, whenever we tried to escape the dungeon, it could detect us and give chase immediately. This was the reason the Saint was so badly injured. That monster isn't just an ordinary mutant. Its shell is too hard for magic to penetrate. Even if I could break it, its regeneration speed is so fast that it recovers instantly. I even thought it might be an evolved monster, one that had its weaknesses removed and its strengths enhanced," the Saint said grimly. He added that he was old and not as strong as he used to be. Hearing him say he just needed one powerful blow to finish it, Kim Seon suddenly had an idea. "Then while you're weakening it, I'll destroy its core." When the Saint heard this, he became frantic, as if someone had poured boiling water on him, worried that he wouldn't be able to hold out. "That's right, he only has the strength to talk because of my emergency pill. It wouldn't be a surprise if he collapsed right now. Therefore, if we do this, we only have one shot," Kim Seon thought. He proposed that he would be the one to draw its attention, so the other two could get away. Seeing Kim Seon's Gungnir up close for the first time, the Saint's eyes widened in amazement, burning with excitement to carry out the plan with him. The time had come. They all immediately got into their battle stances, preparing for a fierce night of monster hunting. The plan is simple. I'll wait until it's weakened by the Saint's spell, then I'll pierce its core with this spear. Kim Seon laid out the strategy. First, he would lure it away to buy time. During that time, the Saint would use all his strength to cast the spell. When it was weakened, he would destroy its core with Gungnir. But there were two variables that could mess up this plan. First, he could die while luring it. Second, it might attack the Saint during the casting instead of him. The first variable won't be a problem, as long as I do my part. But the second one, he thought worriedly, unsure if things would go smoothly. I'll just have to put my faith in Manchun. The three of them cheerfully encouraged one another, bracing themselves for a brutal night. That evening, Kim Seon stood with Gungnir gripped tightly in his hand. Beside him was Manchun carrying the Saint on his back. You two should stay here. Don't get too close, just in case it detects the Saint while he's casting the spell, he said. Seeing the determined look in Kim Seon's eyes, the Saint and Manchun could only wish him luck. Kim Seon smiled cheerfully in reply and immediately leaped like he was flying toward the opposite branch. Seeing the monster up close like this was a little unnerving. More importantly, I can feel the immense energy surrounding it. Now I get why even the Saint struggled, Kim Seon thought. He took the opportunity while it wasn't paying attention to tiptoe closer, then let out a loud shout to grab the monster's attention. Seeing Kim Seon deliberately provoking it, it furiously whipped its branches at him with lightning speed. It's attacking more violently than I thought. I've ended up pretty far from Manchun and the Saint. Isn't the weakening spell ready yet? Kim Seon thought, running for his life as he frantically looked around. The monster's power was so immense that the surrounding ground was already reduced to rubble, and Kim Seon himself was thrown high into the air like a ragdoll. He glared, turning his body to face the monster again, but the pressure it emitted made him tremble uncontrollably. What other choice do I have besides trying my best to dodge? Kim Seon gripped Gungnir tightly, preparing to charge. Just then, he sensed that the Saint had successfully cast the spell. Talk about perfect timing. He immediately dashed out, stood before it, and yelled to draw all of its attention to himself. Kim Seon ran for dear life, with the monster hot on his heels. Each of its attacks crashed down like an avalanche, sending him staggering. Good, it's still chasing me. We're almost at the rendezvous point. I just need to lure it there, and we're done. Kim Seo-jun thought gleefully as he ran. Just as he was about to catch up to it, the sprawling mess of roots and its entire gnarled trunk were bound by the Saint's magic with invisible chains. Its speed and power have dropped significantly. The Saint's magic is pretty effective. At this rate, I'll be able to destroy its core. His joy didn't last 10 seconds before he realized the monster seemed to be deliberately targeting the Saint, not him. The Saint must be completely out of mana by now. And Mr. Manchun is just an ordinary person. Plus, he's carrying the Saint on his back. At best, he can only dodge once or twice. Kim Seo-jun felt he couldn't wait any longer. In a flash, he narrowed his eyes and poured all his power into Gungnir. With a cool head and absolute precision, he successfully aimed for its heart, piercing it with the razor-sharp blade. The monster thrashed wildly in pain for a moment before crashing down. Although Kim Seo-jun had destroyed its core, his body was also completely exhausted, and he couldn't recover Gungnir. Seeing Mr. Manchun, who was standing nearby, get his leg injured by the force worried Kim Seo-jun greatly. The three of them were laughing and celebrating their successful mission when suddenly, another strange sound echoed out. The motionless roots on the Dryad's body suddenly twitched and squirmed as if stimulated. How? I'm sure I hit it with Gungnir. Could it be that the core wasn't destroyed? What kind of joke is this? Kim Seo-jun's eyes widened and his face darkened at the sight. Damn it. So, it has two cores. The remaining core was now controlling the beast's entire body, turning it into a raging berserker that nothing could stop. The three of them watched in terror as the beast rampaged, and an apocalyptic storm began to rage around them. In this critical situation, the Saint mustered the last of his strength, creating waves of energy just to hold on. The Saint is out of mana. He can't last much longer. To take that bastard down, we have to destroy that core. Kim Seo-jun thought anxiously. His Gungnir was stuck between the tree's branches, so he couldn't retrieve it now. Still, I have the Spear of Longinus. If I can land a direct hit, I might be able to destroy its core. He quickly calculated his options, then asked the Saint to try and use his debilitating magic one more time with all his might. At this point, it was an all-or-nothing gamble. Kim Seo-jun dashed towards the monster, desperately dodging its massive roots as he ran. Although he was terrified of failing, he was the only one who could do this now. The young Kim Seo-jun immediately swung his spear, creating blinding flashes of light, but before he could make any headway, he was blocked by those tenacious roots. To pierce the core with Longinus, I need to get in deeper, but there's no opening for me to advance. This is completely different from just luring it out, he thought angrily, just as a root wrapped tightly around his leg, making things worse. Fortunately, the saint's paralysis magic kicked in just in time, stopping the monster's movements. Seizing the moment it loosened its grip, he turned and retreated backward. The magic chains are getting fewer and weaker. I bet the strain on his body must be immense to activate it again without enough mana. Kim Seo-jun couldn't help but worry about their current situation. Spotting an opening in the monster's defense, he immediately rushed forward at full speed. But at that very moment, the monster broke free from the saint's chains and swatted him away with a single simple move. Taking a direct hit, Kim Seo-jun suffered a massive impact, and blood streamed from his mouth and nose. The Spear of Longinus can destroy its core, so I thought just getting close would be enough. What a mistake. Trembling, he tried to grasp Longinus, his eyes wide with horror as he watched the monster prepare to impale him with its roots. Just as he thought his life was over, the saint appeared and blocked the blow in the nick of time. I can't believe a student like him could achieve such an exceptional level of martial arts before the age of 30. How long has it been since my body last felt a chill from someone else's martial arts? No. Within a year, there won't be a single person in Korea who doesn't know this young man's name. A year from now, who knows what level he'll reach. That young man has the potential to one day surpass the hero of Korea and become a hero for all humanity. However, right now, he's not strong enough. That's why you must live, even if it means I have to die here today in your place, the saint thought in anguish, then screamed at him to run. But Kim Seo-jun had no damn intention of making such a humiliating retreat. Despite the saint shouting and cursing at him to get the hell out, he stubbornly stayed put. Kim Seo-jun didn't want to see the saint sacrifice himself for him, but his current situation was extremely disadvantageous. That's right. Running is the best option now. Leave this to the saint and get Mr. Manchun out of here. Conversely, the worst choice is to fight this bastard in such an unfavorable state. I have my answer, but for some reason, I don't want to run, Kim Seo-jun thought, gritting his teeth. Suddenly, he remembered what Hercules said during the first lecture. In your opinion, what is strength, Hercules, the greatest hero in Greek and Roman mythology? During the orientation, he had emphasized the importance of muscle. However, physical strength wasn't the kind of strength he wanted to impart. Strength comes not only from the physical, but also from atonement. Because of Hera's curse, I went mad and killed my own beloved wife and children with my own hands. Tormented by guilt, I thought of ending my own life. Fortunately, my good friend Zeus persuaded me to perform 12 labors to atone for my sins. That's what Hercules had said back then. Those 12 labors were incredibly impossible, killing the Nemean lion, slaying the Lernaean hydra, capturing the Ceryneian hind and the Erymanthian boar, cleaning the Augean stables in a single day, driving away the Stymphalian birds, and capturing the Cretan bull. Capturing the man-eating mares of Diomedes, stealing the girdle of Hippolyta, stealing the cattle of Geryon, stealing the apples of the Hesperides, and capturing Cerberus, the guardian of the underworld. After completing the labors, Hercules' fame grew over time. However, people began to mock him. They said he had made too many mistakes to be a hero. They kept coming up with reasons why Hercules could never atone. The insults always rang in his ears, but he steadfastly refused to give up. He only hoped that one day, altruism would become a matter of course in life. Only then could Hercules forgive himself for that fateful day. And so, he completed the 12 labors and was honored as a true hero. Furthermore, Hercules saved the Olympian gods during the war against the giants. Hercules, the man who had lost his mind and killed his family, became the greatest hero at the end of his journey of atonement. The strength that guided me on my path was the will to atone. When you try to do something or become someone, people will often tell you that it's impossible. As someone who has been through it, I hope you have a personal reason of your own that compels you to succeed. That alone is enough to become a hero. Each and every one of Hercules' words cleared Kim Seo-jun's mind. The fear that had been clinging to him like a heavy weight on his chest was now gone. There are 1,000 reasons why I can't win. I have 1,000 reasons to run away. To an old and experienced saint, the actions of a 28-year-old like me must seem reckless. But I want to live a meaningful life. I don't want to give up and destroy my future. Kim Seo-jun bit his lip hard, determined to move forward. Hercules' encouraging words echoed in his ears again, instantly transforming into a divine force that paved the way for him to unlock his latent power. An overwhelming force that destroyed all obstacles surged forth and erupted, filling the entire space. Under this furious gale, the monsters could only bow their heads and await death. Its destructive power was so strong it blew away dirt and rocks, and even blew away the boss monster's core. After that display, Kim Seo-jun was so exhausted that he collapsed as the saint watched. Right now, he was terrified of death. The world isn't as safe as people think, so the closer one gets to death, the more one worries about it. The world still needs me, the magic saint said. That's also why he took a disciple. Although his disciple performed much better than expected, he still couldn't escape the deep darkness within his heart. But thinking back, those worries were absurd. It was a wake-up call for me. Even if I die, my disciple will carry on this mission in my place. I see in this tenacious young man the beginning of a new generation of heroes, the sword saint said, looking at Kim Seo-jun with pride. The next morning, Kim Sojun jolted awake in a hospital. The two old men had only suffered superficial wounds and nothing serious. He freaked out when he learned he'd been unconscious for 6 straight hours. At least it seemed like everything had been resolved without any setbacks. Kim Seo-jun thought with relief. After getting the news from Soo-jung, Seon was also preparing to visit him in the hospital. Of course, she'd be concerned about him, the guy who disappeared with her grandfather's precious sword. When the magic saint learned that Man-chun had a daughter who wanted to be a hunter, he offered to become her mentor. Man-chun was stunned, speechless, thinking he had either misheard or his rival had gone senile. Isn't it time I passed on my wonderful knowledge to the next generation? I don't think I'll live past this year. Until then, I have nothing to do, so it's best to spend my final moments guiding your daughter as thanks for saving my life, the magic saint said with a hearty laugh. He also offered to guide Kim Seo-jun, but he refused. He just wanted money. Suddenly, at that very moment, the hospital room door was kicked aside by the sword saint, flattened like a pancake. A jolt ran through Kim Seo-jun's body as if he'd been electrocuted. Asterisk, I almost forgot. Contacting Seon means this guy will come along too. Asterisk. Kim Seo-jun hadn't anticipated that the sword saint would actually track him down here. His mind was a tangled mess, and his whole body was agitated, not knowing what to do. Luckily, the magic saint was there, which somewhat lessened the sword saint's anger. The two chatted happily for a while. The magic saint then revealed that he had almost died that day and was saved by Kim Seo-jun. The sword saint aimed the arrow of his resentment back at him, making the air as hot as a furnace. He never would have dreamed that Kim Seo-jun would dare to sell his precious sword. The kid had nerves of steel. The magic saint tried his best to persuade the sword saint to let him off this time, but upon hearing that he had actually pawned the sword, even the magic saint was struck dumb. The flames of hatred were already burning fiercely within the sword saint, making Kim Seo-jun tremble in fear. He quickly clarified that he hadn't sold it, but had only pawned it temporarily. Since you didn't sell the sword, and out of respect for the magic saint, I won't kill you. So, I'll let it slide if you can withstand one single blow. The sword saint, seething with anger, tried to swallow his rage and growled. Asterisk, I don't think he'll let me off with just one hit. It's more like he intends to finish me off with a single punch. Asterisk, he thought, trembling as he backed into a corner. No matter how much he pleaded, the sword saint couldn't contain his surging anger and threw a thunderous fist at him. After a deafening explosion that shattered the wall, Kim Seo-jun had managed to raise his arm in time to block the blow, though the pain was bone deep. Asterisk. He blocked it? More importantly, his arm is fine. Asterisk. Normally, it should have been broken. No, it should have been completely shattered. The sword saint's face turned pale, and he was about to open his mouth to ask how he could have done it. Kim Seo-jun thought he was about to punch him again and immediately bolted from the room with all his might, leaving everyone staring in bewilderment. The sword saint clicked his tongue, sat down by the magic saint's bed, and then asked to know exactly what had happened there that day. The magic saint told the sword saint everything that happened in the cave. The sword saint still couldn't believe Kim Seo-jun could actually do such a thing. The magic saint felt that the sword saint still didn't truly acknowledge his talent. That's right, even if what you say is true, I will not acknowledge that brat. I haven't seen anyone truly talented among those hailed as S-rank hunters. That bunch is completely useless, the sword saint said. The magic saint shared his friend's sentiment, believing that such talent was still not enough to be called true talent. The sword saint and the magic saint were both heroes who had saved the world from the great cataclysm. Thus, they both shared the same thought. Being a professional hunter meant something different in this new era. It was simply a well-paying job. They didn't deny that a new era would come, because they were the ones who desired peace more than anyone. However, they still worried that once all the heroes disappeared and that threat awakened, would the world have enough strength to fight back? I don't know. In any case, that was the purpose of establishing the Church of Truth. But Sword Saint, among the 8 billion people in the world, one person has appeared who makes the impossible possible. Our era has ended, the magic saint said with a smile. Kim Seo-jun was outside, joking around with Seon and Man-chun. Suddenly, Soo-yeon rushed over, tears welling in her eyes, and hugged her father tightly. The father and daughter embraced, overcome with joy and relief. Man-chun looked toward Kim Seo-jun and expressed his sincere gratitude. People often say that the most beautiful sight in the world is seeing everything return to its original state. Time passed, all 3 of them were discharged from the hospital, and their lives returned to their proper tracks. However, there were a few changes. The first was that the magic saint had taken Soo-yeon as his disciple. The next was that Kim Seo-jun received the promised reward for saving the magic saint's life, a total of 10 billion. He used 500 million to get the Azure Dragon Sword back and return it to the Sword Saint. Although he was nearly sent to the afterlife by the old man, everything eventually fell into place. Kim Seo-jun didn't originally intend for this to happen, but as fate would have it, he obtained Gungnir and a large sum of 9.5 billion. With those items, he increased the progress of Haken's course to 47.3%. It had been a long time since Kim Seo-jun had seen Min-yoon at the academy. He hadn't even visited him in the hospital, believing he would recover soon. Even if all things change, one thing remains the same. This dream academy. This place now felt like home to him. Afterwards, Kim So-jun continued to follow Haken's lectures. This time, thanks to his belief in the power of the gods, his learning progress increased rapidly. Haken's teaching style was the same as ever, muscles over mind. Kim So-jun grimaced as he watched, feeling that his current body couldn't handle that kind of power. Since he was finishing Haken's course faster than usual each day, he planned to use the remaining money to buy the elixir. Asterisk. If I have enough mana to summon Gungnir, I'll become a literal walking disaster. Asterisk. Besides, the Transcendence store is selling a ton of elixirs that can help me replenish my mana. Kim So-jun thought for a moment, then decided to go back to the lecture. Everything's fine except for the fact that from now on, I can't fully absorb elixirs anymore. Even though I studied and practiced seriously with Merlin, it was all about mana theory and had nothing to do with skill training. In order to fully absorb the energy from an elixir, I'll need to learn mana skill training. If I have to learn it anyway, now is probably the best time. Kim So-jun muttered to himself as he sent a message to the advisor, asking him to recommend some good lectures. The advisor immediately recommended a series of top-tier lectures to Kim So-jun, which left him broke again. When Sion saw Kim So-jun dragging his pathetic, withered self over to ask for money, she was at a loss for words. She flew into a rage and chewed him out like a mother scolding her child. It was quite a masterful tirade. He painfully swallowed his tears. He was just 500 million won short of the lecture registration fee. Sion sighed, telling him that in one day, there would be a competition with a prize of 3 million won for the winner. But there was one major problem. Kim So-jun needed a team to participate in this competition. Right now, there were only 2 students in the Dream Academy, him and Min Yoon. If it's Min Yoon, he'll be able to handle his part without any problem. However, according to the rules, we can't participate because we don't have the required 3 members. Moreover, whether a new person can be trusted is also an issue. Is there anyone trustworthy we can invite? Someone we can rely on to join the competition with us. Someone who wants to become a hunter, but hasn't enrolled in an academy yet. Is there anyone out there? I'm not expecting much. Just one person. For a moment, an image of that kid Suyeon flashed in his mind. Seon was a bit surprised to hear the idea of recruiting Suron into the academy to participate in the competition. Despite her confusion, Kim Se-jun was a man of his word and immediately ran outside to find the girl. He went straight to the Magic Saint's residence and felt a pang in his heart, seeing the old man walking out with a weary posture, leaning on his staff. The Magic Saint chuckled, saying that Suron had been traveling all over the place ever since she learned elemental magic. Really? She had only become the Magic Saint's disciple 2 days ago. At the Hunter Academy, the first things you learn are mana mastery and mana training. And if this was her first time practicing mana mastery, I was sure it would take 2 to 3 weeks to learn. Kim Se-jun's eyes widened in disbelief and astonishment. The Magic Saint shared his sentiment, having witnessed the girl master mana training in less than a day. He had only intended to dedicate the rest of his short life to helping her grow, but he never expected her to be so interesting. Kim Se-jun then told the Magic Saint everything that had happened at the academy. He used Suron's safety to persuade the Magic Saint to let her enroll in the Central Academy with him. The Sword Saint and he were being watched by the Justice Church. Didn't he think that Suron would eventually become a target too? I hope you will consider all aspects for your own safety and Suron's. Kim Se-jun genuinely thought of her as a younger sister. Even if this hadn't happened, he would have proposed the same thing. The Magic Saint pondered for a while before finally agreeing to let Kim Se-jun take her to the academy. Everyone welcomed her cheerfully, especially Min Yoon. Returning to the matter of the competition, Kim Se-jun announced that the 3 of them would form a team. Suron and Min Yoon were incredibly excited to hear that. As for the team name, Kim Se-jun mumbled for a moment before coming up with the name Dream Team, which sounded pretty cool and meaningful. They all unanimously resolved to train hard to win. And just like that, we became famous throughout South Korea. Our names were mentioned everywhere, and that was how Dream Team was formed. This was the beginning of a competition organized not by the government or the association, but by private corporations. Simply put, it was a competition sponsored by the major guilds. The reason the major guilds spent a colossal amount of money in the form of sponsorships for these competitions was simple. Their goal was to gain access to and recruit outstanding students. There were still professional hunters who operated on their own. However, the vast majority of professional hunters belonged to a guild and operated as a team. So their intention wasn't just to evaluate based on individual strength, but also on how the students worked as a team and what their potential was. They would then give priority to recruiting the students with the most potential. That intention was hidden within this raid. As a result, the major guilds began lobbying for support from the government and associations in the form of sponsorships. Smelling money, some television stations, and other organizations also got involved. And that's how the competition as we know it came to be. Only first and second rank hunter academies could participate. So, you could say this raid competition is where all the money and attention is focused. It was a competition for the elite. The presence of Deng Sigu, Bak Unang, and Jo Min-jun from Gaon Academy at this place stunned everyone. Min-yun heard them whispering about the famous figures from other academies and felt indignant on Kim Se-jun's behalf. He felt that his friend was just as skilled, so why the hell wasn't anyone freaking out over him? In a flash, the first round of the raid battle began, featuring the 7-star monster, the Conqueror Spider. Lee Do-hun, a member of Team Ares, grimaced and clutched his head as he saw so many teams fail right out of the gate. He guessed that Deng Jimin must have applied some of his new research to this artificial dungeon. That's why so many student teams were failing. The boss is probably going to be surprised by this result. Should I go see the teams that are still fighting? Do-hyun thought with a frown. Gaon Academy successfully cleared the dungeon in 30 minutes and 12 seconds. At the same time, Kim Se-jun's dream team finished in 9 minutes and 34 seconds. It left the judges so stunned they thought the timer was broken. The machine really was faulty, but it was a measurement error that had delayed the time by 30 seconds. The Kim Se-jun group's real time was 9 minutes and 4 seconds. They were absolute beasts. Back in the dungeon, a few minutes earlier, Kim Se-jun had used Longinus to effortlessly sweep away the monster's thick spider webs to conserve Gungnir's power. He cleared the path while Min-yun handled the fighting. The two of them coordinated their attacks on the monster seamlessly, which was quite an eye-opener for Suran. She felt that she couldn't just stand by and do nothing. With that said, she unleashed her mana, which flashed with sharp streams of energy, and finished the monster off in the blink of an eye. After dealing with it, the three of them happily walked out of the dungeon to the sound of Min-yun's non-stop chatter. When Kim Se-jun asked where all his weapons were, Min-yun said he'd thrown them all away, keeping only a dagger and arrows as his master had requested. The two went back and forth for a while, oblivious to the fact that everyone around them was staring with a mixture of bewilderment and astonishment. In a flash, they realized that the two were the times Kim Se-jun and Min-yun. Min-yun was so happy to ride on Kim Se-jun's fame that he couldn't stop grinning. He kept shouting loudly, making Suran and Kim Se-jun so embarrassed they wished the ground would swallow them whole. At that moment, Deng Sigu also shot a hostile look towards Kim Se-jun. The team from M. Hunter Academy, who had just emerged, was not only slow but was also under the delusion that everyone was talking about them. It was truly pathetic. Moving on to the second round, which required collecting all the magic crystals in the dungeon, Kim Se-jun's dream team once again finished in first place with a time of 4 minutes and 23 seconds. Then, in round 3, which involved eliminating an artificial monster, his team once again took the top spot in 19 seconds. Next up was round 4, the Dryad Forest. Kim Se-jun and Min-yun split up the attack zones. He pulled Suran behind him, his hands tightly gripping his sword as he relentlessly slashed at their tree roots. The monsters kept regenerating. They didn't disappear completely, but their numbers had decreased significantly. Kim Se-jun thought to himself, then suddenly noticed something glowing floating in the air, and moreover, it contained a colossal amount of mana. Don't tell me it's the core of the dungeon or some kind of medium that helps the monsters regenerate. He was startled by the thought when a screech echoed from behind him. He immediately used his staff, aiming for the mysterious glowing mass to shatter it. But when his Gungnir touched it, it passed straight through, as if it were air, which was incredibly strange. The mass of Dryad roots continued their relentless attack. Kim Se-jun froze for a moment, realizing that all this time, he hadn't fully grasped the power of Longinus. The spear of Longinus can't be inferior to Gungnir. With that thought, Kim Se-jun gathered all his strength and ran towards the glowing mass, wanting to try one more time. Over on the Gaon Academy team's side, after a long struggle, they finally finished with a time of 44 minutes and 51 seconds. They were extremely confident, feeling that their performance this time would surely overwhelm the other teams. Our judgment was good, and we didn't make any mistakes. We also lasted twice as long as the previous record of 20 minutes set by the Hunter team, and we broke our own limits. That was the best result we could achieve, Deng Sigu told himself resentfully. As soon as they reached the exit, they saw Dream Team already standing there. They entered at the same time as us, but came out first. I think we've definitely won this time, the girl in their group said gleefully. Deng Sigu felt that was to be expected. Kim Se-jun's team's achievements up until now had all been due to luck, but the leaderboard that appeared at that moment suddenly shattered his arrogant demeanor. Dream Team was in first place with a time of infinite. This absurdity made the entire stadium feel like it was about to erupt. Do-hyun's eyes widened. He guessed that with this result, Kim Se-jun's group could step into the world of professional hunters as soon as the competition was over. He broke out in a sweat, telling himself that he had to recruit them at all costs. Kim Se-jun himself couldn't believe he had done it. At first, I speculated that the Spear of Longinus had the ability to penetrate mana barriers, but Gungnir can do that too. In the end, I could only convince myself that they were of different tiers. I have a feeling that's not really the unique effect of the Spear of Longinus. Gungnir had no effect, but the Spear of Longinus passed through. Kim Se-jun recalled the moment he appeared like a phantom and shattered that sphere. Perhaps the Spear of Longinus has the ability to land a direct blow on a target's true entity. I still need to run more tests before I can come to a conclusion, he said to himself in a daze. Min Yoon and Suran, standing beside him, also couldn't believe that Kim Sejun had made all the dryads vanish completely in that moment. Seething, Dung Sigu went to find Kim Sejun. He cockily asked what kind of tricks he had used. He admitted that Kim Sejun was a rare talent. Not long ago, he'd heard about what happened at the Hunter team's simulation test. However, achieving an infinite score in the 4th round was absolutely impossible. If it were Li Hun, maybe it would be possible. He was probably so disappointed that he'd compared that idiot to her. Her level is completely different from ours. Dung Sigu stood there, dazed for a moment, then turned and walked away under Kim Sejun's confused gaze. Min Yoon furiously cursed after him, fuming. The final round was about to begin. Kim Sejun felt that his group would probably win because they had ranked first in every round so far. These challenges were a lot easier than he thought. Suddenly, a loud voice called out from behind them. A man approached and stammered, "I've come to make you all an offer. If you agree, we will give you tickets to a competition with a prize of up to 6.5 billion. The man said, and this enormous sum of money shocked Kim Sejun's group, who couldn't believe their ears. In return, I have one condition. You know there will be a 9-star monster on stage 5, right? Although it's not as strong as a real 9-star monster since it's only summoned by magic, it's definitely not a monster that a few cadets can face. Besides, the goal of stage 5 is not to defeat the boss, but to evaluate how the cadets attack powerful monsters and also how they adapt to the surrounding terrain. The above factors will be comprehensively evaluated to determine your score. Of course, defeating the boss will give you the highest possible score. But no team has ever conquered the annual battle. Our condition is this. Please, defeat the boss. If you fail, Team Dream will lose all of that prize money. Every single word the man spoke made Kim Sejun hesitate for a moment. If he refused, he wouldn't lose anything. The 3 great academies must have used their influence. More importantly, how could he make Dung Sigu's reaction go as planned? The other academies probably think I cheated. The 3 great academies are definitely trying to eliminate Team Dream and restore the honor they lost with this offer. Kim Sejun looked at Min Yoon and Suran for a moment, unsure of what to do. What should I do? If we succeed, we'll get 6.5 billion. If we fail, we'll lose even the 3 billion we could have had. He lowered his head in thought, and a moment later, he made a new proposal to the man. Use your influence to get them to increase the total prize money to 10 billion, and we will accept their offer. This one sentence from him made Min Yoon, Suran, and the man stare in wide-eyed astonishment. I need 500 million won right now. If the 6.5 billion prize money is divided among 3 people, each person will receive more than 2 billion won. After spending 500 million won, the remaining 1.5 billion won won't be enough to cover the ever-increasing law of causality. But if the prize money increases to 10 billion, I'll be able to buy both lessons and elixirs. That's enough for me to take the risk, Kim Sejun thought cheerfully. The man could only dejectedly return to relay his offer to Du Li Hyun. They've seen through the organizers' intentions. I think their combat senses are really good, but I thought they would refuse. Honestly, Team Dream doesn't need to take such a risk. It just shows how confident they are. The surrounding staff whispered amongst themselves. Du Li Hyun, on the other hand, was always certain that Kim Sejun's group could do it. After all, the monster this time is just a mummy. Nothing too difficult for Team Dream. The final round of the competition quickly began. For the goal of 10 billion gold, Team Dream excitedly shook hands, their steps even more energetic as they entered the dungeon. As soon as they stepped inside, a bizarre, dark aura filled the air. Outside, Du Li Hyun was so horrified he spilled his coffee when he realized that inside the dungeon now was not a 9-star monster, but a ferocious 10-star monster, the Dao. It seemed there had been a malfunction. Du Li Hyun didn't want to witness cadets dying so senselessly. He immediately climbed over the barrier, rushing inside. After all, there had been a case where a cadet died from a magically summoned monster due to a mental attack from a psychic-type monster. A mental attack means the brain will be damaged. In the past, the psychic-type monster that caused the accident was only a 5- or 6-star summon. The psychic monster before them now was also the Dao, an extremely powerful 10-star monster. That's not a monster a cadet can handle, Du Li Hyun thought in terror. Min Yoon and Suran were currently being mind-controlled by the monster, their minds agitated and frantic. If this continues, the entire Dream Team will die in disgrace. The machine operators were also struggling to find a solution due to the system overload. Du Li Hyun angrily cursed the useless staff, pulling at his hair as he thought of Kim Sejun, when suddenly, the system screen showed a scene that left everyone stunned. Kim Sejun was facing the monster directly, but his mind was as calm as if nothing was happening. Suran and Min Yoon had already fallen to the monster's mind control. They were clutching their heads, rolling on the ground and screaming non-stop. The monster now shifted its target to Kim Sejun. You must be enjoying your winning streak. But for how long? Don't you know you're nothing? How shameful. Do you think you'll keep winning even after you become a pro? As it was rambling on, the monster suddenly froze when it realized Kim Sejun was completely unfazed. It was all thanks to his rapidly increasing enlightenment progress from before. Taking advantage of its distraction, Kim Sejun immediately grabbed his staff and charged. The panicked monster tried to counterattack with corrupting words that burrowed deep into his mind. Kim Sejun's subconscious thoughts were being tainted by the Tao's evil thoughts. They were the seeds of doubt and anxiety that he had nurtured in the deepest darkness. It was his teacher's old lessons that had helped his enlightenment process skyrocket, but the monster's malicious words still echoed endlessly in his ears, clinging like a leech, venomous and vicious. One who is in despair speaks of their past, while one worries about the future. But the one who speaks of the present is the one who finds peace in their heart. If a painter lets greed cloud their eyes and paints recklessly, the painting will end up stained black. Sometimes, you must know how to let go of the burdens in your heart. If you feel confused, accept the present. Climb the green mountain and lie down. Listen to the sound of the water and the blue clouds in the sky. Like the mountains, the rivers, and the earth around you. Are you not also a child of the universe? You deserve to belong where you belong, even if you don't feel like it. By believing in these wonderful things, Kim Sejun successfully escaped the monster's psychological manipulation. The Buddha had granted Kim Sejun strength, helping him achieve enlightenment and realize the truth of his life through these teachings. Kim Sejun was able to wash away the layer of black dust that covered his life, standing firm as he moved forward to face the monster directly. Every nerve in his body jolted as if electrocuted, but the seeds of doubt and anxiety withered away along with it. I will not be swayed by evil thoughts anymore. In other words, I'm in an unshakable state. Kim Sejun closed his eyes to focus, and his body subsequently emitted an immense, brilliant light. He swung his staff towards the bewildered monster, returning it to the earth in a single moment. The system screen went dark and then turned off. Everyone erupted into chaos at this strange sight. The Tao was originally a 10-star intelligent monster species. Honestly, no cadet here could withstand its mental attack. Furthermore, physical attacks are ineffective against it because it's a spirit without a physical body. That's why only Holy Heart could handle the Tao dungeons that have appeared in Korea before. But Kim Sejun took it down in a single blow. To be honest, he's not someone our association can handle, is he? Du Li-hun said with a chuckle. In the player waiting room, Sigu's eyes were wide and his mouth was agape as he witnessed Kim Sejun's last feat, a 10-star monster. Even if it was summoned by magic, it had to be at least an 8-star or 9-star monster. And for a 9-star monster, unless you're an S-rank hunter, attacking it is pretty much hopeless. Maybe if it were Li-hun, it'd be possible, but this is impossible. After a life-or-death battle with the strawberry, Kim Seo-jun's limbs were so shaky he couldn't even stand up. Is it because my enlightenment progress increased? It took 90 days to get to just 17.5%, but now it's at 31.7%. That's a 14.2% jump in such a short time. No matter how you look at it, this is a top-tier enlightenment lesson. My own personal progress buffer. While Kim Seo-jun was still dazed, Min-yoon and Suwon came to. They were so shocked to hear that Kim Seo-jun had taken down the monster by himself that they nearly fainted again. The three of them hugged each other excitedly and walked out the gate. As soon as they appeared, they were swarmed by recruiters from famous universities. Everyone wanted to get their hands on Kim Seo-jun. The scene was a total madhouse. Du Li-hun immediately rushed over to rescue the three of them just in time. Se-john, hearing the news, also hurried to the hospital to check on him. Luckily, he was okay. I was so scared. I thought something terrible was going to happen to him. Kim Seo-jun hasn't even taken the professional hunter exam yet, but I can't think of him as just a trainee anymore. This was destined from the first moment we met. I've also gained a lot from you, Kim Seo-jun. That's a given, and something to celebrate. But what is this complicated feeling in my heart? Se-john clutched his chest in confusion when suddenly there was a knock on the door. It was the chairman, who had come personally to see him because of the strawberry incident. The young man who wielded the blue dragon sword, a sword the Sword Saint had never entrusted to anyone. When I heard the strawberry had appeared, I thought no one would survive. He handled it all by himself. I finally understand why the Sword Saint is so interested in him. On top of that, even the Sword Saint's beloved granddaughter is by his side. It's a good thing I came here myself, the chairman thought with a satisfied smile. Kim Seo-jun, just now remembering what happened, quietly asked why the boss was the strawberry and not a mummy. It was all because the dungeon's mana core was overloaded when Deng Jimin applied her mutation research results to this competition for the first time. Mutation. If the reason the dungeon's mana core overloaded was due to mutations, that means we can create an artificial distortion. And if we can really cause an artificial distortion, does that mean the Great Deluge was also a distortion? Kim Seo-jun bit his nails, thinking. The chairman apologized directly for the incident and then offered to grant any request he had. Kim Seo-jun immediately held up 3 fingers, hinting at 3 billion. And not just that, but 3 billion for times each times person in the group, which left the chairman completely speechless. The raid, full of unpredictable surprises, had finally come to an end. Kim Seo-jun had displayed skills far beyond the imagination of the elites from the 3 great academies, and it was all because of the 9-star monster incident with the strawberry caused by the overloaded mana core. From guilds to ordinary people, all of South Korea was buzzing about Kim Seo-jun's dream team. Suwon, however, insisted on refusing the prize money, feeling she hadn't contributed nearly as much as Kim Seo-jun and Min Yoon. "I didn't really do anything. Most importantly, the captain handled the strawberry by himself. We probably would have died without him. What's the point of money if you're dead?" Min Yoon also flatly refused the 3 billion, which made Kim Seo-jun so happy he could have cried. 3 billion was the first place prize, plus a total of 3.5 billion gold from the second, third, and fourth place awards, and another 3.5 billion in sponsorships from major organizations and guilds. And finally, the 9 billion promised by the Chairman's Association. From the total of 19 billion won, Min Yoon and Suwon only took 3 billion each, plus the 9.5 billion I already had. That's a total of 22.5 billion. I can get the Great Sage, Heaven's Equals course for only 4.5 billion, Kim Seo-jun thought gleefully. When he asked if the group could raid a 6-star dungeon, Suwon informed him that they could only raid it if there was at least one A-rank hunter on the team. Suwon is still a B-rank hunter. "At this rate, we won't have the right to raid the dungeon," Kim Seo-jun thought, flustered. Suwon, worried this would disappoint him, started apologizing profusely, which made Kim Seo-jun a little awkward. "So what should I do now? Since I can't raid a 6-star dungeon, I can't make a lot of money. Should I wait a bit longer to earn the 4.5 billion, or should I just buy the mana course first? It'd be best to learn both. Maybe I should ask the advisor." Kim Seo-jun pondered. The moment he picked up his phone, the advisor suddenly shot out of the screen, nearly giving Kim Seo-jun a heart attack. Not funny. Kim Seo-jun was pissed. Hearing that he was struggling with which course to take first, the advisor told him he could get both if there was a causality discount, which stunned Kim Seo-jun. It's exactly what it sounds like. A special event where you get a discount based on your causality. Kim Seo-jun. These kinds of discount events exist in the Supreme Academy, though they're not very common. You can even get up to a 100% discount. The words hit Kim Seo-jun like a bombshell. He was utterly shocked, never dreaming that one day he could get the Great Sage, Heaven's Equals course for free like this. "There's an event going on at our academy right now. It's a support event for the students with the highest scores. To be precise, it's an event to help those who score high on the mock exam." The advisor said, "If it's the mock exam for transcendent students, then the score Kim Seo-jun got last time was, well, a bit horrendous. You could say he failed spectacularly. But unlike back then, I now know Zhang Senfeng's footwork and the power of the Heck Queen. My steadfast Buddhist heart has also developed a lot since then, so I could probably get a higher score if I retook that test. But it's still impossible to get a high enough score to be one of the top students," Kim Seo-jun thought, pulling his hair in frustration. Suddenly, the advisor changed his wording, sparking a tiny glimmer of hope in Kim Seo-jun. The advisor explained, "Instead of calling them students with the highest scores, it's more accurate to call them students with the most improved scores. Simply put, it looks at the score increase compared to your last test. The discount percentage is equal to the improvement percentage. So, if your score increases by 50% compared to the last test, you get a 50% discount. That means you don't need a perfect score, because the benchmark is your previous test," the advisor said with a chuckle. In other words, Kim Seo-jun's score just had to be better than last time. Well, no risk, no reward. He felt like he couldn't just pass up this opportunity. He immediately agreed to give it a shot. That afternoon, Kim Seo-jun prepared the fake gold ingot that Fanya liked and paid the registration fee for the mock exam. "Let's see. If I do this, I'll have 21.5 billion left. I need at least a 60% discount to bring the cost down to 10.8 billion so I can get both. On top of that, if I factor in the 2 billion for the price of the elixir, I'll need 70%, which translates to a score of 20.3. There are 7 subjects in total. I just need to increase each one by 3 points. Perfect." Kim Seo-jun focused his mind, thinking it over, and then, in a flash, he hit the yes button. Part 1 of the official test began. The scenery around Kim Seo-jun suddenly transformed unpredictably. He gripped the gold ingot in his hand, sweating as he waited for the monster to appear. Whoosh! A blur of speed suddenly shot past Kim Seo-jun, making him stumble slightly. Kim Seo-jun gritted his teeth, threw the gold ingot towards the monster, then drew his staff and bolted in the opposite direction to create a diversion. But who would have thought? The thing he never expected was that the Hydra had somehow grown 9 more heads, and its power had multiplied by 9 as well. The time limit for Kim Seo-jun was only 30 minutes. Talk about being down on your luck and then hitting the jackpot of misfortune. The advisor put on an innocent, wide-eyed look, a stark contrast to Kim Seo-jun, who was currently screaming his head off. "Huh? You didn't know? I thought you knew. There's no way we'd ask the exact same questions as the last test and just let everyone memorize the answers. Is that why you brought the gold ingot?" the advisor asked, playing dumb. What a freaking troll. What good is telling me this now? He had no choice but to keep running for his life, while trying to withstand the barrage of magic the monster was spewing like rain. I just need to increase each subject by 3 more points. No more, no less. Kim Seo-jun gritted his teeth and endured, all for the sake of those precious points. After regaining his composure, he used Cloud-Stepping Ladder, combined with his lightness skill, to relentlessly attack the monster. The monster, of course, was no pushover either. Ambushed by Kim Seo-jun, it angrily opened its mouth, bared its fangs, and spat out a stream of poisonous mana, which he barely dodged. Spoke too soon. Less than a second later, Kim Seo-jun was hit for real. A single cut from it across his shoulder was enough to send pain searing through his bones. All he could do was roll around and scream his head off, completely useless. Phase 1 for Kim Seo-jun had failed. His remaining time was 28 minutes and 47 seconds. Seeing Kim Seo-jun crying his eyes out, flattened on the ground, the advisor cautiously approached to ask, "Is the Hydra's poison that painful?" "The Hydra is a top-ranked monster for its poison, so I bet it hurts a lot. Is that a lot enough for you?" Kim Seo-jun was in so much pain, he felt like he was about to meet his ancestors. Come to think of it, in Greek and Roman mythology, when he was poisoned by the Hydra's toxin, he couldn't overcome it. He no longer wanted to be immortal and begged to die. I see now why he had to ask for death, Kim Seo-jun thought, his face pale. After a moment's rest, he finally managed to push himself up. Because this was his first attempt, his learning rate was still increasing. If he kept this up, he could gain immunity and train at the same time. He could stop now, but the advisor wasn't sure if he'd have enough points. Kim Seo-jun had no choice but to see it through. Even though he was scared as hell, he still had to press yes to continue the test. The 9-headed monster reappeared ferociously. This subject is related to my combat proficiency. That means I can only get a high score by taking care of this Hydra properly, Kim Seo-jun thought, immediately getting into his stance and flinging his aura sword straight at the beast. Just as he was celebrating, thinking he'd dealt with one of its heads, he was left speechless as a new, even more formidable head grew back from the severed neck. After a terrifying explosion caused by the monster, the very cool and handsome Kim Seo-jun was wiped out, even though only 19 seconds had passed. He lay on the ground, pale and trembling, not knowing what to do. In the last exam, I got 4.2 points by hitting Fafnir with the Spear of Longinus. I don't know exactly how the score is calculated. If it's based on the effectiveness of the attack, then I'm definitely screwed. Kim Seo-jun grimaced, pulling at his hair in frustration. Just how many heads did he have to take down to beat this monster? The advisor told him to look up guides online, but they weren't much help. Even if you get points deducted, you can still achieve a high score based on the strategies from the commentary lectures. It's up to you. Kim Seo-jun, is that supposed to be comforting? Is that supposed to be guidance? The advisor said with a beaming smile. It was enough to drive Kim Seo-jun insane. After N failures, Kim Seo-jun's face was now thick as a brick. He didn't know what fear was anymore, just silently cursing that detestable advisor as he charged forward. Then, after countless grueling battles, Kim Seo-jun reached a score of 8.8, an increase of 4.6 points, which left him extremely satisfied. The advisor standing by his side praised Kim Seo-jun to the high heavens, making him puff up with pride. Although this punk liked to mock him more than praise him. Anyway, I've achieved my goal of getting 3 extra points in the first subject. Let's keep going. Kim Seo-jun steeled his resolve and told himself, I've messed everything up. Kim Seo-jun, his face pale, dropped to his knees in a daze. 9 days ago, he had taken the second test, basic endurance. The requirement was to hold up the sky in place of the incarnation of the god Atlas for 1 hour. Kim Seo-jun felt like his shoulders would dislocate and his spine would shift, barely managing to get a score of 5.9 points, a plus 2.2. 6 days ago, he had a staring contest with the incarnation of a god, until his eyeballs almost fell out. In the end, he got a reflex score of 4.2 points, a plus 1.9. Then, 3 days ago, Kim Seo-jun had to endure Arlich's mana drain for a set time, scoring 1.6 mana points, a plus 0.4. After adding up all his scores, he was utterly shocked to realize he only had 9.1 points, a whole 11.2 short of his 20.3 goal. The advisor grinned and informed him that his score improvement had to exceed the 50% mark to receive the event reward. Kim Seo-jun was sweating bullets. His face crumpled like a wet rag as he tremblingly clicked on the 5th test. He was determined to pass this time. The requirement was to listen to Erich's Requiem for the specified duration. Luckily, thanks to his strong mind, Kim Seo-jun peacefully passed the challenge after having his ears cleansed by that song. Level 2 appeared with a challenge requiring Kim Seo-jun to expel a demon from the 9th circle of hell that was controlling his mind. This challenge was a piece of cake for Kim Seo-jun. He didn't even bother listening to that demon's rambling. Level 3 followed with the requirement to resist the seduction of the goddess Aphrodite. The woman swayed as she approached Kim Seo-jun, but what he was more concerned about was how she wasn't cold despite wearing so little. The fact that a hero could actually pass the trial of a beauty like this made the advisor's eyes widen in disbelief. Level 4 appeared with countless screams from the depths of hell. It forced him to endure it for a set amount of time. Kim Sejun, a player who fears no evil, managed to shut up the loudmouth demons with just a few nonsensical questions. The advisor was frozen, stiff, unable to believe how awesome he was. Level 5 forced him to resist the temptations of the Demon King, Mephistopheles' incarnation for a set time. The Demon King appeared instantly, manifesting human sins before Kim Sejun's eyes, making him break out in a cold sweat. Though he didn't know how, he was ultimately able to resist it. However, at the final sin of pride, Kim Sejun failed miserably. After trying again N times, he was fortunately able to succeed. The test for the next subject will be held in 3 days. The advisor was shocked to the core to hear that Kim Sejun's unwavering mind progress, which was at 15.5% just last week, had now risen to 31.7%. Not only that, but the progress of the Black Monkey King's lecture had also increased to an absurd level, making the advisor unable to believe it. Kim Sejun claimed it was all just due to his good luck. After today, the mental score he achieved was 22.8, a plus 13. Such a sweet number made him shout for joy. A few days later, they finally announced the results for Kim Sejun. He had done it. His goal was to increase by 70%, but instead, he had actually increased by a whopping 80%. In other words, it was equivalent to an 80% discount coupon. He could finally listen to the lecture of the great sage, equal to heaven. If it weren't for his strong heart, he would have fainted over and over again lifetimes ago. I'm just curious, what score do I need to not fail? Kim Sejun turned to ask the advisor. The young advisor informed him that he just needed to score above 60 points in each subject. But even if Kim Sejun's total score exceeded the standard, if even one subject was below 60 points, he would fail immediately. In other words, Kim Sejun needed to achieve a total score of 630 or more. The news hit him like a bolt from the blue. Oh, I'm screwed. Kim Sejun's total score was only 52.2, not even a fraction of the required score. After getting the discount coupon, he decided to register for the Great Sage, equal to Heaven's class right away. Finding the Meteor Staff Technique section quite appealing, Kim Sejun tried clicking on it to check it out. The system reported an error because to join this class he needed the Great Sage, equal to Heaven's ultimate skills, parry, block, thrust at level 5. One day, I'll definitely be able to learn the Meteor Staff Technique, so for now, I'll just learn what I can. Kim Sejun thought, then immediately clicked on the Great Sage, equal to Heaven's basic spearmanship and staff techniques. The 5.4 billion won tuition fee made his hands tremble violently, but in the end, he had to swallow his tears and register. The moment he clicked the play button, his phone screen suddenly froze, making Kim Sejun slightly worried. If anything happened to his 5 billion, Kim Sejun's life might as well be over. Just then, a magical spell shot out from the position of the Great Sage, equal to Heaven. He finally appeared to teach Kim Sejun. He taught him basic spear and staff techniques, parrying, blocking, thrusting, as well as demonstrating the movements with complete mastery. Kim Sejun watched with wide-eyed admiration and awe. The system then set a requirement for him to perform the Great Sage, equal to Heaven's ultimate technique, the parry motion, 100 times. Kim Sejun sighed, wondering if he could even do it. Oh, right. Up until now, you've been taking basic classes for beginners, but from the intermediate level, your classes will be considered transcendent classes. That's why the tuition is so expensive. This is a completely different level. It's better if you experience it for yourself, the advisor said. Kim Sejun then swung his spear, trying to practice the movements taught by the Great Sage, equal to Heaven. These truly were super-class ultimate skills. He only needed to brandish the spear a few times, and streams of magic followed, shooting out violently and causing the ground around him to crack open. Kim Sejun was stunned, his mouth agape, unable to believe this magic could be so powerful. At a certain restaurant, representatives from the top 3 Hunter Academies, Gia and Hunter Moss, are holding a meeting. The situation for our top 3 Hunter Academies isn't looking too good. They say that all 3 of our academies combined aren't even a match for the Dream Academy. Jin Hun spoke up. So, what do you think we should do? You mean we have to do something about Kim Sejun? Jin Seong asked back. At the very least, we have to crush his will to fight. Jin Hun said it so casually it put Jin Seong on edge, because if anything went wrong, even Hunter Y could be wiped out. Jin Hun also felt that Jin Seong had a good point. Annoyed, the two of them stood up, about to leave, but then they froze for a few seconds when Jin Hun mentioned the friendly tournament. Jin Hun's eyes narrowed into a smirk, stating he would consider sending Li Hun this time. Meanwhile, on Kim Sejun's end, he had turned everything around him into a pile of rubble with just a single, basic swing of his staff. It was as if the power of a god was released with that swing, Kim Sejun thought. Even so, this move consumes a lot of energy. Just as expected from the intermediate-level curriculum of the Great Sage, Heaven's Equal, Kim Sejun had taken a transcendent strength class for beginners. In other words, the class was beyond his limits. So right now, Kim Sejun naturally had no choice but to struggle. At this rate, even 10 times would be difficult, let alone 1,000. Kim Sejun flopped onto the ground, panting as he thought, "Weren't you also planning on taking the Mana class?" Because Kim Sejun was making tremendous progress in his lessons with Heracles. If he studied that alongside the Mana course, he could achieve his goal. The advisor's suggestion quickly lifted Kim Sejun's spirits. After fixing the road surface around him, Kim Sejun, under the advisor's guidance, decided to give Swordmaster Lu Dongbin's Qi cultivation class a try. After listening to his lecture for a while, Kim Sejun's head was buzzing and it felt like water off a duck's back, but he still vaguely understood. A part of the body called the Niwan Palace, also known as the brain. So, since the brain is a key part of the upper Dantian, is it also called the mind region? Kim Sejun wondered. The upper region is the brain, the middle region is the heart, and the lower part is the abdomen. So, to summarize Master Lu Dongbin's cultivation lesson, compared to training mana, cultivating qi gradually increases the amount of energy in the body. Accumulating this qi is quite easy, but it takes time. If you want to be safe, you have to cultivate qi. If I want efficiency and safety, I should choose qi cultivation. So that's what he meant, Kim Sejun pondered. Suddenly, the system showed a lecture on aura strength, taught by an instructor named Svid. Kim Sejun felt that something was strange here. I can't take 2 classes at the same time, right? According to Master Lu Dongbin, the upper Dantian is the brain region. So, doesn't that mean the lecture on the mind of firm resolve by Gautama Buddha could function as the upper Dantian? He asked the advisor. This mind of firm resolve was something that had to be learned in a transcendent course. You could also say that all transcendent students have already self-taught the upper Dantian by using Gautama Buddha's mind of firm resolve. So that means using all 3 parts of the Dantian, upper, middle, and lower, isn't impossible. My lecture comprehension speed has increased. I have to get it. Kim Sejun made up his mind, looking at the screen and telling himself, the advisor's other students have only ever chosen based on their preferences. Kim Sejun then put on his cutest puppy dog face, his eyes sparkling, begging the advisor to help him ask the instructor if it was possible. He really wanted to learn both, but the money issue was the biggest headache. Well, might as well let that advisor kid ask and find out. As soon as he got home, Kim Sejun saw Seon standing in the house with 3 strangers. They were the representatives from the Hunterman and Jia academies. The moment they saw Kim Sejun, they rushed over to greet him. Kim Sejun had no F-times cacking idea what the hell these top 3 academy reps were doing here. Turns out, they wanted to invite Kim Sejun's academy to participate in a friendly tournament with their academies. He was thrilled until he heard the tournament had no prize money, and his excitement died instantly. Then there's no F-times cacking way I'm joining. Despite the others pleading and begging, Kim Sejun ended up pushing the responsibility onto Min Yun, making the representatives' faces twist as their plan went off the rails at the last minute. A few minutes earlier, the fact that Kim Sejun demanded a prize of 6 billion had already shocked and stunned them. They had no idea he was that greedy for money. But if Kim Sejun didn't participate in this tournament, all their efforts would be for nothing. This competition was organized specifically to beat him. After all, the whole group kept making a ruckus, making Min Yun, who was standing to the side, anxious for them. Kim Sejun also had no idea what to do. He himself was being crushed by all these money problems. After waiting for a long while, Jin Hun finally spoke up. The representative said that after some consideration, they had decided to set a prize, but it would come with conditions. They wanted to be the ones to decide the competition method and rules, and they also required everyone from Dream Academy to participate. Everyone happily agreed. Even Miss Sion gave an A-OK to join the match this time. And just like that, the prize was set at 6 billion, exactly as Kim Sejun had originally proposed. The competition format wasn't team battles, but one-on-one duels, so if he won, he could pocket that entire 6 billion. From that moment on, all the members of Dream Academy trained their magic diligently every day, because besides the 6 billion prize, there were other rewards, 4 billion for second place and 2 billion for third place. So, the total prize money was 12 billion. Seeing Miss Seon training her heart out for him, sweating buckets like this, made Kim Sejun feel a little awkward. If you're doing all this for me, you don't have to push yourself so hard, Kim Sejun said. You've always been the one helping me, and I've never done anything for you. I have to at least repay the favor once. You don't need to worry so much, Seon quickly replied and immediately pushed Kim Sejun out so she could continue to focus on her training. Kim Sejun scratched his head as he walked out, feeling like he still had a few things to prepare for this tournament. Just then, the advisor sent Kim Sejun a message, suggesting he pause the mana course for now. It was a bit complicated, so the advisor couldn't explain everything over the phone. Although Kim Sejun didn't really understand, he decided to switch to his currently available courses to speed up his progress. A few days later, on the morning of the friendly tournament, Kim Sejun's group arrived at the venue, which was as huge as a battlefield. As expected of a competition organized by the top 3 academies, a crowd of reporters had already gathered around the entrance. Seon opened the match schedule and saw that the first round was an elimination tournament between students from the various schools. Over on the side, Suran and Min Yoon were bickering loudly, but immediately shut up when they heard the reporters suddenly erupt over the appearance of a certain figure. The girl surrounded by reporters and journalists was Lee Hyun. Amidst the countless camera flashes and the numerous questions thrown at her, one particularly tactless reporter let a question slip. There are many rumors that the reason you're not participating in the friendly tournament is because of Kim Sejun. Is there any truth to that? Lee Hyun froze for about 2 seconds, then forced a fake smile and asked in return, "Who's Kim Sejun?" It scared the reporters so badly that their faces went pale and they froze stiff. Witnessing this chaotic scene, Kim Sejun now realized that she was the infamous, renowned hunter Lee Hyun. Min Yoon blurted out that Lee Hyun was pretty and was immediately slapped repeatedly by Suran. The commotion from these two lovebirds attracted the attention of the reporters. They quickly realized that Kim Sejun's group was also at the competition this time and immediately swarmed them like ants to a crumb. Kim Sejun could only give a wry smile and lead his group inside. In the waiting room, the coordinators announced that personal equipment would be strictly forbidden in this tournament. Each person was given a suitable piece of equipment. The quality wasn't bad, but the group wasn't very used to it. Min Yoon and Suran were like cats and dogs. Whenever they were near each other, they'd cause a commotion, leaving Kim Sejun speechless. Kim Sejun, for his part, held the spear provided by the organizers, feeling a bit worried, wondering if he could even use it properly. The first round was between Kim Sejun and some blonde guy. He looked at Kim Sejun's scrawny figure with annoyance, feeling resentful at the thought that his friend, Dung Sigu, had dropped out of the competition halfway through just because he heard Kim Sejun was participating. Who the hell is this guy that they had to make a rule banning personal equipment? That idiot Dung Sigu actually chickened out just because he was scared of him. He sighed to himself, and with a fierce surge of determination, he swore he'd show Kim Sejun who the real super rookie was. What a total greenhorn. After the signal to start, Kim Sejun vanished like the wind, leaving him completely baffled, wondering what the hell was going on. Then, a moment later, Kim Sejun suddenly appeared right in front of him for a surprise attack, scaring the piss out of him. The massive shockwave from Kim Sejun slammed into him, making him tremble uncontrollably as rocks and debris were kicked up into a cloud of dust. With the final, direct knockout blow facing the razor-sharp point of his spear, he was frozen stiff with fear, with no strength left to resist. Victory belonged to Kim Sejun in an instant. He then noticed the spear in Kim Sejun's hand had already cracked into pieces, and not knowing when it happened was even more terrifying. What a classic setup. Just as I thought, it couldn't take it. To be honest, from the first moment I touched that spear,